banter on the stream as they actually won the largest online Pokemon tournament in the history of competitive Pokemon. Over 6,000 competitors, and Rogov was the one that topped them all.
It was a really impressive showing from Rogov in that big online tournament. It's a big deal within our community, one of those big, hey, we got champions, let's all play on it for the first time together. And Rogov came out on top of a huge stacked field using a team with Mega Charizard Y, but moving away from it this weekend as he's got the Dragonite and Frostlass.
It's actually so exciting to be able to see these new Mega Evolutions that came in through Legends ZA. I had so much fun playing through that game and also getting to experience all of the new things that this game was going to offer. And Kalen is also going to have one of those new Mega Evolutions in the Dragonite on his team, but he also has a classic Mega Gengar.
Mega Gengar, again, a world champion, a Pokemon that is really, really scary to go up against. I think Mega Gengar is one of the highest potential, strongest Mega Evolution Pokemon. I think it's very difficult to use correctly, but a player like Kalen is certainly capable of it. Myself would probably maybe shy away from it just because you have to be very, very precise when you're using that Gengar, but a well-piloted Gengar is really, really scary.
It's so scary because, you have the Shadow Tag ability once you Mega Evolve that's going to trap things in. So if you're not a ghost type, you can't pivot off the field. So if Kalen is able to get the leads right, that's a Pokemon that can really trap you in and then just, go to town with something like Perish Song. And that's a move that I'm sure we'll be able to showcase later on in the tournament. But before we get to that, there are some really cool tools on this team that are going to help enable that Shadow Tag Perish Trap strategy. And that's going to be something like the Encore on the Alolan Ninetales. You also have, of course, that Sableye. That's going to be so difficult to deal with.
Prankster, Encore, and Disable on the Sableye allows you a lot of control over the flow of a battle. With that Perish Trap, with the Shadow Tag ability rather on the Gengar, if the Sableye is able to disable or Encore something, you can't swap out, you can't change your moves. You are basically forced on the field, not able to make any progress.
And that could be really dangerous if Rogov cannot get the right Pokemon in to be able to deal super effective damage or at least just have some options. But Rogov has a couple of things that they can actually play around with. You've got two different Mega Evolutions. One is the Frostlass, the other is the Dragonite. And so I'm really excited to see both of these Megas in action too.
That's cool. We're going to see a lot of teams that have two Pokemon holding Mega Stones throughout this tournament. It's been a trademark of the metagame so far. More than half the trainers that have made the top cut of some Asian national tournaments and Master Ball League tournaments have been running multiple Mega Evolution Pokemon on their teams, holding those Mega Stones, and Rogov taking some inspiration there. The way that I've described, or I've heard some double Mega teams described, is that you have one Mega Evolution Pokemon that beats Mega Charizard Y, and one Mega Evolution Pokemon that does not beat Mega Charizard Y. That's exactly what we see here, too. Dragonite very strong into it. Frostlass, unfortunately, not as strong. But since there's no Charizard across from Rogov, maybe we will get to see the Frostlass. It's a Ghost type, too. You can swap out of that Perish Trap.
Yeah, we have two Ghost types on this team. You've got the Frostlass as well as the Basculegion, so there are definitely some pivot options for Rogov to get a better Pokemon in. I'm looking at something like that Garchomp with the super effective Earthquakes. That's going to be very potent to be able to deal with some of these Pokemon like the Mega Gengar, the Incineroar, the Kingambit even is not going to want to take something like that Earthquake. But you know what? The rest of Rogov's team, there's a reason why Basculegion, Garchomp, Kingambit, and Sneasler have been at the top of the usage charts so far, and it's because they're just very versatile in the way that they can play. But Jake, are you ready?
I'm so ready.
Let's get into it. The first match of the Pokemon Champions Regional between Kalen Brown and Rogov Malavia. It's game one. You get to check out the amazing spectator mode that we've got in this game as well, as we see Rogov leading with that Sneasler and the Kingambit, and we are going to see a nice juicy Defiant boost given over by the Incineroar alongside that Mega Gengar.
Really great start from Rogov here. Kind of the perfect matchups you want to be seeing. Sneasler having the faster fake out than Incineroar can be very useful for you here. Also threatening that super effective close combat. You immediately get the White Herb activation, which doubles your speed from Unburden thanks to the Intimidate on the Incineroar. And you are neutral attack still because that White Herb restores your attack. And of course, the Kingambit at +1 attack, threatening a big one-hit knockout into this Gengar right off the bat.
It's tough because Gengar is one of the fastest Pokemon that is in the format, and especially when it Mega Evolves, it gets a little bit more speed. But with that Unburden boost, that's one of the only Pokemon that can actually outpace something like that Gengar. And that's why we actually see it disappear for now. Sableye coming in to take its place, but that's not going to fare too great against something like that Kowtow Cleave either. And already looks like Kalen Brown on the back foot.
I love this play from Raghav, immediately going for that huge close combat into the Incineroar, also doubling it with that Kowtow Cleave, trying to cover for a swap from that Incineroar. But I think a smart swap from Kalen there. You get the Gengar out, you're not losing it to that Kowtow Cleave right off the bat. You swap into your Sableye, so now you are threatening Fake Out. However, you're still not exerting a ton of pressure here. Swapping out the Gengar before Mega Evolving it means the Shadow Tag ability is not live yet. If you're bringing the Gengar in, it won't have that trap right off the bat.
Well, we're actually going to see another pivot as Raghav is going to switch out the Sneasler for this Basculegion. That means that Sneasler isn't going to have access to that Unburden boost the next time that it comes back into the game. But that's because we've got this prankster Sableye here trying to go for Disable on that close combat. So you don't want to actually have that be something that gets taken away from your Sneasler.
Raghav stays on the front foot once again. That's a great swap into the Basculegion. You're not threatening a big one-hit KO into that Incineroar with a powerful water-type attack. The King Gambit protects itself from that Flare Blitz, and oftentimes you may not want to protect in front of something that has Encore, but because the Sableye has the Prankster ability and King Gambit is a Dark type, it is actually immune to Sableye's Encore. So now you're still in a spot where you have this +1 King Gambit. It's covered very well by this Basculegion. It's not really being threatened by this Incineroar, and now you have a really free Kowtow Cleave or Iron Head into either of these Pokemon, either trying to threaten potentially a one-hit KO into Sableye or just huge damage.
Well, Sableye is going to protect because it knows it's under pretty big threat, but it's going to be another double protect here coming out from the Incineroar. So both of these Pokemon going to stay nice and healthy through the rest of this turn. That's going to be really difficult now. Raghav has just shown their hand of the Wave Crash and the Kowtow Cleave. And so Sableye is looking at that Basculegion, wants to disable that Wave Crash.
Absolutely, a great play from Kalen there. You know, if the Basculegion does opt to go for the Wave Crash, you can disable it on this next turn and make sure that Incineroar can't get hit by it. If it goes for something other than Wave Crash, you can potentially Encore it, so you're guaranteeing there is no Wave Crash into Incineroar on this turn.
We're going to see the Aqua Jet instead. So if that's one way that you can get past the Prankster, is that Basculegion will have that Prankster instead, and with the the extra priority with the Aqua Jet, so that's going to bypass the Prankster ability from the Sableye, so that's what gets disabled instead. Sorry, I'm tripping over my words because I was like, whoa, that's just a smart play.
Smart play, but now Raghav is also kind of in a tricky spot here because you were disabled into that Aqua Jet. If the Sableye opted to go for Encore this turn into that slot, you would be encored into a disabled move, which would make you struggle. Raghav, knowing that, very smartly swaps out both Pokemon. Doesn't want to lose that King Gambit to a Flare Blitz here.
Sableye wanted to go for an Encore as well, so as you called out, that's going to be one way that you can actually save the Basculegion.
Oof.
But a huge Flare Blitz into the Sneasler, that's just going to be a neutral hit, but still does so much. That's actually going to be the power of the charcoal item that is on this Incineroar, able to amplify those Flare Blitzes.
Thankfully, Sneasler is able to hang on, and now you get this Frostlass in as well. You can go for that Mega Evolution, potentially go for a Blizzard to knock out the Incineroar, and get some good damage on Sableye as well. You also have the option for an Aurora Veil. I'm not sure if Aurora Veil is going to be the big focus for Raghav here, because Aurora Veil into something like a Perish on Gengar doesn't necessarily help you. It doesn't protect you from those Perish counts going down every turn. But this Frostlass coming in very safely here is able to start threatening some pretty solid damage with those Blizzards.
I don't think that Aurora Veil would necessarily be a tool that you need to use, but I think it's one that if you're worried about the Sableye trying to go for Encore Disable shenanigans, then it would actually be nice for you to have the Aurora Veil on the first turn, and then the Frostlass can actually try to go for something like damage. You know that Kalen has been trying to play things pretty safe, but going for these protects. So that just might be one turn that you can get past. I say that, but the Sableye actually did retreat for now as King Gambit comes in to take its place with a resistance to that Blizzard. But Incineroar, not so lucky. Oh, the King Gambit gets frozen. And that is a small chance to happen here with the Blizzards from Frostlass.
Unlucky swap from, or unlucky turn from Kalen there. A really great King Gambit swap. With the Sneasler being so low from that Flare Blitz from the Incineroar, the King Gambit on Kalen's side is actually very well positioned now. The Frostlass doesn't really want to face down the King Gambit. Kalen's has low kick, whereas Ragov's has Iron Head, so a big advantage to Kalen there in the King Gambit mirror. And of course, Basket Legion also weak to Sucker Punch. So this King Gambit could have come on the field and started to be very, very threatening. Just unlucky that it got frozen by that Blizzard right off the bat. There's a chance to thaw, and of course the new freeze mechanics, you can reliably thaw a little bit earlier on in games, but you have the chance, again, just to not do anything on this turn, and when you have a really great King Gambit swap, your King Gambit's in a really strong position, that's not what you want to see.
Time to Mega Evolve, though. Kalen has waited for this moment to use the Mega Evolution on the Gengar, so Shadow Tag active. This King Gambit for Rogov is going to be stuck on the field, but this Frostlass could switch out if you so wanted to. Frostlass is going to set the Auroraville, though. If you were expecting a Sucker Punch to come through from the King Gambit and it thought out on this turn, Auroraville is a support move, so it will actually fail the Sucker Punch, but doesn't matter because the King Gambit stays frozen on this turn.
Yeah, it doesn't thaw just yet. It is a maximum of 3 turns of freeze now in Pokemon Champions, so you can potentially thaw next turn, and then the following turn should be the final one. But no damage being traded just yet this turn. We got the Gengar protecting itself pretty smartly in front of a King Gambit. This Gengar could threaten a big Shadow Ball into the Frostlass, but if you do, you basically have to trade it.
I mean, it's going to be really tough, too, because I feel like Rogov could just go for Blizzard here, as well as a follow-up of the Kowtow Cleave. Blizzard is going to take this King Gambit down to about half. His Sableye falls under that. It's going to activate the Citrus Berry. That is, and King Gambit's going to thaw out now. This King Gambit does go for a low kick into the opposing King Gambit, but that's going to be pretty bulky. It's not going to fall to that low kick for now, as the Kowtow Cleave comes out, and that Sableye just barely hangs on.
That's a clutch survival from the Sableye there. If you're able to take out Sableye, that's a lot of the control over the game that Kalen is exerting. Without the pressure of the priority Encore or Disable, you can much more freely go for something like Protect, a supportive move. You can make sure your Basket Legion can Wave Crash the Incineroar, for example. But Sableye hanging on means you have Fake Out pressure on this turn. You could potentially go for something like an Encore into Frostlass, make sure it can't protect itself, it can't Auroraville, it can't, try to dodge a Sucker Punch from King Gambit with a non-damaging attack. And crucially, you're not going down to your final 2 Pokemon here. Rogov does still have all four of their Pokemon remaining, and Kalen is almost down to just 2.
Well, here's one way to get through this. I mean, seems there might just have to be a sacrifice on this turn, or maybe you're expecting that you're going to have to take the Fake Out there, as the King Gambit, as the Sableye actually, is going to switch out. Nice to be able to just throw a Blizzard down into both Pokemon. Critical hit there on the King Gambit is going to make this an easier cleanup later. But look at the Auroraville, the power of that to let Rogov's King Gambit survive that low kick and also survive the Kowtow Cleave.
The Auroraville coming in clutch here. The defense boost from the snow as well coming in handy for that Mega Frostlass, being an Ice-type Pokemon. However, both Pokemon on Rogov's side still very, very low. A Shadow Ball from Gengar would be easily be able to knock out either. I think a Sucker Punch from the King Gambit would do the job as well. So you have to be pretty careful here on these next few turns. How are you going to manage this threat of this Shadow Tag Mega Gengar? Because now Caesar can't swap out.
No, it can't, but the Fake Out might be good enough to let this Frostlass actually get one more turn, and it's going to be the Shadow Ball lock into the KO the Gengar, and that's going to be the Mega Evolved Pokemon down for Kalen. He only has 2 left, the King Gambit and the Sableye, that are both so low.
And notably, the Frostlass outspeeding the Gengar there is huge info for both of these trainers. Of course, favored to Rogov there, getting that KO immediately on the Gengar. Mega Frostlass is naturally a little bit slower than Mega Gengar, but Mega Gengar does tend to run a little bit bulkier with those stat points. Trainers aren't investing as much in speed as they possibly could. Rogov knowing that, potentially taking that gamble there of, hey, I think my Frostlass is pretty fast, maybe I can outspeed this Gengar, and gets it correct to lock up that first game.
Yeah, that was really expertly done too. I mean, Rogov had a lot of things that they really needed to think about in this matchup. You have to pay attention to when that Gengar is going to Mega Evolve. You have to worry a lot about how that Sableye is going to try to control your game. And I feel like Rogov played so well in those first couple of turns to really stimmy the effect that Sableye could have in this match.
Truly, yeah, the Sableye, it prevented the Wave Crash into Incineroar once, and I think that was kind of the only thing it really accomplished in that first game, which was great for Kalen, right? You got to keep that Incineroar around, you got a lot of damage on that Sneasler. If you're able to get huge damage on Sneasler, that really opens up the path for your own King Gambit. Just not able to make any progress with it later on, and especially switching in, taking a lot of damage from that Blizzard, from the Mega Frost Blast, for example, just really limited what that Sableye could do. There were also really weren't many turns where the Gengar was trapping something on the field and creating like a good advantageous position for its partner, which is oftentimes what Mega Gengar is really, really good at. So if Kalen's able to make more advantage of that Shadow Tag ability in game number 2, he could turn it around.
It was just so tough when in game 1, the Incineroar did give over a Defiant boost to the King Gambit as well, because I feel like that was another one of those Pokemon where you have to really pay attention to how Incineroar's Intimidates are actually going to interact with your opponent's team. And so with King Gambit having the Defiant ability, sure, you get the first Intimidate drop, but you actually give over a 2-stage boost to the King Gambit, so you end up getting that +1 to your attack overall. And so we'll see what the leads look like. Is that going to be something that Kalen considers heading into the second game? Are we actually going to see a switch up of the Mega Pokemon? Let's find out. Game 2, Rogov is going to go back to the leads that worked out in that first game with the Sneasler and the King Gambit, and it is going to be the Mega Dragonite making an appearance here.
I believe that Dragonite from Kalen's actually holding the Dragon Fang, so it's looking to do a lot more damage with those Dragon-type attacks. Doesn't have access to that Mega Evolution, but with the Mega Gengar, you're able to potentially trap something on the field with that Dragonite and be able to do a lot of damage. We do know that the King Gambit on Raga's side is holding the Chople Berry, so if you are able to go for something like a low kick into it, I know it's a Black Glasses actually, not even a Chople Berry, so a low kick immediately, very threatening into this King Gambit.
Look, I have only seen Dragonite Mega Evolve in my games. I was so sure that this was a Mega Pokemon when we were looking at the team sheets. I completely missed that there's a Dragon Fang on this one. But you're so right. I think the Aurora Veil really did save this King Gambit in the last game, but you don't want to just get the multi-scale broken by something like a Fake Out. So we are going to see a Protect here from the Dragonite and the King Gambit on Kalen's side, playing it very safe versus the Sneasler with the Fake Out.
Makes sense. And there's no Encores, there's no like Sword Stances or anything here. That's a very safe double protect. Make sure you're not getting flinched by a Fake Out on this turn. Dragonite preserves its multi-scale ability, which is very, very good. It halves the damage from the first attack you take if you are at full HP. And now you're able to start threatening, again, those big attacks. A Dragon Fang, Dragon Claw hurts a lot, will do a lot of damage to Sneasler. If not, knock it out, easily put it in extreme speed range. Of course, Low Kick, very threatening into King Gambit on Ragav's side. Both of Kalen's Pokemon on the field actually do have that Low Kick attack. If you are predicting that low kick, maybe that's an opportunity for Frostlass to come in here and you can get a big close combat off into King Gambit. But a little bit risky there, just Sucker Punch instead.
Ooh, okay, so Sucker Punch is actually going to be the first hit that breaks the multi-scale, but the close combat is going to go the King Gambit's way. Chople Berry going to help to make this attack that the King Gambit can take, but not super comfortably here, as the close combat deals a lot of damage, but also is able to activate the Unburden ability of this Sneasler after it consumes the White Herb and gets rid of those drops that otherwise do come with the downside of using close combat.
Ooh.
Wow.
What
Maybe
a play.
Kalen was really expecting the Frostlass to switch in there.
Yeah, I mean, it wouldn't have been a bad play from Ragav if you're predicting a low kick or two into that slot. But Ragav just immediately going for that Sucker Punch. You're breaking the multi-scale. You get a lot of damage into King Gambit with that close combat. What I think Ragav was trying to do is set up their Frostlass to come in and just take 2 knockouts with Blizzard or threaten something to switch in on that really powerful Blizzard. So I think that was a really smart turn from Ragav there. The King Gambit is super low. It does resist the Blizzards, but it isn't bulky enough to take it from this amount of HP. And of course, Dragonite, with that multi-scale broken, has not a single shot of surviving a Blizzard.
I think the Black Glasses on Ragav's King Gambit is also putting Kalen's King Gambit into Sucker Punch range.
Oh, probably, yeah.
Yeah, so that's like a clean KO that you could take on this turn, or at the very least, you're going to force this King Gambit to have to retreat. But Ragav is going to take this opportunity to actually bring their own Dragonite. Yeah, this one is a Mega Evolve Pokemon. It does have the Dragonite, so it can Mega Evolve if you want, but it's going to take the extreme speed here from the opposing Dragonite first.
That's another great swap there. The combination of Extreme Speed and Sucker Punch were both going into that Sneasler most likely. The Extreme Speed from Dragonite maybe would have picked it up, but you can go for that Sucker Punch just to ensure it later on. Of course, the priority attacks ignoring the Unburdened Speed boost there are really helpful. But another great swap from the Dragonite here. Close Combat didn't set up the King Gambit for a knockout from Blizzard, but it did set it up for a knockout from the Flamethrower on the Dragonite that Ragav has. And now you're threatening very powerful, again, Black Glasses, Kowtow Cleaves into Dragonite. You have Flamethrower to knock out this King Gambit. How this Mega Dragonite apps to go for this turn could be a big deal for Raghav.
Well, the Sucker Punch first is actually going to pick up the KO there, so Black Glass is very helpful to get rid of the King Gambit on Kalen's side of the field. But which Dragonite will move first? It's going to be the Mega Dragonite, because you actually get a little bit of speed when you Mega Evolve, and that's going to help this Mega Dragonite get the knockout. Crit did not matter, trust. Dragon Pulse plenty to be able to pick it up from there, and a 2 Pokemon advantage going over to Raghav on this turn.
Well, I mean, this is the beauty of these double Mega teams. You can do one thing in game one, be very successful with it, and then your opponent might over prep for what you did in that first game. I think we saw the Dragonite coming out immediately, trying to soften up some of the things that Raghav is using to set up their Frostlass. But Raghav showing the Dragonite instead of the Frostlass, and now Kalen's game plans into the Mega Frostlass are worthless. There is no Frostlass this time around. You presumably have the Gengar in the back and maybe the Incineroar again, and honestly, neither of them are particularly good into Mega Dragonite here.
And you probably have a Basket Legion that's also sneaking around back there, which is going to be really easy to pick up something like this Incineroar. You do see the Incineroar come in as one of Kalen's final Pokemon, and so you don't have a choice except to give over a Defiant Boost to this King Gambit.
And also, there's no Gengar. There is no Mega Evolution from Kalen. So we saw 2 from Raghav, and then an average of 1.5
That's why I thought that this Dragonite had the ability to Mega Evolve, because like, I was doing the math here. No, there is no Gengar coming to this game.
Yeah, I mean, this is a really close to unlosable slot for Raghav here. This Sableye has Fake Out and then no other damaging attacks, so the only damage it can possibly do is on this turn. You have to rely on this Incineroar for all of your damage for the remainder of the game, and it is only packing the Flare Blitz. So this Basket Legion is about to have pretty much a run of the field here.
Yeah, great protect here from Raghav to just ensure that this King Gambit gets to stick around to the next turn. Now, no Fake Out left on the table here from the Sableye or the Incineroar. And I also think this Basket Legion just put this Incineroar into a checkmate position.
Yeah.
You could go for something like a Protect, but it feels like you're just stalling out the inevitable here. Double Protect available for both the Sableye and the Incineroar just to scout out what Raghav is going to do. But again,
and we saw this exact thing play out in game number 1, where Raghav threatens a one-hit KO into Incineroar with Wave Crash here. Kalen probably double protects just to make sure that doesn't happen, and then you can potentially go for that disable into Basket Legion, prevent it from using Wave Crash, but then Raghav can go for Aqua Jet and get a lot of damage into Incineroar anyway. And then if the Incineroar tries to go for Flare Blitz into King Gambit, it might just knock itself out to recoil, and so you're still in a really tough spot here if you're Kalen. Despite preventing a Wave Crash on this turn, I don't know if that's going to be enough.
Yeah, you could just, because you still have a fairly healthy Dragonite in the back. Sneasler, a little bit worse for wear, but has a Fake Out that it can lend to the battle whenever it comes back in. So it does feel like we are a couple turns away. Incineroar's going to try to protect itself, but will not be able to get that double protect. Now, the Sableye could try to disable this move, and it does actually. So no Aqua Jet actually coming out from the Basket Legion, but that doesn't mean that you can't hit Last Respects instead. But it was the Wave Crash. You would have liked to have knocked out that Incineroar in one go. Actually,
that was actually really smart from Raghav. So instead of going for the Aqua Jet and having it disabled on this turn, you lose your access to a priority attack, so you attack before the Sableye's Encore attacks. Now Wave Crash is still disabled, and you can go for Aqua Jet. If the Sableye goes for Encore, it's Encoring you into Aqua Jet instead of Wave Crash, so you're not going to be forced to use a disabled attack. Combination of Aqua Jet and Sucker Punch here into Incineroar will certainly put it in Flare Blitz recoil range.
Yes, absolutely. Look at that. You're so right. Encore has gone into the Basket Legion and has locked it into going for Aqua Jet. But this Incineroar is going to knock itself out after dealing the finishing blow to this King Gambit. Flare Blitz is very powerful, but it does have that downside of you taking recoil damage based on how much damage you have dealt out. So this Incineroar is going down for the count. Sableye, the final Pokemon here for Kalen, but the forfeit has been thrown in, and Raghav Malavia wins the first match here at the Indianapolis Regional Championships.
Super well played by Raghav. Kalen's team can be very tricky to navigate, but it felt like Raghav was in the driver's seat the entire time.
Here, but that was in Scarlet and Violet. So how is Carrie going to fare now that we have moved over to Pokemon Champions? On the flip side of things, we've got Rushiel, who is also a top competitor in his own right. has been able to get top 8 of the Pittsburgh Regional Championships earlier this year, but is also well within the top 80 in North America in order to make it to the World Championships. So this should be a great match.
Some cool teams here too. We got the Mega Charizard Y from Carey and the Mega Delphox and potentially Aerodactyl. Yeah, it's a double Mega team with Aerodactyl and Delphox from Rochelle as well. Carey opting to go for the Mega Charizard Y. It is the most popular Mega Evolution Pokemon at this tournament, but has some cool techs on his team for the mirror. I think Glimmora is a really popular, well, maybe not really popular, but it's picking up in popularity, specifically for the Charizard matchup. It's really great on Charizard teams to have an edge in the mirror, but it can also be pretty good in teams that maybe struggle with Charizard. Mega Charizard Y plus Fairy type is a very popular combination of Pokemon. And the Sludge Bomb and Power Gem combination of attacks from Glimmora are very, very powerful.
Yeah, I'm really excited to see Glimmora because, you know, that was one of the Pokemon that I feel like got a little bit of a spotlight in Scarlet and Violet, but I feel like now in Pokemon Champions, it's really come into its own as a huge threat. When you think about the top performers in the meta, Glimmora is able to hit a lot of those for super effective damage. Kingambit, Earth Power. Charizard, Power Gem. And Sludge Bomb, Whimsicots.
Yeah.
Or, you know, Floettes.
Or Sylveons. There's a lot of Fairy type Pokemon that don't love seeing a Sludge Bomb there. I also loved the Rock Tomb option on Garchomp. You might often see Rock Slide in that spot, but Rock Tomb is a great option, not only for some speed control alongside that Tailwind from Whimsicott, but also Wide Guard is a very popular attack in this metagame, and Rock Tomb being a single target attack allows you to still hit opposing Mega Charizard Ys with a Rock type attack for huge damage through a possible Wide Guard.
There are still a lot of teams that are now actually trying to kind of calculate the damage for Rock Tomb versus Rock Slide. Rock Slide is more powerful, but I do appreciate the speed control option as well, especially if you're going to be playing against opposing Garchomp or opposing Tailwind teams, which is something that Rochelle has. Well, it's not going to be the Prankster Tailwind from something like the Whimsicott. You do have the Tailwind as an option from the Aerodactyl.
Aerodactyl and Delphox, a cool combination of Mega Pokemon. It is the Calm Mind Delphox, so its ability to boost up its special attack, fire off some very powerful Heat Waves and Psychics. Delphox in the Mega form is very, very fast as well, so with the boost to its special attack can be very, very threatening.
But you actually do have a different type of weather. While Delphox is not going to be able to set the weather, you do have a way to take away the weather from the opposing Charizard once it Mega Evolves, because you've got the Alolan Ninetales. With the Snow Warning, you get the Snow set. Nevermelt Ice is going to be boosting up the power of those Blizzards, and the Freeze Dries actually gives you a really nice, super effective hit into those Basket Legion.
There's a couple of Pokemon here that often carry a Focus Sash, but none of them are carrying it uniquely. It's the Aerodactyl, Ninetales, and Sneasler, all very good users of that Focus Sash item, but instead opting for much more offensive versions of those Pokemon. Of course, the White Herb Unburdened set from Sneasler allows you to either reduce the damage mitigation from an Intimidate once, or take away the defense drops from a close combat, and then in turn double your speed, which can be really useful against opposing Tailwind teams.
Yeah, but I'm excited to see whether or not Physical Fable actually comes into play. With the Unaware ability, it's going to be quite bulky against opposing Pokemon that are going to have stat changes. But you also have something like Helping Hand or Follow Me to try to redirect away an attack. Let's get into the first game between Carey and Rochelle. We do have the Kingambit and Sneasler there for Rochelle, and the Charizard and Garchomp have hit the field for Carey.
The classic Charizard Garchomp. If you played Pokemon back in 2014, this was something you would see very, very often. The Garchomp lead is very, very threatening. Of course, the Earthquake Immune partner for the Garchomp. Ground and Fire are really powerful combinations of attacking types. Sneasler does have the option to fake out either of these Pokemon and mitigate some damage. You have to imagine it might be the Charizard, but I mean, Earthquake and Heat Wave both are very, very scary for Rochelle in this scenario. Rochelle in this scenario. So you kind of have to pick which one you allow to attack. Maybe you have to make a defensive switch here as well.
I wonder if that means that the Alolan Ninetales might be in the back in order to take away the weather from the Charizard. That leaves you with kind of an option if you were Carey. Do you Mega Evolve now, which is what we are going to see Carey do, set the sun, and maybe even just still protect, just to kind of see if you bait out something like that Ninetales? But no, actually, no protects at all. It's just going to be the Charizard that takes the fake out. But that means that this Sneasler is very vulnerable, as well as this Kingambit. Do the Earthquake that's about to come in. That's a one-hit knockout into the opposing Sneasler. And the Kingambit does not want to take that hit either. What a great combination. You've got the Earthquake next to this flying type Charizard, and the Sword Stance comes out from the King Gambit. Those sucker punches are about to hurt.
It's also the Black Glasses set, so the combination of Sword Stance and the boost from Black Glasses can turn Sucker Punches into huge one-hit KOs. I think a Charizard especially might just be one-hit KO'd by a Sucker Punch after that fake-out trip damage. Garchomp being a little bulkier, it's got the Citrus Berry as well, might be trained a little bit bulkier. Potentially could survive. Now you also have the Mega Delphox hitting the field for Rushiel, and if you don't want to turn off the weather, you can use the weather to your advantage, powering up those heat waves for that Mega Delphox. With that speed boost and also the Levitate ability, we'll be attacking first outside of any priority attacks. So a combination of Sucker Punch and either Heat Wave or Psychic, I think is probably enough to knock out either of Fury's Pokemon.
Yeah, you have to worry about something like the Rock Tomb, but again, that's not necessarily the strongest Rock-type offense coming out from the Garchomp. You also don't get a same type attack bonus for that either, and yeah, the Sucker Punch is just going to be a clean KO. That's going to be a tied-up game so far with 3 Pokemon left for each, and this Delphox takes the opportunity to go for a Calm Mind. Again, Rock Tomb not the strongest move in the game, and even though we might see some Rock Slides on these Pokemon, it's still, look at how well that Delphox takes it. Usually trained to survive a Rock Slide too.
Yeah, not the strongest move, but with the speed route, we'll be able to follow up with one more Rock Tomb, and should be able to knock out this Delphox before it can fire off a +1 special attack boosted attack. I like that play a lot from Rushiel. You guarantee that Charizard gets knocked out, and then your Delphox can only be targeted by the Garchomp. And by going for the Calm Mind there, you're essentially creating even more of an offensive threat in your side of the field. The Fake Out was able to set up the King Gambit, and then the pressure of the King Gambit is able to set up the Delphox and kind of chain those setups in that way. But now Basculegion hits the field. With the Sun Boost, those Aqua Jets might be a little bit less powerful, but it could still be enough for a knockout after that Rock Tomb damage.
Yeah, it really could. I mean, you just can't underestimate the power of a Basculegion with the Mystic Water item. It's going to be giving even more power over to those water-type attacks, even if the Sun is going to make those feel weaker. So the Delphox, while it was able to get that Calm Mind boost, is actually going to take a reprieve. Knows it's under threat, with this Garchomp actually being faster thanks to that Rock Tomb speed drop. Protects around the board, though, as this Clefable does get in for basically free. And that's going to help at least try to redirect an away attack for 1 turn. But what's going to happen after that? You can't redirect away an Earthquake.
This is a tricky spot for Rushiel. I think a Helping Hand boosted Sucker Punch should be able to one-hit KO the Garchomp. If you do that, you allow the Basculegion to fire off an attack into King Gambit. Even in the Sun, I think the damage it took from that first Earthquake means a Mystic Water boosted Wave Crash should be enough. Carries tries to protect that Garchomp a little bit, doesn't want to lose it to that Sucker Punch.
Yeah, but the Helping Hand is still going to come through. So is it a Sucker Punch or is it just a Kowtow Cleave? That's going to be the question. If it is a Sucker Punch, though, into the Garchomp, that is going to fail. It was not into the Basculegion, where you otherwise would have been able to get a KO there. But take a look at this. Clefable going to take that last respects quite well. Not as powerful as it could be, since there's only been 1 knockout so far in Carrie's team.
That was a tough spot for Rushiel there. The Basculegion and Garchomp were both threatening knockouts into the King Gambit. Carrie correctly identifying that Rushiel was a little bit more concerned about that Garchomp, dodges the Sucker Punch with that swap, but instead of knocking out the King Gambit, gets some damage into Clefable, which could be really useful later on in this game.
Clefable is going to go for a Protect here because there is an Iron Head on the opposing King Gambit, but it's actually not going to even try to go for a Sucker Punch here. As the King Gambit for Carrie gets the Kowtow Cleave into Rushiel's. So now the thing is that you do have to play a Sucker Punch mind game. That's why that might have looked a little funny. Best Basculegion for Carrie could have gone for something like an Aqua Jet, which would have made the Sucker Punch fail.
It would have, and I think the Sun has just run out as well. So now the Aqua Jet from Basculegion has hit its full power. I think Clefable, still very bulky, might be able to survive 1, so you don't have the option to, Aqua Jet the Clefable, knock it out before you can eliminate the redirection, and then knock out Rushiel's King Gambit with your own. But if you are going for Aqua Jet, again, you're not getting hit by Sucker Punch, so you're still creating a lot of scary situations for Rushiel to be in here.
We're just going to see the Delphox come back in, and so that might just have to be a piece that you give up here, as that's going to be what takes the Aqua Jet. And so Delphox gets taken down for the count. We only have 2 Pokemon left here now for Rochelle, and you have just lost your Mega Evolution while you've also failed the Sucker Punch. So the opposing Kingambit is able to get the KO with that final Iron Head, and it's just going to be that Clefable on its last leg. Only attacking option that it has is Moonblast versus the 3 Pokemon that Carrie has left in this first game.
Smart selection of Iron Head from Carrie as well there. I think, staying down to Kingambit, Kowtow Cleave is slightly more powerful, and you maybe want to guarantee you get that knockout with the Kowtow Cleave. But if you Iron Head the Kingambit and it's already been knocked out, the Iron Head then gets redirected into Clefable, which will be able to knock it out very easily. So just a good way to ensure you're closing out this game very well. I think what Carrie has done in this game to mitigate the threat of that Kingambit is really, really good. It got the Sucker Punch KO into the Charizard early on, and I don't think it did damage after that, which is crazy to think about.
Yeah, I think it's so tough though, because you have the ability to go for Aqua Jet, which just is faster than the Sucker Punch in terms of that priority bracket. So the Sucker Punch would fail, but you also have a lot of protects on the team, or you could just switch. And so, yeah, Carrie did a great job of neutralizing the threat of that Swords Dance Kingambit. And that's also kind of one of the drawbacks. When we think about Kingambits and the way that they're trained and the movesets that they have, we are seeing the Black Glasses variant like Rochelle has with the Swords Dance, and then 2 Dark-type options with the Kowtow Cleave and the Sucker Punch, or Carrie's kind of the flip side of that. You've got the Chople Berry Kingambit, but you have a coverage option, either something like the Low Kick or the Iron Head.
I think both are really good sets. It just kind of depends on what your team is set up to do. The Swords Dance Black Glasses set makes a lot of sense for Rochelle because he has the Fake Out, he has the Follow Me with Clefable, he's got options like Encore on Ninetales that can help you set up a little bit. So getting that huge offensive threat out of Kingambit is a little bit more easy to capitalize on a team built like Rochelle's, whereas Carrie's is a little bit more flexible, it's more versatile. You often don't have those windows to go for Swords Dance when you want to be pumping out that consistent damage. So I think good moveset selection from both trainers, and the Kingambit on Rochelle's side was a huge threat the entire time. Carrie just played around it really, really well. Again, the Sucker Punch KO on Charizard, and I'm pretty sure that Kingambit did not deal damage for the rest of the game, which is just a really a credit to how Carrie navigated that Kingambit.
I wonder if Rochelle's going to think about something like the Aerodactyl instead. It felt like the Delphox, while it would have been able to take advantage of the Sun set by the Mega Charizard for Carrie, also ended up doing nothing, just because that Garchomp ended up being faster. There's no way for that Delphox to actually guarantee any damage, and I think that I look at something like the Aerodactyl that can set Tailwind. Maybe that's something that you consider, or even just going for the Clefable at the very beginning. Something like the Moonblast to threaten that Garchomp. Yeah,
the combination of Garchomp and Charizard was just really difficult for Rochelle to break through at the beginning of the game. This Sneasler Kingambit lead is good for helping the Kingambit set up, but you can only fake out 1 Pokemon. There's no Garchomp Charizard lead this time, though. It's going to be the Kingambit and Basky Legion in favor of the 2 Pokemon for Carrie, and then the same Sneasler and Kingambit for Rochelle.
I feel like this is a little bit better, though, for Rochelle this time around, because you can use the Sneasler to fake out the Kingambit, or you can also just go for a Protect if you expect there to be a double up. And the Basket Legion actually goes for the Wave Crash into the opposing Kingambit. Wow! If you're trying to get a Swords Dance here, you just don't have much HP left to play around with.
No fear from Carrie, immediately going on the offense with both of his Pokemon, but a big Kowtow Cleave in return will be a big knockout for Rochelle immediately. You get rid of that Aqua Jet, which was really hard for him to play around in that first game. I think a really great way to open up game number 2.
Absolutely. And now you have to kind of take a look at what you can do on the next turn. You might not have gotten the Swords Dance up, but you could still threaten something like the Sucker Punch, which would be great to deal with something like this Garchomp.
Now this Garchomp also is now really scary for Rochelle. Kingambit can usually survive an Earthquake from full HP, and we saw the Sneasler get 1 KO'd by it in the first game. But now that Kingambit took all that damage from Wave Crash, Earthquake will just take 2 knockouts here, and if Rochelle has brought the same 4 Pokemon, Clefable can switch on it okay. Delphox without Mega Evolving cannot.
But can you, I feel like you just have to try to get as much mileage out of the 2 Pokemon that you have now. Maybe we end up seeing something like a close combat into the Garchomp from the Sneasler. At least you're able to chunk it down a little bit. Sucker Punch as well would do something, at least to this Garchomp.
True.
And you can't necessarily go for Earthquake with your own Kingambit right there next to you.
Ooh,
unless you try to protect. Yeah, Ninetales is a great adaptation for the second game.
Certainly, yeah. Ninetales will be able to come in and potentially threaten this Garchomp here. We did see Carrie go for Iron Head into Sneasler on the prior turn, so maybe a little bit of a risky play there, but the Protect Earthquake is what Rochelle was banking on, and it's what he got.
And Ninetales is a great piece to have here in front of this Garchomp. It is kind of naturally on the faster side of things. So unless you want to try to switch in the Charizard and go for a Mega Evolution, which you can't do on the same turn, you're going to have to fear the blizzards that could come out from this Ninetales.
I wonder if the Aerodactyl was Rochelle's Mega Pokemon of choice in this game as well. I think Ninetales makes a lot of sense if you are bringing Aerodactyl, because if you have your Delphox, I think you actually want the sun to be up. But if you have your Aerodactyl, turning off the sun can be very, very helpful.
Well, Ninetales is going to let that Blizzard rip, and a big one-hit knockout into the Garchomp is going to send it packing back to the Pokemon Center. Extremely effective, and this is going to be the second time we see a Blizzard get a freeze onto a King Gambit. Jake, it is already only round 3 in the Indianapolis Regional Championships, and we're seeing another King Gambit freeze.
Oh, what a great turn from Rochelle there. Potentially, I think Rochelle was very willing to trade the Ninetales for that Swords Dance there, but gets so much more out of that turn, and I think Carrie recognizes that this game is very, very difficult to win here. Let's just go to game 3.
Wow. Yeah, I think I would have had to imagine that the Charizard was in the back for Carrie. So let's talk about why that forfeit happened. You know, you could bring in the Charizard for the Garchomp, but then it's still taking an enormous amount of damage from the Ninetales because it's still going to take neutral damage from the Blizzard.
Right.
And then what?
Well, especially with that the Swords Dance there too. I think if the Rochella's King Gambit had gone for just some damage with a Kowtow Cleaver or something, that might still be winnable for Carrie.
Oh, but then the freeze too is so tough because you don't have the guaranteed chance that the King Gambit's going to thaw. But yeah, like Sucker Punch gets a one-hit knockout onto the Charizard with the Black Glasses and the Swords Dance.
And Rochelle still had the Sneasler in the back, plus an unrevealed 4th Pokemon. That would have been very difficult, if not impossible, for Carrie to win that. So I think just rightly moving on, let's just put that one in the books and then move on to game number 3.
I do think it could have been either the Delphox, though, or the Aerodactyl. I would have been happy to see either one. I think your logic makes sense on why it could have been the Aerodactyl there, but you know what? I want to say that Delphox is going to have its moment again. I just want to believe because it's such a cool-looking Mega Pokemon.
Well, there's synergy there between the Ninetales and the Delphox too. Of course, Delphox, despite having the Intimidate, the Levitate rather, doesn't necessarily want to be in front of that Garchomp, and Ninetales can clear it out for you. But we do get the combination of Aerodactyl and Ninetales right off the bat. This is nice. You're kind of forcing the Charizard to Mega Evolve if you want to turn off the snow. But if the Charizard Mega Evolves, you would set up the Sun, which lowers the damage of your Basculegion's Aqua Jet, which might not then be able to KO the Aerodactyl. Also, Rock Slide very heavily threatens Charizard. I think Mega Aerodactyl is a clean one at KO into Charizard with that Rock Slide. And so a nice combination of offense here from Rochelle, especially with the Freeze Dry on the Ninetales. You're also threatening super effective damage into the Basculegion.
Looks like a great lead here for Rochelle in this game 3, which will decide which trainer will keep an undefeated record from Swiss Round 3 and then see what they can make with that at the end. But yeah, it's just going to be the Charizard leaving the field as a poor King Gambit. It was very unlucky in that second game to have taken a freeze here, and it might not be super lucky on this income either. As you see, the Mega Evolution from the Aerodactyl Aqua Jet is going to be just not nearly enough to get the KO there onto the Basculegion as Rock Slide comes out, chips away at the King Gambit, does a decent chunk to the Basculegion, even the crit there. My goodness, this poor King Gambit. And the Freeze Dry will finish off this Basculegion.
Great play from Rochelle. I think eliminating this Basculegion is really, really great. Just making sure you're taking away one of Carrie's pieces immediately can be very useful. Basculegion also very, very good into Sneasler. So if that Sneasler is in the back for Rochelle, that's another way to give yourself a little bit of an edge here. I think the Aqua Jet into Aerodactyl is crucial, though. That was really good damage. You've put Aerodactyl into Sucker Punch range. So now if Aerodactyl wants to Rock Slide, you can't. If this King Gambit is going to target you with that Sucker Punch, it's a great way to protect your Charizard. And all that damage, too, I think if Charizard Mega Evolves and goes for a Heat Wave here, that's probably going to knock out both of Rochelle's Pokemon, too.
Yeah, this Aerodactyl does not have Wide Guard. That's actually a move that we classically see on these Mega Aerodactyls over something like the Protect. but Rochelle's going to have that protect option instead. So there's not even a way for you to deny something like the Heat Wave and Mega Evolution here. Rochelle might just have to go for something like Double Protect or switch something in to have to take that Heat Wave. I think Clefable would be my Pokemon of choice to have to switch in there.
Yeah, but if you have the Sneasler and King Gambit again in this third game, which are both very powerful Pokemon, that means you don't have the Clefable. You don't really have a great option here to swap into this Heat Wave.
No, and I think even if you want to try to go for Rock Slide here, this King Gambit could just go for a Sucker Punch and knock out this Aerodactyl before you get the Rock Slide. So we're going to see Ninetales protect. Oh, but it's the Sucker Punch. So maybe Aerodactyl actually just goes for a Tailwind here. And that's exactly what it goes for. Denies the Sucker Punch, gets the Tailwind out so that your pieces can, for sure, outspeed this Charizard. Oh, but the Charizard actually even just goes for a Weather Ball here. Would have liked to just get a one-hit knockout into the Ninetales, expecting that the Sucker Punch would pick up the Aerodactyl anyway.
I think that's actually a really, really smart play from Carrie. If the Sucker Punch goes through, Aerodactyl gets knocked out anyway. And if Aerodactyl gets knocked out, you don't need to spread damage. Weather Ball is perfectly accurate. You will never miss it. But also, if the Aerodactyl goes for a Tailwind here and you Heat Wave and knock it out, that gives Rochelle a free swap. And not giving him that swap as Tailwind goes up is something that can build you a lot of momentum.
Ooh, one of the nice pieces to Ninetales kit is with Encore and not being a prankster Pokemon like the Sableye we saw earlier, you can actually Encore these dark types. That's going to be the last thing that Ninetales does in this third game, but this King Gambit is locked into Sucker Punch.
It's not the worst thing to be locked into, right? You kind of want to be Sucker Punching to make sure your Charizard doesn't get hit by a Rock Slide, but it can be taken advantage of later on in the game. Here, this Sneasler, a great example. Sneasler would potentially fear an Iron Head. It could do a lot of damage into Sneasler, but now you can pretty freely fake out this Charizard and make sure no Heat Waves come through, and this King Gambit can't really threaten your Sneasler either, especially if you fake out, you can't damage it at all.
Yeah, but I think you still worry about like how much mileage can you actually get out of something like the Aerodactyl. So do you try to fake out the King Gambit instead, knowing that it can just Sucker Punch your Aerodactyl? So that's exactly what we see. Aerodactyl hoping here you're going to be able to end up getting something like a Rock Slide down onto both of these Pokemon. Would have been better if it had been the Charizard in the Garchomp slot, so Garchomp makes the perfect switch in, but you can see the vision.
Well, and also now this Encore and a Sucker Punch creates a little bit of a tougher spot for Carrie. I think if the King Gambit wasn't Encored, Protect and Earthquake would be a really free option. Not free, it would be a great option. Or Sucker Punch and like Dragon Claw into Sneasler could be something. But now that this King Gambit can't protect itself, if you want to Earthquake and knock out Sneasler, you essentially have to switch in your Charizard. If you switch in Charizard to this Aerodactyl, a Rock Slide is probably coming through and it gets knocked out. So you're forcing like not the most optimal play out of Carrie here, which is a great way for Rochelle to maybe kind of deal with the damage threats of both of Carrie's Pokemon.
And you still have Tailwind at your disposal, so you have to worry about this Aerodactyl outspeeding the Garchomp and just going for something like a Rock Slide.
Yeah.
Wow. King Gambit is actually going to switch out so that this Garchomp can go for the Earthquake, but the Rock Slide actually misses the Charizard that it would have loved to connect into. Can Garchomp actually fight through this, though? It's close. Charizard's going to have to take this close combat, too, so great switch that Carrie does not get punished for on this turn. But Garchomp, you gotta love your trainer here. You gotta make sure that you can get this Earthquake down or this Rock Tomb into this, and they can't!
Rock Slide, baby! We're so back.
No.
Oh my goodness. Well, hey, we got a Rock Slide meta. I'm glad we got to appreciate it early on in this stream.
Both sides of the spectrum, right?
Exactly.
The miss and the flinch.
I mean, obviously you would have rather had the knock onto Charizard and lose your Sneasler if you were Rochelle there. I think the miss was pretty detrimental to the game plan. But at least the Garchomp flinching means that this game isn't just over, right? Your Sneasler is around. You can go for this big close combat. And with that Unburden boost, you're actually attacking before the Aerodactyl this turn.
Yeah, and so that means that you will be able to actually just maybe finish this off. Oh, okay. Citrus Berry, though, has to be eaten first. As you are a Mega Aerodactyl now, you do get to eat that berry since base Aerodactyl has a nerve, and this is going to be a trade. That's going to be the dual Wing Beat into the Garchomp. Wow! The Aerodactyl actually hangs on through that.
Yeah, that's huge. If the Aerodactyl goes down there, this, I think, is a little bit harder for Rochelle. But now that this Aerodactyl's around, you're still having to dedicate that Sucker Punch attention into the Aerodactyl. You don't want to lose a Charizard to a Rock Slide. And of course, this Sneasler still in a pretty good spot here, resisting the Sucker Punches, threatening super effective close combat, or even some great damage with Dire Claw into Charizard here. Means that this Sneasler still demands attention as well. And if you're Sucker Punching the Aerodactyl, you're not going for damage into Sneasler. Especially, I think the Sun just ended as well. So a Weather Ball is no longer a reliable single target option. If you go for Heat Wave without the Sun Boost, I think Sneasler probably survives.
All right, King Gambit does go for the Sucker Punch. I was going to say one way around that is to reset back up Tailwind, but I think you're okay with this trade. You have the Tropical Berry that's going to activate on this King Gambit for the close combat, but it's already so low, and we saw that close combat earlier did about 70, so that was going to be a knockout regardless of the Tropical Berry. I think you were happy to take that any day of the week. Might have to take a KO back, though, because the Heat Wave is going to be single target now. And you also had a couple of close combat drop. Well, actually,
you had one.
You had one.
I think it might survive that if you don't have the special defense drop, but because you close combated twice, you only get the White Herb activation once. And now, this is going to be really close. Sucker Punch from a Black Glass's King Gambit might be enough for the KO.
I think this is good enough.
I think it might be, and even if it's not, you still have the non-weather boosted Heat Wave that potentially King Gambit can survive.
Oh.
It might be really close.
That might be a little close. Charizard's going to go first regardless, though. King Gambit does not survive it. And so Carrie is going to end up taking down the King Gambit and winning the set 2-1.
The Tailwind had expired. There's no more speed boost, so maybe we're still missing that and potentially thinking it was faster. Maybe not knowing a Sucker Punch was enough damage and going for the Kowtow Cleave instead, but Carrie Duratona to a Rock Tech.
Absolutely. Well, it looks like our network test has succeeded for our players out on stage, which means we are ready to finally get into our 4th round of Swiss. For those of you who are just joining us or who have forgotten after the extended technical break, Brendan, the 2013 Juniors World Champion against Gio Siski, the defending World Champion in the Masters Division. Brendan will, of course, be using the same 6 Pokemon that Sejun Park used in the Korea Trainers Cup just about a week ago now. These 6 Pokemon very much designed around protecting the Delphox and the Floette, using those as the main sweepers. And then Gio is using sort of a next step forward from some of the earliest versions of Mega Charizard Y teams that we've been seeing with these 6 Pokemon.
Yeah, a couple things to note that we missed the first time around. But like the trainers, we've had an eternity to think about this matchup. Certainly, one thing that's neat about the Floette on Sejun/Brendan's team here is that there's no Dazzling Gleam. Right? I think it's basically the only team I've seen who does not have Dazzling Gleam there. I think a lot of trainers would have expected one of the probably Moonblast to be dropped if you want Draining Kiss, but Sejun felt like it was really important to have both moves. Moonblast, the highest damage move that Floette can for a single target, other than that Light of Ruin, which I don't want to take recoil damage here. Doesn't make a lot of sense on this
Negative
sort of
synergy.
team. So I think that's a neat thing to keep in mind. And then on the other side of the field, you were mentioning the power of rock types a little bit, as we were definitely not stalling for time there. But both an actual rock type with that Aerodactyl and the Rock Slide, as well as the Choice Swift Garchomp, which, as you would expect, does as well have that Rock Slide. So I think it's going to make it a little bit trickier to use the Delphox here, where even with all this redirection, Rock Slide going to be pretty impactful, perhaps. But there's also that Incineroar. One thing also to keep in mind with all this as a potential rock types, there's 3 rock weak Pokemon on Brendan's team. So, we've been talking about the specter of a series of Rock Slide flinches, but perhaps no matchup where it's more likely for this one.
And here we go, heading into turn 1 here. It is the King Gambit alongside the Charizard for Gio. And yeah, it is going to be the Floette mode for Brendan alongside the Mousehold to offer immediate support to that Pokemon in the form of Follow Me and the Friend Guard.
Yeah, I think this lead makes a lot of sense for both players here, where not a whole lot of options on Brendan's side of the field, but like we expected, you can't really pick Delphox here, so it has to be the Floette mode. And conversely, Gio also knows that. It's I'm not afraid of your Delphox, so I'm going to bring up Charizard immediately. Threatens a lot of damage to that Floette, even through some potential redirection. And then a King Gambit, despite you're facing now 2 Megas that deal pretty good damage to it, actually not that threatened here, just because, I know whatever Mega that Brendan picks, he's going to want to try to ramp it up with stat boosting moves. So a King Gambit can keep plowing away here. I think most likely in this first turn, it's just going to be aiming to remove the Focus Sash from, not the Focus Sash, but finish off the Mousehold, probably, who's likely not to be 1-hit KO'd. But instead switching.
Yeah, it's actually going to switch out for the Aerodactyl. So Gio now raising the specter of those Rock Slides, as well as the potential ability to set a Tailwind should Gio need to outspeed this Floette. Sometimes the Charizards are not as fast as the Floette, so Floette may be able to get some advantages here, but double Mega Evolutions here on turn 1 from both players. Gio going to Mega Evolve the Charizard, indicating that he is going on the offensive here, getting the full power of that Drought, while Floette boosts its own power with the Fairy Aura. And of course, exactly what you expect out of one of these teams. Mousehold is redirecting all damage. Floette gets a Calm Mind, is in fact faster than the Charizard, so gets this Calm Mind up before Charizard is able to deal damage, means he gets to resist this Heat Wave quite handily with that Calm Mind boost and the Mouse Hold to provide that Friend Guard support.
Yeah, so pretty expected turn for both sides. I think a nice little switch from these Aerodactyl. Getting it out in the field relatively for free. Going to be able to potentially to move first here. Pretty close to the point at which Rock Slide will be right at the edge of knocking out Mouse Hold or not. So if it's still the same way that Sage's version of a team is trained, Gio may know this calc. It's kind of one disadvantage of using a known team is that Sagen a little bit famous as the Pachirisu trainer of Legend. Probably everyone aware of that team. So let's see the strategy here. Helping hand with Mouse Hold, so expecting to be knocked out before it's able to move.
Yeah, Helping Hand actually an adaptation that Brendan has made here instead of Super Fang on that Mouse Hold. A couple of adaptations actually on Brendan's team that might change the way that this plays against a player like Gio, who may expect the more classic version. Heatwave will pick up the KO onto Mouse Hold and deal a little bit of damage to the Floette as the Draining Kiss comes through onto Aerodactyl, and even with a Helping Hand and a +1 Calm Mind is not enough to pick up the KO. That means that Aerodactyl survives for a turn here and is going to be able to threaten some Rock Slides.
Yeah, so now we get this awkward situation. Sinister going to come on the field. I'm not actually going to get anything out of Hospitality because Floette has healed itself up anyway. A little bit more HP. Maybe knowing that Kelp, maybe hoping on Brendan's side that Moonblast would have been better, but hey, here you are. Not too big of a deal. Still threatening that redirection. Conversely, the Aerodactyl on the other side now, in a different matchup would actually be kind of a weak spot here because, you could just Dazzling Gleam. But again, no Dazzling Gleam in this Floette. So an awkward spot here where Floette's going to have to pick a target to knock out here, allowing the other one to continue attacking because both of the Pokemon on Geo side of the field are going to move first after that Tailwind.
Yeah, and especially with without having the Dazzling Gleam, this Aerodactyl no longer has to play guessing games with the wide guard. Instead, just knows that it can go on the offensive here, double up, or switch out to potentially set up a Tailwind later on in this game. Gambit now out on the field in favor of the Aerodactyl as Sinistra tries to protect itself from a Heat Wave or a Weather Ball coming out from Charizard. Does dodge the Heat Wave here with the Protect. That will connect onto the Floette, however, which with that Calm Mind, no Friend Guard this time, so it deals a good amount of damage more, but that Draining Kiss just going to keep sucking the life force out of Gio's Pokemon here.
Yeah, so both sides kind of really focused on one half of the battlefield where in Floette's case, typically the way you play this matchup is you kind of just slowly Draining Kiss everything down and then start firing Moonblast into Charizard, right? It's a Pokemon that only has special attack, so Floette's really good in the 1v1, especially since usually by that point in the battle, the Sun has also expired. Other side of the field, certainly Sinistra less excited about battling this Charizard, trying to stall out things as long as it can. And also another thing that keeps that low HP Aerodactyl valuable, not only can it potentially get a Tailwind later, but either being an option to cycle the Charizard out, so you can reset the Sun maybe, or just kind of bringing it in a position where you waste another attack from that Floette. But I'm also not too upset if I'm on Brendan's side of the field either, where that Draining Kiss makes it much less likely that you're ever going to get hit by an Iron Head from that Kingambit, which would basically be game ending.
And it's at the Vivillon in the back for Brendan. That is a Pokemon that may just be sacrificed to protect Sinistra for a turn here as Heat Wave comes out again from the Charizard into the Protect onto Floette, will land onto the Vivillon and take out a one-hit KO. Easy KO there for the Charizard. This is what that Pokemon does. If you are weak to Fire-type damage, you are going to get knocked out. But now Brendan is able to bring in the Sinistra once again and have the third Redirector on the field to potentially protect this Floette as waiting for this Tailwind to expire.
Yeah, kind of an awkward spot here where, again, Aerodactyl is still in the back, so there's not like a super clear means of avoiding getting back into the situation. But at least for now, redirection is being threatened. Heat Wave worst can miss. That would be pretty impactful in this matchup. But Brendan just isn't making enough progress, right? Down to one Redirector who is likely going to go down to a single Heat Wave if it happens because one of the costs of running that Hospitality ability is there's no heat proof here. And at that point, things are really looking tough for this Floette who can only attack a single target. Has to Rage Powder this time because Protect was burned on the previous turn.
Well, Sinistra Rage Powdering here, gets the Weather Ball, so Charizard going for full offense into Sinistra, picks up the one-hit KO. Like I mentioned, Sinistra weak to Fire-type damage. Charizard takes those every time. And now Iron Head from the Kingambit actually faster than the Floette in the Tailwind, brings it all the way down to 19 hit points and gets a flinch. Floette would have been able to heal up a little bit of that health with a Draining Kiss, but Kingambit getting that Iron Head off probably sealed the deal for Brendan regardless.
Yeah, should be super over here. We know Charizard's faster, so I think he able to likely pick up a knockout there. But I don't know if that was I don't know how much the flinch mattered, right? Where
Yeah.
at least maybe it would have been enough that Brendan could continue playing the game, maybe hope for a miss or something. But eventually, Charizard Aerodactyl would come back out and set up the same situation. It's a dominant first game by Giovanni, and now on Brendan's side of the field, you got to try to think through, like, okay, is there some way I could have avoided this? Where I think on Giovanni's side of the field, I think all the switching is really impressive there, right? Where it's like, wow, you had opportunities to swing, but he knew what his win condition was. Both players are kind of playing like they expected the King Gambit to be quicker than the Floette and the Tailwind. I think that, to me, would have been an open question based on both Pokemon's training. Sometimes the Floette on this sort of team are trained to be speedy and then strong in the defensive stats, but with very little special attack. Usually modest from the nature, and then that's enough. But in this case, the King Gambit likely that on Giovanni's side of the field trained to be with a little speed, I would assume, because it needs a little help to get to that point. But that makes this matchup much worse for Brendan.
Much harder.
Where, I think there's not really a way to stop Tailwind. Sort of the nature of this sort of team is that you don't disrupt what your opponent does, they disrupt what you do. But not being able to just kind of like wither the attack from Giovanni makes it seem like this might just be a matchup that Brendan perhaps can't win.
Well, the way that you disrupt Tailwind with this team is through Vivillon's Sleep Powder, which of course has 98% accuracy, would outspeed the Aerodactyl because it's holding the Choice Scarf. But Brendan having that Pokemon in the back, of course, Gio also didn't lead the Aerodactyl, but having the ability to shut down Tailwind does seem really big for Brendan.
Yeah, I kind of wonder if maybe that's why Giovanni opted to lead the King Gambit the first game, because you cover for that option. Right? I was like, okay, well, you can put my Charizard to sleep if you want, but then I'm going to get a free Iron Head and Floette, and like that's also pretty bad. It's not necessarily game losing, because then you go for a Sleep Powder again the next turn on King Gambit while you Calm Mind with Floette or something, and then try to heal back up with Draining Kiss. But it's like one quick wake up away from just throwing the game if you go that path. So I think that's pretty rough too. I think Gio's line into this is just like really good.
Yeah, and especially that Aerodactyl being able to survive a +1 Helping Hand boosted Draining Kiss. Huge for Gio, even if he loses control in the mid game, to be able to have that option to bring it back out in the end game. And here it is, just a rerun of game 1, but now with a little bit more information for both players. Maushold and Floette for Brendan, and King Gambit and Charizard for Gio.
Yeah, sort of a scary run back from Brendan. Sometimes when we see players go for the same thing after they lose a game 1, it's like, okay, like I made a decision here that was wrong, or like there was some bad RNG or something. I don't necessarily see what Brendan does differently to change this up here. So here's what he has in mind. I think maybe try to take some risks where I think the safe path didn't work. So okay, how can we roll the dice and try to get something a little bit unlikely to occur, because that just didn't work out the first time.
Yeah, I mean, there are options here. I mean, Brendan did spend some time going for setup, which helped Floette in the 1v1 against the Charizard, but not being able to pick up the KO onto Aerodactyl and not being able to deal enough damage to that King Gambit, there maybe is a world where you just go for straight off offense from the jump here.
Yeah, I think maybe you have to, right? Where you maybe hope to catch a Pokemon to switch, which is not going to happen here, it looks like. Or
King Gambit stays in. Yeah, that's going to be the Mega Evolution from Charizard here. Sets up the Sun, so Gio again going to go on the offensive here on turn 1. Matched by Brendan with the Mega Evolution on the Eternal Flower Floette. Also going to go ahead and get a boost to its stats here.
Yeah, I'm actually kind of wondering too if I guess we're going to see the help again. So he's going for the offense, maybe hoping to catch Aerodactyl.
Yeah, full offense from the jump, hoping to catch that Aerodactyl, but instead this Moonblast is just going to connect on to King Gambit. That is enough to pick up the KO. The Moonblast with the Helping Hand picks up that KO. That is a huge threat off the board. However, this Heat Wave now will connect onto Floette that does not have the boost from Calm Mind. That being said, Friendguard doing a lot of work there to keep Floette fairly healthy.
Yeah, I mean, it still isn't like awesome for Brendan, but you can see the path now, right? Other than Aerodactyl is potentially primarily special attackers left at the other side. Like, as we mentioned before, Floette versus Charizard is usually a win for the Floette, right? It can be low enough HP that it doesn't work, but suddenly it looks like there's a real chance. We'll have to see if the Aerodactyl again goes for Tailwind immediately. So Heat Wave would pick up the Maushold here, so you don't like really need to attack with the Aerodactyl. But hey, at least it seems like there's a chance this time. If Floette goes for a Calm Mind here as well, it should survive kind of no matter what happens. And then Sinistra's Hospitality, assuming it's the back, would actually do something this time. But instead of the Incineroar as a switch up, I really like this. King Gambit now gone, so you have to worry about Defiant. Intimidate going to help against the Aerodactyl, and it's going to take attacks from Charizard pretty well. So Incineroar looking pretty good in this matchup.
Yeah, Incineroar with that King Gambit sniped on turn 1 is definitely looking like it's in a strong position here. Going to tank this Heat Wave like nobody's business and immediately threaten Make Out pressure. Plus, you get that Intimidate down onto the Aerodactyl, helping to protect that Floette a little bit more. So opportunity to potentially start setting up or just go for the recovery with Draining Kiss. You know it's going to be a 2-hit KO at least into that Aerodactyl.
Yeah, I love this for Brendan's side of the field. I mean, it's still like, it's a tough situation, but this is really interesting for a lot of reasons. Again, having King Gambit down is huge. It makes it easier to cycle this Incineroar, and we saw how difficult it was for Brendan to stall Tailwind out the previous game, but Incineroar may be the best Pokemon in the game at that, right? You know, it's why it's previously had such high usage. The Tyranids big here, the Fake Out is potentially big here, where, you know, allows Floette to get some more free actions to try to Calm Mind. The Rock Slide is going to go down, though, and the damage is not so great, but if it stops an action from Floette, it would be huge.
Yeah, the flinch chance is going to be huge onto the Floette. Charizard flinching from the Fake Out and the Rock Slide. 27% of the time, it works every time. Floette does not get to move this turn, and that's devastating for Brendan.
Yeah, it's tough. He's done a better job of slowing Giovanni down, but hey, still 2 more turns of that Tailwind to deal with, as well as 2 more turns of that Sun, and critically, there's no Calm Mind in this Floette. You know, where previously he was taking attacks from that Charizard pretty well. Charizard is quicker than it because of the Tailwind and threatening a lot of damage, so perhaps just a Protect and a switch into the Sinister to try to get some HP back, and then we do the whole thing again the next turn maybe with Incineroar coming back.
Yep, we sacrifice Sinister here, most likely on Brendan's side. Floette will have to tank both this Rock Slide and the Heat Wave, though. No Protect came through. Went for the prediction there to assume that Floette would be able to survive this turn without having to go for the Protect, and gets paid off for it. Weather Ball connects onto Sinistcha, picks up the KO. Floette is able to go on the offensive this time. Moonblast onto the Aerodactyl. Not enough to pick up the KO. Basically, so here's what I just learned, is Moonblast at +0 is the same as Draining Kiss +1 with Helping Hand.
Yeah, and that's why you use that Moonblast, right? Where the damage from Draining Kiss, a little underwhelming. Because of how low Aerodactyl was before, I was kind of wondering if we might see a Fake Out into the Aerodactyl slot, just because the damage could actually matter for once. It was not just the flinch effect. I don't think 17 HP with a resist because of the Rock type, no matter how frail Aerodactyl tends to be, is going to be enough. 2 Fake Outs probably is, though, which no longer looks super realistic, but could matter if we get to a Game 3. But hey, Fake Out here threatening to stop one of Giovanni's Pokemon from acting, and we do have to note too that field effects are about to expire, both the Sun and the Tailwind. So if Floette can get to a position where it's looking a little bit safer after this turn, you know, maybe, but unless you attack the Aerodactyl slot and it stays unprotected, there's going to be another Tailwind. So Brendan going to have to prepare for that likelihood.
Brendan also has to be worried about what the 4th Pokemon is that Geo has brought. We have not seen that. We did not see that in Game 1, and there are plenty of threatening options there. Either the Garchomp or the Basculegion could be really threatening. Instead, Geo is going to just continue to fish for flinches here with that double intimidated Aerodactyl. Floette dodges the Heat Wave. That's huge for Brendan. That opens up an opportunity, and Incineroar survives at 14 health. After 2 Intimidates down onto the Aerodactyl and the resistance on the Heat Wave, Floette is now finally able to get a Calm Mind up, and Brendan is starting to find a way back into this game. Throat Chop will finish off that Aerodactyl to prevent Geo from being able to set up a second Tailwind.
Yeah, great read by Brendan there, and kind of realizing, okay, well, Fake Out doesn't do that much for me here. I need to get rid of this Aerodactyl because another Tailwind is probably not something I can deal with, how weakened my team is. Gets a big knock up there. Going to be difficult to maneuver on this one, however. Basculegion, that final Pokemon that Ed was mentioning in the back. No Sun, but Basculegion's not going to be too upset about that. It's going to make its Water-type attacks a little bit more powerful, but critically just in a situation here now where it's pretty devastating. We've seen that it's that Focus Sash item on the Basculegion, so it doesn't have to lock into a single move here, which otherwise would be pretty strong. And yeah, this is just going to be a tough position. It has the Aqua Jet to, if it needed to, just to pick up a quick knockout here. Although with Sash, I guess you don't have to. And it's a tough spot for Brendan. These Pokemon on Giovanni's side still very healthy, right? And even without the Sun effect, you know, it's going to do a lot of damage if Charizard is able to swing away. Presumably Mousehold's still low enough, a Heat Wave would knock it out. Floette probably not, but you know, getting put into range for an Aqua Jet would be just as bad.
Yeah, absolutely. And you can see Brendan is trying to protect this Floette by switching in the Mousehold. With no Tailwind, that means that Floette is able to move first and get the Draining Kiss off onto Basculegion, healing all the way back up to full. Here's the Heat Wave from Charizard. Without the Sun, is able to pick up the KO onto Mousehold, heal a little bit to Floette, but now Friend Guard is off the field from Mousehold going down, and Basculegion is able to fire off a huge last respects. And look, this Pokemon's 50% usage for a reason.
Yeah, it's just that good, right? And that's with only 2 of its teammates knocked out. Blast Protects gets stronger every time a teammate is knocked out. And yeah, Brandon maybe a little cheeky there going for the attack rather than the protect, but I just don't know what realistically he could have done there, where could have a position where, Heat Wave was threatening both of the Pokemon that could have been in the partner slot there, and because of that, he was just really pinned. Excellent set by Giovanni, and kind of just showing he knew his line to this matchup really well, right? Where I think both trainers played well, but it just didn't seem like there was a whole lot.
For number 2, Joshua Lorsey versus Justin Knox. These are 2 players that I am a huge fan of. Lorsey, of course, has been around for a long time here, has been playing, I believe played in the original Mega seasons, so should be familiar with a lot of these Pokemon, although, of course, not using any Pokemon really that would have been used back then. And Justin, of course, has emerged as one of the more interesting team builders of the Scarlet and Violet era. Going for a new look at the Floette and Charizard, this time with the Kleavor tech.
Yeah, I think it's a lot of fun. Where maybe if we had all of the matches available, we would have immediately picked this one again. We're like, oh look, it's kind of the same matchup that we saw in the first round of round 4. But I think that both trainers have made techs. I think are going to change this matchup pretty significantly. So I think that's a lot of fun, and I think it's a very good example of kind of how a format like this one works, where even if you're kind of all using a variant of the same thing, you can make changes to your team that change your matchup spread. In this case, I think some things that are notably different here. I think maybe less different at Lorsey's side of the field, but we do see the Trick Room with Sinistcha, which I think is fun. I don't know that we will necessarily see it in this matchup, but it's interesting little tech here where, boy, that Pokemon is difficult to select moves on.
Absolutely, and actually this is a little bit more of an earlier, like pre-Charizard Y version of the Floette teams. When MA first was announced and Champions was first released, a lot of players really wanted to play with the new Megas. So Delphox was a Pokemon that was really high up on people's tier lists early on as a pair to Floette because of that Fire-type coverage.
Yeah, I think the other Pokemon to keep an eye on here also is that Basculegion, pretty critical difference compared to what we saw before. I think on that team it was the Vivian, which fainted for us, but didn't actually use any moves. So hey, can't do any worse than that. Basculegion, good luck. But it's an extra thing to think about, right? Where with Brendan's version of this team and I think Sajin's original team, it's really just your Mega dealing damage and not a whole lot else. This team has some other options, right? Where that Basculegion, certainly the most threatening Pokemon in the format, it's got over 50% usage for a reason. And as well, the Mousehold is missing, instead being a Sneasler here, which is still providing support with that Fake Out, but again, gives this team more offense. So a much more balanced version of the same team that we saw from Brendan and from Lorsey here, which maybe will make him a little bit more flexible into weaker matchups.
Yeah, and only has the one setup move really on Floette for Calm Mind. The Delphox instead opting for Substitute for more defensive, more positional play, which we know Joshua Lorsey loves to use. So Justin on the other side here, got to talk about the Kleavor. When we're in MA, it's all about what is your answer to Charizard, and a lot of different rock types out in the field with a lot of different ways of combating that Pokemon. Kleavor is a particularly interesting one because of the Stone Axe. Everyone has really wanted to try to get away, since Kleavor was announced, try to find a way to make this Pokemon work, because a free Stealth Rock sounds pretty good to me.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting too. So Kleavor is a Pokemon that kind of just never really seen any use in competitive VGC, but I think it was last week in Victory Road's weekly online tournament that it was a Kleavor mirror in the finals, actually. It was, I think, Choice Scarf Kleavor lost to Focus Sash Kleavor, but it's this matchup is the reason why, right? Where, against this team, not against his opponent's team. So we'll have to see if we see it or not. But yeah, it's really good in the Charizard mirror, where pretty difficult to knock out for most of these Pokemon, totally miserable to fight against, and then you can't really switch Charizard to battle when it's going to take 50% if it comes back in. Less great here, although it will make, once again, Delphox more difficult to pick. Also, to keep in mind, again, similar matchup as last time, but this time, Whimsicott is the Tailwind Pokemon, not Aerodactyl, because of the Kleavor's presence in this matchup, which could make things a little bit easier for Lorsey, but yes, it's here. I wanted to see Kleavor, and I am happy. Thank you, Justin. Always here with his fun tech Pokemon to make me personally enjoy the tournament more.
Yeah, y'all didn't see it on camera, but Scott gave a little fist bump when we saw Kleavor come out, because, yeah, this is a Pokemon that we've been wanting to see for a long time here, but it's going to have a lot of trouble against the Delphox and Sneasler, of course. Sneasler having the ability to go for Fake Outs, but King Gambit is also threatening the Sucker Punch right back into Delphox, so gonna have to see how these players are gonna be able to position in turn 1.
Yeah, these Pokemon and Lorsies kind of all want to do too many things, right?
Yep.
So it's sort of interesting. You'd love to get a substitute up on Delphox, so you don't have to worry about getting Sucker Punched now or later. You'd love to close combat the Kingambit, but it does have a Chople Berry, so that's not going to do enough alone, although it'll likely put it in range of a Heat Wave. You probably don't want to totally ignore Cleaver here, who's going to dunk Delphox if it gets a chance. So lots to consider. I think both trainers are going to have to win the mind games here a little bit and anticipate what their opponent's going to do, because they both have a lot of pretty good options.
Extremely volatile turn 1 here because of that. As a result, Lorsi is going to go ahead and just protect the Delphox here, scout out what Justin wants to do, critically blocks that Stone Axe from setting the Stealth Rock, and Sneasler is able to now fire off a close combat into the Kingambit. Kingambit does go ahead and munch down on that Chople Berry, but is able to survive with just a few hit points as Sneasler's defenses drop thanks to that close combat. That, of course, will activate Sneasler's White Herb, which is part of what has made Sneasler so strong in this meta. It's the ability to now get that Unburden boost, tank that Iron Head, and now Sneasler is the fastest thing on the field and immediately threatening a KO onto Cleavor.
Yeah, very impactful there. And I think one thing to keep in mind with that first turn is Lorsi's kind of dictating it, right? Even though both sides could have had options to trade well, since his Pokemon were quicker, he kind of got to determine how that play was going to play out. I think Justin does a pretty good job of avoiding too many losses there. But Lorsi does now know that, hey, you're locked into a rock-type attack, so Delphox is in some danger. And White Herb really matters there. Unburden's kind of whatever, where it was faster anyway. But Iron Head almost certainly would have picked up a knockout there with reduced defense on Sneasler. And also, even if somehow it had hung on, which doesn't look like it was possible here, the Sucker Punch would also do more, where now, even though Sucker Punch is sort of being threatened into either slot, would not pick up Sneasler here, would enable it to pick up the Kingambit if it wanted to, but Delphox kind of forced to flee with both Sucker Punch and Stone Axe being forced, threatened into that slot.
Yeah. Basculegion now out on the field, but Kingambit Sucker Punch does connect onto Sneasler and is able to pick up that KO.
See how powerful that Pokemon's attack stat is there, and how weak Sneasler's defenses are, unfortunately.
And that just means that Cleavor gets to fire off this Stone Axe into the Basculegion, and that means that the Stealth Rock has now been set on the field. So Delphox is going to take 25% damage on Switchin, Incineroar as well, and here it comes, trying to get a little bit of Intimidate down onto the Cleavor, but giving away a free boost to that Kingambit.
A lot of fun field attack here. So Kingambit going to get stronger. Incineroar going to come in and ensure that this Cleavor gets weaker. The Stealth Rock going to do more damage to Incineroar, as you mentioned, as well as the Delphox in the back. But some interesting things to keep in mind here. Certainly the Basculegion going to have the Aqua Jet, so kind of a means of getting over that Sucker Punch potentially on the Kingambit. So it's being threatened too. And yeah, it's just a lot of fun on that turn. Even Intimidated too, you can imagine Cleavor easily going to pick up a knockout on Basculegion if it's able to attack it somehow, or some pretty devastating damage to Incineroar. And there's still 2 Pokemon in the back from Justin for Lorsi to figure out. He's running out of resources pretty quickly here, where Basculegion heavily weakened, the other 2 Pokemon both weak to Stealth Rock. So Cleavor showing off its stuff early on here.
Yeah, Cleavor has already done over 100% damage based off of the Stone Axe, and then also the guaranteed damage on Stealth Rock to both Delphox and Incineroar. But actually, Lorsi is showing off the tech here. The helping hand onto the Incineroar means that Aqua Jet from Basculegion is enough to finally get the Cleavor off the field. This Kingambit, though, doesn't take the bait. Instead, will go for the safe Kowtow Cleave to pick up the KO onto Basculegion. And now is just going to be the final 2 Fire-type Pokemon for Lorsi up against Kingambit and 2 other friends.
Yeah, I think it's going to matter a lot what these friends are. You kind of guess one of them probably Charizard, who's not going to do very well here as the 1 Mega Evolved Pokemon's team. But hey, maybe not. Whimsicott going to come in here. A very interesting Pokemon where it's going to make it more difficult for Delphox to use that tech move, right? Where I think probably potentially a big reason why Whimsicott's on this team at all. Where, you know, like, oh, I'll just substitute in front of the Kingambit. That'll be easy. And that could lead immediately to a very devastating encore on the 1 really powerful attacking Pokemon left on the team. So a complicated situation here for Lorsi. He's not going to be able to just do whatever he wants. And Incineroar going to have to take us back to yesteryear and have to carry this game, perhaps.
Yeah, especially because the Whimsicott is Focus Sash. That means that Lorsi would have to double up into it to get that Pokemon off the field, or maybe hope for a burn on a Flare Blitz to try and get rid of the Encore threat here from Justin. And that may just be the only real option, is going for the Flare Blitz and hoping for a burn and then a substitute. But Justin covering for that by going for the Protect on Whimsicott. and on King Gambit
Yeah,
just
I guess
to
it
see.
makes sense, right? Just like, okay, let's see if Delphox does something that I can encore. If it doesn't, I'm still going to get some intel into what perhaps Joshua wants to do here. So Heatwave going to do nothing. We'll see what Incineroar does, but spoilers, it won't do anything either. It is that double up into the Whimsicott, so Justin not going to walk into that and doesn't get anything to encore here, but potentially get some information.
I mean, you do get the ability to encore an attack for the King Gambit to go for sucker punches here.
Oh, that's a good point. Yeah, where I mean, so it sort of forces in air quotes a protect from Delphox if you don't want that to happen. In which case, you know, King Gambit still an interesting situation, although it can't protect anymore, right? So if you want to go for that win con, you'd have to switch King Gambit out and take some damage wherever in the back. If that's Pokemon Charizard, I think you're pretty happy about it, right? But if it's perhaps that Garchomp instead, there's no need. And we see the encore, we do not see a protect, and Delphox, I think, it's in trouble.
Yeah, the encore from it actually fails. The Sucker Punch fails into the Delphox, which means the encore gets to fire off this Heat Wave. So likely they're going for the substitute, but encore.
Yeah, so then, yeah, exactly. Yeah, if you're going for a status move, even if you get encored into attack, that doesn't work out. So Justin perhaps learning some mechanics here. That's unlucky. Flare Blit's going to come in, knock out this Whimsicott, and what looked like it was a pretty decisive game state for Justin to win, instead looking like it perhaps is going to be a easy win the other direction there. You know, it's there's some interesting mechanics in Pokemon Champions where I do not believe that's the way it used to work. So this is why we ladder in game. And yeah, it is. So it is Charizard. Right?
In the back.
That's kind of why I was thinking. Okay, you go. It's not going to do much against these Pokemon anyway. So sending it out as a sacrifice there for King Gambit in order to set up that encore seemed like it was a necessary play to me. But again, I think Justin probably just didn't realize that that's the way that encore works now. So instead, Charizard going to need to do a 2v1. Still not impossible, but
certainly not impossible.
Yeah, going to need to do some serious damage here for the most used Mega Evolution Pokemon in this format.
Yeah, the big problem that Justin's Charizard is going to have is that it will be slower than the Delphox. And of course, these Pokemon resist everything that Charizard can fire off.
But good start for Charizard.
That's a good start for sure. There's the Heat Wave connecting onto both Delphox and Incineroar, so that is good damage down onto Lorcy's Pokemon from Justin. There's the Citrus Berry that will heal up the Incineroar just a little bit. The Flare Blitz deals good damage right back, so Justin's going to need a couple more of those.
Yeah, it's it can still happen. If I'm on Lorcy's side of the field, I think I probably think about a Psyshock here to
guarantee damage.
Yeah. It's I don't know. It seems like a little risk we don't have to take, but you know what? I appreciate it. Let's have fun. It's a stream match. This is round 4, round 2. You know, let's just go crazy here. Yeah, why not? Heat Wave hits this time.
Yeah, Heat Wave hits this time, so that's good damage onto Charizard. Here is the opposing Heat Wave. Will pick up the KO onto Delphox. Incineroar is back down to 72. Gets a crit onto the Delphox. I'm not 100% sure the crit was, it definitely was necessary there after the Stealth Rock there, but then the Flare Blitz connects onto Charizard, picks up that Pokemon, and Lorcy takes game 1 in a much closer fashion than it looked like it was going to be there in the mid-game.
Yeah, that one would be a little bit crazy where one more Heat Wave miss, and I think we're talking about how Justin inexplicably was able to pull that one off. So I think 2 things in that match maybe to look back on that were a little bit surprising as we went through that really influenced the outcome. Like the one is, Encore's mechanics in reference to Sucker Punch are a little bit weird, where Sucker Punch does damage if you selected an attack that turn, not if you're using an attack. So the Encore is a weird situation where it doesn't work that way anymore. If you selected a status move, you can't be Sucker Punch that turn. I believe it also works that way with Orangaroos and Instruct if you were somehow able to attack and then be locked into a status move. Yep. The other thing that I think was a little bit surprising, at least to me, is the trainers know each other's natures, but not their training, right? Sorry, their stat alignment, not their natures. The Adamant, the Sneasler on Lorcy's side is Adamant. I think sometimes when you see Adamant Sneasler, at least for me, the assumption is like, oh, this Pokemon's much more likely to be trained defensively. So I was kind of expecting it to survive that Sucker Punch, but revealing that it's definitely a more offensively trained Sneasler. Not too surprising for Joshua. I guess he's the player who could have been surprised. There certainly knows how his own Sneasler is trained. But I'm a little surprised that Justin was expecting to get that knockout.
Yeah, well, that is the power of King Gambit sometimes. And if you feel like you're on, sometimes you just need to go for it, because that Sneasler was in a really good position before going down to the Sucker Punch. So at least the extra damage could have been big onto that Pokemon for Chip. But here we go, heading into our second game here of our second Swiss round 4 match between Joshua Lorcy and Justin Knox. Both of these players have been at the top tables multiple times throughout the Scarlet and Violet years, and then Lorcy previously before that as well. Here is a shakeup here. Sneasler and Basculegion led by Lorcy versus the King Gambit and Cleaver once again from Justin.
Yeah, I think it's a great adjustment for Lorcy there. And even though he won game one, I think, again, Justin knowing that mechanic alone is enough, I think game one would have been swapped. So instead, Lorcy's really the one who needs to change up here, I think, is the one who would kind of have like the losing line in game one. And Basculegion is great for that, potentially threatening some damage into both of these Pokemon. And you have a difficult spot for Justin because, yeah, the fake out into King Gambit and attacking into Cleaver is a little bit too scary. So instead, Whimsicott coming in perhaps to try to Encore a Dire Claw, but Encore a fake out rather, but gets caught by the Dire Claw.
Yeah, Dire Claw on the switch in. Whimsicott is taken all the way down to Focus Sash immediately. No Sucker Punch coming out from King Gambit. Liquidation will clean up that final hit point off of Whimsicott. And now this means that King Gambit is going to be able to fire back with either a Kowtow Cleave into the Basculegion or an Iron Head once more into the Sneasler. So we do know definitely from this position that a Sucker Punch onto Sneasler will pick up the KO there, but Whimsicott going down immediately is huge.
Yeah, I think interesting too. Man, the Sneasler did it took way more damage than it took last time. I think like 15 more damage than Iron Head. So we'll likely see both the high and the low roll, although I don't think that HP is going to matter too much. And yeah, awesome read where I think kind of maybe a little bit on both players' side where Justin anticipated, okay, well, you know, if you're actually going to try to knock King Gambit out, you have to spend enough that I don't think you're going to do it. But calling that Whimsicott switch, now not only have to worry about Tailwind or critically Encore, as we saw potentially could have been devastating in the end game, especially assuming both of the Fire-type Mega Evolved Pokemon in the back, or I guess even if it's Floette, I think really big knockout to get for Lorcy.
Absolutely huge moment there for Lorcy to get the KO onto Whimsicott. That is so much positioning, that's so much disruption that is now off the field for Justin. Lorcy's going to take that advantage and try to protect this Basculegion. Cleaver fired off the Stone Axe into the Basculegion. No Sucker Punch once again. That means Sneasler gets to fire off another attack. Close combat into Cleaver, not quite enough to pick up the KO in one shot there. Definitely put it into Aqua Jet range though, as Sneasler will go ahead and reset the stats with the White Herb, and of course get that Unburden boost once more. But of course, it's the double up into Basculegion. The power of the Focus Sash Basculegion means that Justin has to double target it and gets really punished for it.
Yeah, that's a really big deal there too, where you know, I think that not getting the connection with the by Cleaver, we'll talk about this later.
Yeah, absolutely. Cleaver goes down from the Aqua Jet here, and that means that Justin has now lost a second Pokemon. King Gambit finally fires off the Sucker Punch and gets that Sneasler off the field. So final two Pokemon left for Justin. It's going to be the King Gambit +1, while Lorcy has plenty of options remaining available to him.
So what I was going to say there, it's a big deal that Cleaver didn't get to use the Stone Axe, right? It's not like any other attack where it's like, oh no, I lost the damage, which is still bad, but also you have to connect with Stone Axe in order to start the, set the Stealth Rock, right? So because of that, Incineroar going to come in healthier, and so is that last Pokemon in the back, which could be a huge deal if it's a Delphox who were able to maintain 25% extra HP rather than the 1/8 that it normally is. And that's a big deal here, right? Where also you have Basculegion, if it had switched out, would have to worry about Sash being broken. So Cleaver in a perfect world is really impactful in this matchup. This time not being able to do much because Lorcy's made some great reads, and this is a huge lead now.
All right, Justin will go ahead and protect the Floette here. A major adjustment from Justin from game one. No Charizard, instead it's going to be the Floette. King Gambit also protects, just trying to blow the fake out from Incineroar. That means nothing will happen here for Justin or Lorcy.
Yeah, so just vibing for now, but I just don't know what Justin does here. Where, especially with that Sass during the Basculegion, there's just so much ground to make up. You know, we will see a Mega Evolution from Floette on this turn, but yeah, just have to figure out a way. Okay, I got to tap this Basculegion twice. Certainly, you know, both of these Pokemon could potentially knock it out before it can move, but then you're taking a ton of damage back from Incineroar, and there still is that final Pokemon to worry about. Where, you know, if it's Delphox, like, hey, you know, that's maybe you win some Mind Games to Gambit, that's enough. But getting rid of this Basculegion is the most important thing for Justin right now.
And the good news for Justin is that Floette should outspeed this Basculegion, as it is the Focus Sash and not one of the, you know, finisher Choice Scarf Basculegion we've seen before. That means that Basculegion is forced into Aqua Jet here, while King Gambit actually goes for the Sucker Punch onto Incineroar. Doesn't fall for the bait, instead just gets some guaranteed damage onto Incineroar. Floette following up with a big Moonblast. Still not enough to pick up the KO though. That means Incineroar gets to survive with Citrus Berry. Enough health to survive another Sucker Punch from that King Gambit, which will need to be able to do because of the that King Gambit is now down to 33. And actually now with that recoil, probably still picks up the KO on that.
Yeah, I think it's close, but I think it gets it, and that's a big deal because, yeah, I mean, how do you get now to a position where that stops being a problem, where Floette kind of needs to attack both of these Pokemon, where, you know, an Aqua Jet into the King Gambit slot while Incineroar just plows away on this. Floette's still going to be a lot of damage to deal with. Instead, Basculegion going to protect. It's like, I don't even want to deal with this game. I think you have to target me. So see if we can, Incineroar can get some cheeky damage here. But unlike the Floette we saw last round, this one does no Dazzling Gleam. Going to pick up a knockout, I assume, on this Incineroar.
Yeah, good news. Justin can actually hit 2 Pokemon at once with the Floette, so does not have to worry too much about that. That just means that Incineroar has gone down, and that means Lorcy gets a free switch in here now to Delphox. And this is actually really difficult for the King Gambit at this point. It does have that boost, but at the same time, both Basculegion and Delphox are able to completely ignore the Sucker Punch, so Justin has to make a call here, or else King Gambit is just going to go down without doing anything.
Yeah, it's like it's a tricky spot, but it's like it's not impossible where you can't get caught. But yeah, I mean, Aqua Jet likely going to pick up a knockout here, so you know, you either have to hope you survive or like maybe you go for a double. But he's the first protect, so you know, we'll have to see now if Joshua calls that and goes for the double into the Floette instead.
Oh no, there's the Aqua Jet into King Gambit. Lorcy went for the guaranteed KO on that Pokemon, and Delphox will fire back with a Psyshock. Deals a lot of damage into that Floette, hitting the weaker physical defense on that Pokemon thanks to Psyshock's unique abilities there. Dazzling Gleam deals good damage. That would be a 2-hit KO onto Basculegion, and we are just sort of back in the same spot, though.
Yeah, it was probably checkmate, right? Where unless King Gambit can survive this Aqua Jet, it'll be knocked out, and then Floette will be knocked out by the Delphox, and that's why you use Psyshock onto Delphox. That, like most Fairy-type Pokemon, that Floette's much stronger on the special side, so Psychic probably wouldn't have done it. Aqua Jet going to pick up this King Gambit, and Lorcy's going to take the set.
Yeah, with that Aqua Jet, King Gambit goes down. Justin no longer has any offensive pressure as Psyshock cleans it up. Lorcy 2-0 over Justin Knox will be now 4-0 heading into round 5 of Swiss.
Yeah, a fascinating match, right? Where
we have another matchup for you, and I'm actually really excited about this one as well because we've got Thomas Colleen versus William Brown. Now, William Brown, I feel like, represents sort of like the newer age of VGC player. He's been so consistently dominant the last couple of years, really come into his own, but you know T-Man, Tommy Colleen, that's a throwback.
He's been playing longer than I have, and I started, what, 13 years ago now, so it's cool to see him doing so well at these events in the modern era as well. He's someone that can always show up to an event and make a deep run, even if he's been taking a little bit of a break. And so far, so good for Tommy at 3-0 going into round number 4, and hoping to continue on even further.
These teams are also really exciting. We get a chance to get another look at this Whimsicott with the Charizard and the Garchomp that Tommy's going to be running. But I feel like this is kind of another iteration of these Pokemon. While we know that these 6 in particular are really good, there's actually going to be some small things, I think, that make this team a little bit more unique. I'm talking mostly about those super effective berries, the Roselli berry for the Garchomp and the Kebia berry for the Whimsicott.
Which is the poison resist berry for those uninformed. It means that Whimsicott should be able to survive a Dire Claw. I imagine if you're running the Kebia berry, it's because you've trained it for that, or potentially something like a Glamora Sludge Bomb could be on Tommy's mind there as well. When you don't have the Focus Sash available on the Whimsicott, it's kind of one of your second best options there. Yeah, Garchomp moveset, also unique. That is not a set that I've personally seen yet. It is Stomping Tantrum and Stone Edge instead of Earthquake and Rock Slide. We are going full on in the you will not wide guard my Garchomp mode because there's no spread moves on this Garchomp at all.
That's true.
To be guarded.
We have had like, oh my gosh, what is the thing that I'm thinking of? Well, because Stone Edge is less accurate but more powerful than not
both Rock
Throw.
Slide and Rock Tomb.
Rock Tomb, that was the one. I was like, well, it's one of the rocks. You know, rock type move there. But this is a more unique team. Of course, going to be featuring one of the newer Mega Evolutions in that Mega Dragonite that we've already seen, but Mega Scovillain is also on this team.
This is a pretty cool team. We've got the Espathra as well, the Calm Mind Baton Pass set. Something that's been picking up a little bit of traction there. With the speed boost in Calm Mind, you're able to use Baton Pass to transfer all of those stat boosts to one of your Pokemon. Looking at William's team, all of our Chaladon, Politoed, and Dragonite would be really great targets for that Baton Pass. Of course, that Politoed, we're not used to seeing the offensive set on Politoed, but it is carrying the Mystic Water instead of something like a Citrus Berry or a Resist Berry instead. So if you want to pass it to the Politoed, you're more than get a lot of mileage out of it too.
You could, for sure. I mean, those ice beams are going to be super effective into something like that Garchomp. The Roselli Berry is only going to save you from those fairy type attacks.
True.
But you also do get a nice boost of damage to that Weather Ball that is going to become a water type attack when in the rain. There's, of course, a way that you can go around that, which is going to be with the Mega Charizard.
Yeah.
So that's going to be something that sets the sun and changes that Weather Ball into a fire type attack. But it is not going to be either of those Megas hitting the field right now, or even Pokemon hitting the field. We've got the Dragonite and the Sneasler versus the Garchomp and the Basculegion.
The Dragonite, we're so used to the physical Dragonite, but whether it's Scale Shot or like Choice Band Extreme Speed, but the Mega Dragonite is much more inclined for the special attacks and will be carrying both Dragon Pulse and Hurricane. Hurricane being a really, really great option when the rain is up. We might get a little bit of a weather war going on between these two trainers throughout the battle, but no weather just yet, and no possibility for it on this turn.
You don't need the weather, though, if you're the Dragonite, if you're going to be just focusing on the Dragon Pulse and the Extreme Speed. Extreme Speed, of course, going to give you a nice way to be able to get some increased damage down, or you see the Fake Out coming into that Garchomp, I feel like that's just going to end up being a Dragon Pulse to KO it on this turn. Fake Out to stop it, Dragon Pulse to follow up, and that is going to be basically a one-hit knockout into this Garchomp.
Is a one-hit knockout into Garchomp, but Basculegion can respond. Do you rather break the multi-scale on the Dragonite or potentially get a big knockout into Sneasler with Liquidation? And he do just KO the Sneasler, so we're trading Pokemon right away.
I feel like I would like this trade a little bit more, though, for Tommy. I mean, the fact that you get rid of the Sneasler means that you don't actually have something that's going to be dealing big damage to like your Charizard or your Garchomp. But the problem with the Basculegion is that, you still get a chance to use the Rain if that gets set up.
And your King Gambit, right? The Sneasler is a big obstacle to King Gambit. That's one of the best options you have into King Gambit in general in this metagame. And now that the King Gambit is gone, Dragonite only has resisted attacks, and the Archaludon needs the weather setup to be even neutral.
We're going to see that weather come in now. Dragonite going to preserve its multi-scale for later, as the Politoed is going to come in and set up the Rain. It's going to take this Last Respects, which it actually handles quite well. Remember, it's only going to be an additional 50 base power, but that is one bulky Politoed. We have this Archaludon with the Rain is going to be able to fire out these Electro Shots in one turn. That's going to be a nice special attack boost. And the King Gambit's actually going to take quite a bit of damage from that Electro Shot as well. King Gambit, though, is going to go for the Sword Stance. That's going to be a nice +2 to its attack stat.
I like the option for a Sword Stance there instead of going straight for damage. If you did go for something like a Kowtow Cleave into the Archaludon, trying to get a little bit of damage into it, maybe soften it up a little bit, you do activate its Stamina ability and boost its defense by one stage. So your next attack will do even less. But now that you've gone for the Sword Stance, you can threaten a +2 Sucker Punch at neutral defense. Won't one-hit KO it, but will still do a lot of damage and could soften it up for something like your Charizard in the back.
I'm wondering, though, how you actually get around this Archaludon. I think that's the biggest question. With the stamina boosts, you're going to continuously take less and less damage from King Gambit and Basculegion, as those are both physical attackers. But you do have this +2 to the King Gambit, so, is something like a Kowtow Cleave actually going to do a lot here? King Gambit goes for the Sucker Punch first, though, and actually, as I say that, I mean, that's not a resisted hit, that's just neutral damage. It's going to bring it down low enough that we could have potentially seen a Last Respects to follow it up. But the Archaludon is safe for now, because it's going to be the Dragonite that takes the Last Respects instead. Another Electro Shot is going to boost up this Archaludon to +2 special attack, and it's going to finish off this King Gambit for good.
King Gambit is knocked out, but that Sucker Punch was huge. Now at Last Respects, with the extra power from one more Pokemon being knocked out, could be enough to have this Basculegion knock out that Archaludon. We are seeing Archaludon attack before the Basculegion attack before the Archaludon as well. So that should be a speed advantage for that Basculegion. If it's not Swift Swim, we don't have to worry about the weather being correct for that speed interaction. And now the multi-scale has also been broken on the Dragonite. So even though Tommy's in Pokemon disadvantage here, I think the game state might be pretty fine for him, right? You got Last Respects, will knock out anything for the rest of this game. Like, anything takes a Last Respects, it gets knocked out. If you get the Sun up, you're going to be able to knock out the Archaludon or even the Politoed with the Heat Wave. You just have to be careful because William's Politoed is still lurking in the back.
Yeah, that's the thing, right? When you're down to just 2 Pokemon left, you could stall this out if you're Tommy, which means that maybe you protect the Charizard for now, hope that the Politoed switches in, and then you Mega Evolve on the next turn to overwrite that weather. But it's not going to be the case. Tommy's just going to go ahead and use Mega Evolution now and go ahead and get that Charizard to get rid of this weather. I guess you stand to lose a lot more than what you could potentially gain by going for that Protect and waiting it out. We're going to see the Archaludon Protect in response as Dragonite just goes for a Dragon Pulse. Still one of the fastest Pokemon on the field. It's going to make that into a 2-hit knockout. Archaludon saves itself from a Weather Ball, but this Basculegion still gets a chance to fire off an attack. That Last Respects into the Dragonite will pick it off, and we are now down to 2 Pokemon apiece.
I think this is still a pretty fine turn for Tommy. You do give up your Sun, so when William switches the Politoed back in, the rain will be up for the rest of the game. But your Basculegion is faster than Archaludon. Again, you have the 2 boosts to the Last Respects from 2 Pokemon being knocked out. Should still be able to knock out Archaludon from here despite the 1 stamina boost. And even though Charizard can't use its Fire-type attacks very well anymore, a Water-type Weather Ball is probably still enough to knock out the Politoed. You get the double base power boost because the weather is up. You get the boost from the rain. And even this Water-type attack from a Charizard is not something we get to see too often. I think it's going to be enough to lock up this game for Tommy here.
Yeah, it's just tough because there's no way to really get through the Basculegion. I guess your hope was that you get the double Protect here, and then the Politoed isn't at the receiving end of this Weather Ball, so you can fire off a Weather Ball back, but that's not going to be the case. As Charizard lands the final blow into this Politoed, definitely not something that you see every day.
No.
And without the double Protect, the Archaludon will fall to a Last Respects. And Tommy Cooley goes up 1 game in the series.
Really well managed by Tommy there, knowing that he didn't really need to have the weather advantage in the end game there. The Politoed switching in on that Last Respects was enough to put it in range for Weather Ball. Whatever type the Weather Ball was didn't matter in the end. And knowing that the Basculegion was faster than Archaludon gave him so much more safety. He could leave the Basculegion vulnerable to that Mega Dragonite's Dragon Pulse, for example, knowing that even if it gets a critical hit, I have the Focus Sash, I'm going to be able to survive, and I will continue to threaten this Archaludon before it can run away with the game.
And getting this knockout into Sneasler was just such a big deal. You know, we talked about the fact that that seems like a really great trade for Tommy in particular. And it's like, you know, what really was going to be there to threaten something like the Garchomp? You care mostly about the Politoed, but it took so much damage. It was never going to come back in and be faster than that Garchomp to dish out an Ice Beam. That would have been kind of like the big super effective hit. So I feel like super great trade for Tommy to give up the Garchomp in favor of that Sneasler there for Billy. And we get to see what happens in this game too. Are we going to see the same reliance on the Mega Dragonite for Billy?
I think Mega Dragonite is pretty good here. Mega Dragonite is very strong into Mega Charizard Y, which gives it a big edge, right? Even if you, for example, lose a Weather War, you have the Dragonite that can still come in and deal with the Charizard. But I don't know if we're going to see the Dragonite. We get to see the Scoville and Espathra combo right off the bat.
I like this. So Espathra, kind of another one of those Pokemon that introduced in Scarlet and Violet, I feel like got a small amount of time in the sun, but I feel like we mostly saw it for being able to take advantage of gravity and hypnosis, being able to put Pokemon to sleep. But of course, Espathra has a couple of other tricks up its sleeve. Speed Boost going to keep making it faster and faster the more times that it sits on the field.
And Scoville a really cool partner for it. Of course, the Espathra really doesn't want to see King Gambit, but if King Gambit attacks while Mega Scoville uses Rage Powder, its ability will burn the King Gambit as soon as King Gambit deals damage to it. So not only do you redirect the Kowtow Cleave, you then lower the King Gambit's damage for the rest of the game.
But that's why you have the Charizard here, because one way that you could get around the Rage Powder is just by going for a Mega, oh my god, I almost said Terra. A Mega Evolution and a Heat Wave. Double Protect though here from Billy just to kind of scout out what Tommy might want to do with both of these Pokemon. We don't even see the Mega Evolution actually committed to this turn, as this is probably about as bad as it can get with the King Gambit taking advantage of that Double Protect, getting the Swords Dance off, and now what?
Very heads-up play from Tommy, and not a great Moody Boost either. By not Mega Evolving the Charizard, you accomplish 2 things. You preserve your ability to turn the Sun on if William swaps Politoed in, and you're not boosting the overheat damage from that Scoville. For a Double Protect on this first turn is a very common thing with those 2 Pokemon, with the Scoville and Espathra. So a huge Swords Dance there. Now even if King Gambit gets burned, its damage output will still be what you expect.
Well, I was going to say, you got to worry about a little bit about those Moody Boosts that the Scoville just got, though, because while it is going to be on the slower side, since it did take a hit to its speed stat, it got a +2 Politoed special attack. So
it
now
sure
that
did.
the sun is active, you might just be throwing an overheat at that King Gambit's way, as the baton pass from this Espatra is actually going to give that speed boost that it got from its ability over to something else that's about to take the stage. It's going to be the Politoed, one of the Pokemon you talked about.
And Politoed gets a speed boost, which is cool. You do have the special attack boost from the Moody, but you've also just set up the rain, so there maybe is a chance that the King Gambit can survive an overheat here still?
I mean, it's just, even if it's not, I mean...
it's just slower.
Yeah, it is
Okay,
just
great.
slower. So the Kowtow is going to pick it off. You do get the spicy spray activated, as you said, as the Kowtow Cleave makes contact with the Scovillain. It's going to activate that ability and give a burn over to the King Gambit. But yeah, I was wondering, you know, in the rain, does it still actually fall to a +2 overheat?
Maybe. It might have been close, but unfortunately we won't get to know as the Scovillain has been knocked out. Now the Archaludon comes in. We'll have the chance to go for an Electro Shot on this turn. So despite losing the Mega Scovillain, William's not in the worst of spots. You did get the burn off into the King Gambit. You set up Archaludon to get a guaranteed +1 special attack boost. And your Politoed does have a speed boost. That could come in pretty handy if Tommy has to swap the Charizard out and back in. Politoed, depending on how it's trained, might still be faster, which could give him the opportunity to go for... We saw Charizard use a Water Weather Ball. Will we see a Politoed use a Fire Weather Ball?
Hey, you know what? Anything is possible, I feel like, at this stage in the game. As we do see that Charizard go away for now, it's going to be the Garchomp that actually has to take this muddy water.
That's so much damage.
Yeah, I mean, in the rain, like, how could it not be? Archaludon goes for the Electro Shot. Now, if this is into the King Gambit, feels like that's just going to secure the knockout here based on how much damage we saw on the previous game. It's not the Garchomp, which would have, you know, been immune to it since it's a ground type, but King Gambit is not so lucky. A big knockout here as we look at what will come in for that King Gambit's place.
It's tough, right? You want to bring the Charizard back in to get the Sun up, but the Charizard could be vulnerable to a faster Politoed. Now that Sun is back up, though, the Muddy Water will be a reduced power, and of course, Politoed no longer has that Water-type Weather Ball. So maybe you want to... I mean, you could, like, attack with your Politoed first, get the fast Ice Beam into Garchomp to knock it out, but then you're leaving your Charizard... Leaving the Charizard open, right? You can't even Electro Shot anymore because the rain is not up.
Solar Beam.
Right.
Solar Beam the Politoed.
You could, or...
Send it into the Shadow Realm.
Or just get a big Weather Ball off into our Archaludon. You know, without that +2 Sucker Punch threat that we saw in that first game, this is going to be your best option into our Archaludon here.
Yeah, I think Weather Ball is close. You know, depending on the training of the Archaludon, it could very well just be a one-hit knockout with that weather. But you do have Protect as an option on this Archaludon, so maybe you have to bring the Espatra back in. Hope that you make it through this turn, and then you can baton pass the speed out. But for now, it is just going to be a Protect here from the Politoed as, stopping Tantrum from the Garchomp into that position. And Heat Wave coming up for the Charizard. Maybe the Archaludon actually does get through this. Oh, it's just going to be a miss of the Heat Wave entirely. So their Dragon Pulse comes out, knocks out the Garchomp, and it's just 2 Pokemon left here for Tommy in Game 2.
Rough break for Tommy. Now he has the weather disadvantage for the rest of the game. William does still have that Espatra in the back, and if he wants to swap it out, bring it back in, the Politoed, then the Electro Shot is rejuvenated. It is able to be used again. You do have to give up the speed boost on your Politoed, but I think that's a trade you're willing to make here. This fast Politoed is not really accomplishing much for you right now. And even though Tommy didn't get the Stomping Tantrum off into it, I don't know that damage is going to be particularly meaningful for the rest of this game. Charizard's still very threatening, right? We saw the Water-type Weather Ball. It still could come in pretty handy. And of course, the Basculegion is immediately threatening those huge last respects. The Politoed probably gets knocked out by it. The Archaludon probably takes a lot of damage. Espatra certainly gets blown away by it. So you have to be very careful about this Basculegion, especially with its Focus Sash still intact.
I still think the play is probably like if you can protect the Archaludon here. Oh, you don't. Okay, never mind. You just don't protect the Archaludon. You're gonna go ahead and let it take this Weather Ball. It does hang on, but the problem is this Basculegion is still going to be faster than you. The last respects was aiming towards the Politoed though, so Espatra is gonna tank the hit instead. Now you gotta hope that you're getting enough mileage out of this Archaludon before the rain comes back in. Dragon Pulse comes out at +1, and it just doesn't get the knockout on onto this Basket Legion.
And now I believe the Basket Legion is going to be faster than Polytoad as well. I think we saw that interaction in the first game.
Yeah.
Maybe not, but if it's faster than the Archaludon, it's certainly faster than the Polytoad.
Right. Both. Tommy definitely has the speed advantage right now.
And the Weather Ball did so much to that Archaludon. I think another water-type Weather Ball could take a resistant knockout into this Archaludon. And as long as the Basket Legion is able to connect that Lashes Specs into Polytoad, it might be another Charizard wins in the rain moment.
I think it might. I mean, that's just the power of this Pokemon. Archaludon is going to go for the Protect, though. You're still going to try to get out of this if you can, as Charizard was opting to threaten a Weather Ball into that position, but Polytoad just can't hang on through that last Respects. It's got basically as many boosts as it can with only one ally left in this game, and that's going to be Archaludon's last life, as we see the forfeit thrown in, and Tommy Kulin wins Swiss round 4.3, 2-0.
4.3.1415.
One of those players that we always look at, and they have very creative teams. I think this one fits that same bill.
I will sing Doe's team building praises forever. I always love the teams that they bring to events. This is no different. Like, Ceruledge is a really cool option here. The Flash Fire ability can be really strong to something like the Mega Charizard Y. Of course, something like a Sword Stance Shadow Sneak can go a long way as well. It looks like Doe is using Bulk Up, so you get the option to boost up your defense and also heal a lot of damage back with Bitter Blade. I think there's a pretty cool place for Ceruledge in this metagame.
And on the flip side of things, Kylan Vinseverin's team is a little bit more standard. Definitely some of the Pokemon that we expected to be good in this regulation, MA. But Kylan, of course, has already proven himself several times over this season. Actually already well within the top of the leaderboards.
Yeah.
I'm like, I was like, I'm pretty sure Kylan is like in the top 10, looking at like a travel award. So
I think number 6 going into this weekend.
Yeah, so still an important place to kind of confirm the travel awards there for Worlds.
Also just wanting a big finish of his own, right? I think he has a top 8 this season so far, but looking to add on to that. But in his way is Doe. As we've noticed, again, it is the Ceruledge team, accompanied by that Floette Eternal Flower. Is a Mega Floette team with the help of some Vivian and Sinistra support.
That's going to give you some time to bulk up this Ceruledge, or even go for Coil on the Milotic. We've seen a couple of teams that have utilized those redirectors, or even some of the support that can come through from a Pokemon like the Incineroar to give you wiggle room for these Pokemon that maybe require that turn of setup to actually get that going. So I love that you have the different ends that you can play with. The Vivian, I think, is one of those Pokemon we didn't really get a chance to see shine when it was brought in Brendan Zhang's match, but this one actually has a Focus Sash, not the Choice Scarf, so you have a little bit more flexibility in what you're picking.
The Combat Ice Sleep Powder gives you almost perfectly accurate sleep moves as well. I think it's about 93% is what it comes out to, so you're landing those most of the time, which can buy a lot of valuable time.
98.
98.
Even better than that.
Oh, even better. So yeah, I mean, that's something that you can pretty easily rely on to give yourself some extra turns to get those bulk ups or calm minds going. The Milotic is also a pretty cool set. Coil boosts your attack, defense, and accuracy by 1 stage each. Milotic not going to take advantage of that attack boost, but the defense can come in really handy, can keep it around on the field for a lot longer. And of course, the accuracy boosts that Hypnosis. I believe with 1 boost, Hypnosis goes up to 80% accurate, and then with 2 coil boosts, it is 100% accurate. So if you can get those 2 coils up, you have another very reliable sleep option.
That's so annoying. Wait.
I mean, it is, right? It can be very difficult to take down.
I know you say it's cool, but you know, I think that is the thing about Milotic that I think has been really strong in this meta, is that it's another one of those Pokemon that is very sneakily bulky. There's not many great ways for you to take it out. You might be looking at something like the Solar Beam from the Charizard as kind of your one-stop shop for dealing with something like that Milotic. But can you reliably get there? That's the question. Can you set up this Charizard for success when you might have to deal with that Ceruledge on the other side?
The Ceruledge could actually be pretty annoying for Kylan to get around. It was carrying the Colbur Berry, which will mitigate some damage from the King Gambit's Kowtow Cleaver Sucker Punch. Both of Kylan's Mega Evolutions are pretty weak to Ceruledge. Of course, Charizard can't touch it at all with Fire-type attacks, and Floette will only be doing resisted damage with those Fairy-type attacks. So if that Ceruledge gets a bulk up off, it can start healing off some damage with Bitter Blade. It could be pretty difficult. Luckily, Kylan does have the Basculegion with the Focus Sash. Could be a nice kind of last-ditch effort into that Ceruledge, and of course the Garchomp as well.
Yeah, I think that's something that I'm looking at for Kylan to be able to utilize here. Something like Tailwind, Earthquake. You also just can set up the Whimsicott to go for Tailwind and just help you kind of get those outspeeds on some of these Pokemon. Dawei's team is not actually the fastest when you take a look across the board at where these Pokemon like to sit in their speed tiers. Vivian a little bit faster, Floette as well, can sometimes be on the faster end of things, but it's kind of tough to say. That's why you look at something maybe like, I was going to say the Sinistcha, but this actually doesn't even have Trick Room.
Yeah.
It just has 3 supportive options there with the Rage Powder, Life Dew, and Hachagacha.
There's no speed control at all.
Yeah.
Yes, Dawei kind of has to rely on her Pokemon being bulky enough to survive, take some attacks, heal up with something like Leftovers, Hospitality, Bitter Blade, whereas Kylan has a lot more options to go on the offensive immediately.
I think it's tough to kind of look at this and feel like there's kind of an easy, clear answer that I would say if you were Kylan.
Yeah.
Because you really do have to worry about this Ceruledge making an appearance and being tough to beat. I think something we haven't quite talked about yet is the fact that, yeah, okay, Bitter Blade is great, but Shadow Sneak, a priority option here for this Ceruledge, it's going to be very impactful in terms of the strength that it's going to provide. I think like sometimes you look at Ceruledge and you don't realize actually just quite how strong it is.
Yeah.
And so those Shadow Sneaks are really going to hurt.
Especially something like Basculegion. If the Ceruledge is trained to be faster than that Basculegion, you kind of force it to Aqua Jet if you want to get any damage off at all, whereas the Shadow Sneak will potentially even go before the Aqua Jet. That speed interaction might be really important because, again, this Basculegion with the Focus Sash is probably Kylan's best option to take out the Ceruledge, unless it gets a couple bulk ups off, unless the Basculegion loses its Focus Sash early. So you have to be very careful about that Sash.
I guess that's why I also look at something like the Whimsicott and the King Gambit. You know, with something like the Tailwind, you can probably guarantee that the King Gambit will be faster than the Ceruledge, so you could just hit it with Kowtow Cleave. Don't even have to try to play that Sucker Punch mind game. Of course, if you miss the opportunity, then that is just a Ceruledge that can walk over the King Gambit.
Yeah, and Dawei has 2 redirectors too. There's 2 Rage Powders ready to move those attacks away from the Ceruledge, or even the Floette. The Floette with a Calm Mind can be very scary as well.
Well, let's get ready to go. Our competitors are now just thinking about the Pokemon that they want to bring to this best of 3 set. And we will see just where they have landed for the Pokemon that they want to bring. Of course, again, we're looking at the Mega Floette here for Dawei, and for Kylan, really looking at either the Mega Floette or the Mega Charizard that you could bring to this match.
I'm not sure which you would want to bring if you're Kylan. I think you maybe give the advantage to potentially the Charizard, because it gives you a way to hit the Floette, you resist the Floette's attacks. You can quickly dispatch either the Sinistcha or the Vivian if you need to. You got the Solar Beam for the Milotic. You just have to be very careful about that Ceruledge because, again, you can only Solar Beam the Ceruledge, and that resisted Solar Beam won't be doing too much, especially considering Bitter Blade is there to heal it back up too.
I would say, though, you have to, I think that's why the Basculegion actually ends up being a pretty big piece here, because I think about it, even if the Sun is active, those liquidations are going to hurt.
Yeah.
You know, like that's still going to be super effective damage into the Ceruledge if you are also able to put yourself into a position where you can get an Aqua Jet, or at the least in the very back, get a super powered Last Respects. I think that that's a way that Kylan can really work around something like that Ceruledge.
Immediately the Floette and Whimsicott, though, for Kylan, no Charizard, most likely in this game, and the Ceruledge and a Vivian. Immediately, Dawei says, I'm going to start setting up this Ceruledge, and this is 2 really great Pokemon for Ceruledge to be sitting in front of.
Yeah, you have the opportunity, I think, here to just kind of go for some damage into either of these Pokemon. Of course, Floette not necessarily known for its physical bulk. That's something that the Ceruledge would definitely love to, to slash down, but it's going to be the Mega Evolution for Floette first.
The Floette will Mega Evolve, activate that Fairy Aura ability, and power up the Fairy-type moves of both itself and that Whimsicott. Whimsicott holding the Fairy Feather item is no slouch when it comes to offense.
Yeah, those Fairy Feathers actually do boost up those Moonblasts quite a bit. I have seen some Garchomps get taken down very low in that regard, but it's just going to be a quick Dazzling Gleam here. Vivian gets taken down quite low as the Vivian does land the Sleep Powder into the Mega Floette. It's going to be stopped in its tracks. But as a reminder, you know, Sleep, you have a chance to wake up as the Bitter Blade comes out from the Ceruledge and brings this Whimsicott all the way down. That is the downside to having the Fairy Feather, is there's no Focus Ash to keep this Whimsicott in the game.
I think that's a really smart play from Dewey. If you go for something like a Bulk Up, Rage Powder on this turn, you leave yourself pretty liable to getting encored by the Whimsicott on the following turn. Vivian cannot redirect that encore away from Ceruledge because Whimsicott, as a Grass type, is immune to Rage Powder. So you immediately take out the Whimsicott, you heal up the damage from that Dazzling Gleam very well, and you put Floette to sleep, which means it has to stay asleep on at least this coming turn. You still have that one guaranteed turn of sleep.
You have to worry about this Garchomp, though, because Whimsicott, while it got knocked out on the last turn, is able to utilize this Tailwind to just get a massive attack off. That is going to just be the Rock Slide. You would have liked to be able to knock out this Vivian as well, but of course, because it does have that flying typing, you need to be able to hit it, you know, with a non-ground type attack.
Yeah.
Still a great opportunity here for the Ceruledge to take advantage of that weaker attack option from the Garchomp. Not getting a same type attack bonus, doesn't get flinched either, and it gets that Bulk Up off.
Now that the Encore threat is gone, that Bulk Up will come in very handy. Love the Incineroar swap there as well. You lower the damage from a possible Earthquake or Rock Slide. Now you have the option to fake out that Garchomp before it can do any more super effective damage to Ceruledge, and either get another Bulk Up off or just start going on the offense with that Bitter Blade. If you're able to Bitter Blade the Floette, it might come close to a knockout, and if not, you're still doing a lot of damage, putting it in Shadow Sneak range and healing.
Well, you got to fake out in two here for the Incineroar, another Pokemon that gets to get enough damage down onto with the Rock Slide. Now the Ceruledge, with that +1 to its attack boost, is going to take advantage of this Floette still being asleep and heal back all of that damage.
This is why the Ceruledge is a pretty good threat into Kylan's team. Any chip damage you can do into it is likely just going to get mitigated by that Bitter Blade. It's kind of like we saw with Brendan Zhang's team earlier on in this tournament. That Draining Kiss Floette is able to heal itself up after taking some damage, but in this case, the Ceruledge, I think, is more better positioned into the rest of Kylan's team than that earlier Floette was, especially considering Dewey still got all four of their Pokemon. They could swap out and back in that Incineroar, get another Intimidate down on this Garchomp, and suddenly this Garchomp, which is typically a pretty good answer into Ceruledge, is unable to touch it.
Yeah, I don't think there's a way that this Garchomp can actually get a one-hit knockout onto this Incineroar. The best case scenario here is going to be this Rock Slide coming out, flinching the Incineroar before it's able to use Parting Shot and actually pivot out. But one other way that you have more chances to do this is just by getting some healing back for the Citrus Berry. Floette does wake up though, so Moonblast here to fire off into this Incineroar does not quite do enough to actually get that job done, and Incineroar doesn't flinch either. Parting Shot perfect to get into the Garchomp to continue to mitigate its attack output.
But now this Ceruledge looking even tougher to take down as this match progresses. Smart by Kylan to go for that damage into the Incineroar there. If you are able to knock it out, you don't get Parting Shot out, so you're only at -1 attack, which is better than -2. And more importantly, you don't give Dewey the option to swap that Incineroar back in. But now, with the potential of getting Garchomp down to -3 attack, with that defense boost on the Ceruledge, how do you break through it?
It's really tough to. I mean, because I think, you know that if you go for Earthquake here, you're kind of forcing the Floette for Kylan to protect itself. Otherwise, you are also probably knocking yourself out in this situation. Well, no, I guess not, because it's at -3.
Right.
But you don't want to be doing additional damage to yourself. But it is just going to be the Floette staying in for Dewey, going for the Mega Evolution. And so now we've got two Mega Floettes staring each other down. But these blue Pokemon just look a little different than each other. So it's not quite a mirror. As the Rock Slide comes out, take a look at how well that Ceruledge is going to handle that. Now it's just about whether you can fight through the flinches. Floette is going to be the first to move. It's going to be Dewey's that is faster than Kylan's to get the Moonblast and the KO onto the opposing Garchomp. Who cares about limiting your attack output if you can just limit it by going for the attack and the KO? Light of Ruin now coming out. That's one of the newer moves that we have seen here from the Mega Floette, but it actually doesn't get the knockout there, and the Floette's going to knock itself out in response.
So who cares if Ceruledge flinches? You still got the double knockout here. There it is. I spoke it into existence, but I think it's probably safe to assume that was supposed to be a Bitter Blade, which would have done nothing in this case. And now Kylan is down to his last Pokemon. It is the Spasky Legion, which we were saying is, you know, maybe your best option into the Ceruledge late game, and it is, but you still also have to deal with the remaining Pokemon Dawei had available. So a really, really well played game 1 from Dawei to take game 1 in round 5.
Because I feel like even if you go for something like the Last Respects, since even if it's fully powered, you have a Shadow Sneak from the Ceruledge that at +1 probably knocks out the Spasky Legion, or at least brings you, well, it brings you down to the Focus Sash, I have to imagine.
Comes really close, and if not, the Floette just picks it up at the very end there. So that was probably not going to be winnable for Kylan from that position.
No, no, definitely not with 4 Pokemon. So the forfeit makes a lot of sense, but as we think about what could change going into game 2, I feel like you just have to be really cognizant of the fact that this Vivillon can always go for some type of sleep powder. But it's rough because what do you have that will be faster than that can afford to actually try to, you know, get the knockout?
I do think the Pokemon that Kylan led with were fine. It's just that Dawei had a game plan for that lead already. You know, Whimsicott does prevent you from going for that turn 1 bulk up, which can be very useful. But if Whimsicott's gone, you get the bulk up off afterwards anyway, especially with a little help from that Intimidate to lower that physical damage before you can get that defense boost. The way that Kylan approached that game, I think, fell apart a little bit after that first bulk up went off, and Kylan wasn't really able to safely swap in that Spasky Legion until the very end when it was too late.
Yeah, I think maybe I would consider, it's like I would consider leading it, maybe just seeing what kind of mileage you can actually get out of the Spasky Legion. But it's also tough to do that because you think about wanting to have the power of the Last Respects for later in the game. But it's going to be the Garchomp and the Kingambit for Kylan as we see the Ceruledge and Vivillon running it back from game 1 for Dawei.
This is a much better lead for Kylan here in terms of trying to mitigate the damage from the Ceruledge early on. This Garchomp we've seen has Rock Slide. The Vivillon is, of course, double weak to Rock. And so you're threatening a lot of damage into both Vivillon and Ceruledge right off the bat. And Incineroar is a decent swap in here to mitigate the damage from the Garchomp, but having the Kingambit next to it makes it much more difficult to do. Of course, the Ceruledge does have that Colbur Berry, so one Kowtow Cleave or Sucker Punch, probably not enough damage for a knockout, but if you boost it up with that Incineroar, it might be too much.
Well, Garchomp gets to go for a Rock Slide here. If it connects onto this Vivillon, you have to imagine that it is at least going to be able to bring it down to that Focus Sash, and so perfect call there from the extremely effective Rock Slide. I love that we have that new verbiage in the game to show that a move is 4 times super effective. But the Focus Sash keeps his Vivillon around to get a Sleep Powder into this Garchomp. As Kowtow Cleave fails to hit its mark, and that's actually kind of worst case scenario. I think you would have liked to have dealt with this Vivillon.
I like that Kylan kind of split the attention there. Like, you can potentially catch the Ceruledge being a little bit greedy, but with the way that this turn played out, this is a really great sleep pattern to Kingambit. You're guaranteeing a turn for Ceruledge to take 0 damage and get this bulk up off in the face of these 2 physical attackers.
Yeah, and I think at this point you just really have to hope that your Pokemon can wake up quickly. Otherwise, you know, this Vivillon isn't going to be doing a whole lot. It does have Hurricane, which, you know, Compound Eyes is going to be a little more accurate, right? But it's still a Hurricane outside of Rain. I
mean, the Vivillon has done its job, right? Anything else you get out of Vivillon in this game, I think, is extra. The +1 Bitter Blade is going to threaten a lot of damage into its Kingambit, if not just cleanly knock it out. With the bulk up and the potential of an Intimidate later on, this Garchomp is also probably not going to be able to do as much as you might like it to as well.
Rage Powder is one way that you can for sure keep it safe. Garchomp likely not going to want to go for an Earthquake when you know that this Kingambit is sitting right next to you, but the Bitter Blade is going to finish it off instead. That is an easy one-hit knockout for this Ceruledge to take. And so Kylan's going to at least be able to bring in something else, but what's faster than this Vivillon to deny a Sleep Powder?
Potentially Floette. I think if Floette is got a little bit of training in that speed stat, it should be able to outspeed and knock it out. Of course, Garchomp now even more likely to wake up. I think on this coming turn, it's got a 50-50 shot. And if it doesn't wake up on this turn, it will wake up the following turn. Spasky Legion does come in here. I like that. The Garchomp does wake up and be able to knock out this Vivillon, then potential Last Respects can be huge here. But with that bulk up, there's potentially the chance for Ceruledge to survive, especially with only 1 boost of that Last Respect.
I think it will too, because you still have the Colbur Berry, right? Oh no, that's for dark type moves. Never mind. Last Respects is a ghost type attack. My bad. Well, Shadow Sneak is going to at least break the Focus Sash on this Basket Legion, but good to know that it actually would need a +2 to take it all the way down to the Focus Sash. But Garchomp gets to go for the Rock Slide here and deal some good damage down to this Incineroar, but can we actually see this Ceruledge hang on? Liquidation is actually going to be the move of choice here from the Basket Legion, calling that there was going to be switching of the Incineroar. So that's quite nice to be able to get the damage, but now what? Because you're just in Shadow Sneak range.
I think the liquidation there, I like it because you were giving yourself a chance to knock out Vivian if Garchomp didn't wake up. But by essentially continuing to ignore this Ceruledge, you've put yourself in a position where this turn where you basically had a chance to swing into it, you had the chance to go for that Last Respects on this turn, you've now lost that chance. You can't Last Respects the Ceruledge anymore because Shadow Sneak will knock you out first. You maybe can't even Aqua Jet it, the Ceruledge could be faster.
I guess the thinking is that if the Vivian stays in, then you're going to get the liquidation redirected anyway because Rock Slide should knock out the Vivian.
True.
Otherwise, you do get the safe damage into something that ends up switching in, but for now, you just see the Basket Legion protecting and the Garchomp got faked out by the Incineroar.
Obviously the correct fake out target there. You can't fake out the Basket Legion. You're threatening enough.
You could try.
I mean, you can try. Maybe it'll Terra. But the Ceruledge still threatening this Basket Legion to be knocked out by a Shadow Sneak. We haven't seen the speed interaction yet, so if Ceruledge is faster, this Basket Legion's a little bit doomed, and then you still just have this -1 Garchomp against a +1 defense Ceruledge, and it's a bit of a deja vu from game number 1.
Yeah, I mean, Incineroar is going to retreat. It already dropped the attack stat of both the Basket Legion and the Garchomp, so the Vivian comes back in. Actually takes the Aqua Jet here, so okay, at least guaranteed damage down onto the Ceruledge as the Shadow Sneak comes in and finishes it off. Yeah, that's kind of the thing, right? Like, you get the damage, but Aqua Jet is just a less strong attack than the Liquidation, and you have that defense boost alongside the Intimidate drop that was done.
Earthquake does knock out Ceruledge though, so this is a way back in for Kylan with that critical hit. Maybe was a difference maker there, but the combination of Aqua Jet and Earthquake was very threatening regardless. We do find out that the Ceruledge is slower than Basket Legion, so that's really important for both these trainers to know if there is a third game in this set. But the Floette on Dawei's side is still going to be really scary if that is the 4th Pokemon they brought to this game. I think with the Garchomp already having taken some damage, already at -2 attack, or maybe at -1 now, but with the potential to be down to -2 with Incineroar in the back. The Floette for Dawei might be just the game winner here.
Yeah, because we saw in game 1 that Dawei's Floette moved first, so you can guarantee, you can probably guarantee like Moonblast into the Garchomp and sleep. It's not a total guarantee.
No.
Because I think we've seen that the Garchomp is faster than the Vivian, so you could try to get the Call of Protect, get the Moonblast into Kylan's Garchomp, knock it out, and then Sleep Powder is free to try to connect into the Floette.
Yeah, there are a few avenues to take here if you're Dawei. You certainly have more options than Kylan does. You have a little bit more leeway in the rest of this game than Kylan. I think Kylan needs to get these next couple turns correct, and Dawei can potentially afford to have maybe one, not perfectly optimal turn.
Well, you do have the, Rock Slides. Where there's a Rock Slide, there's a way.
There sure is.
We've already seen a way on making it on the stream before. There's also the fact that Light of Ruin can miss.
Yeah, true. And we also saw Dawei's Floette survive a Light of Ruin in that first game as well, I think.
Well, first things first, Vivian is going to protect itself from the Rock Slide. That's going to buy some time for Dawei's Floette to actually break through a flinch and get a KO with something like a Moonblast. So, doesn't flinch here. We're going to see the Moonblast go into the Garchomp and get that clean KO. And then it's just going to be this Mega Floette left for Kylan. But on this next turn, even if there's a Light of Ruin into the Moonblast, yeah, the Floette, well, we saw that wasn't really enough. And you don't want to take the recoil either. That's still a lot of damage. But should be a clean Sleep Powder here into Moonblast.
Is the Vivian faster than Kylan's Floette? I don't know if we've seen that. If the Vivian is faster than the Sleep Powder, is probably just going to win the game for Dawei immediately.
Well, it has to be, right? Because Dawei's Vivian is faster than Dawei's Floette.
Yeah, then you're right.
Yeah.
Then you're right. Yeah, okay, so yeah, Sleep Powder immediately comes through here. We'll put Kylan's Floette to sleep. And they might not be knocked out on this turn, but at this point it might be very, very difficult for Kylan to survive the next couple turns.
Yeah, because at this point you can just kind of threaten Hurricane and Moonblast
yeah.
as you take your first mandatory turn of sleep. and I just don't think there's a way to get through it. You do have Dazzling Gleam as an option for Kylan's Floette, but you're not faster. I think that's the thing, is you have to survive a second Moonblast, and it just doesn't look like that roll is in your favor.
If you happen to dodge the Hurricane and then get a low roll on Moonblast, maybe, but it's not going to happen.
Hurricane is going to bring that Floette down low, and Dawe's Floette will finish it off with a Moonblast. That's going to be a 2-0 win for Dawe C in this round number 5.
That Ceruledge was so impressive, even in the face of two very powerful physical attackers with super effective moves, the King Gambit and the Garchomp.
Phase 1, not 9, like I said in the lounge after our 15th round 4. And we got some fun stuff here, right? Where you're going to see Leonard showing off the Wobbuffet that he's known for his username, but his team a little bit different here. Leonard is maybe the most knowledgeable player about mechanics in the world.
Yep.
And I really love this team fit, as we'll see once we get into the team sheets themselves. Very intricate teams, kind of a lot of moving pieces. I mentioned when we were discussing the format in LA that I thought Gengar is probably the strongest Mega Evolve Pokemon in the format. But the reason why I did not select it for the team I would play is because I think it's too hard, and I don't want to deal with that. But I think Leonard is exactly the right sort of player for this team. It makes the game very chess-oriented. You really need to kind of know what you're doing. But I'm very happy to see him playing. He's exactly the sort of player I think should be on Gengar.
Absolutely, and of course showing off the Wobbuffet, which of course is the other Shadow Tag user. Way back when was the only Shadow Tag user out there. So of course Leonard should be well familiar with what this Gengar can do. So this is a combination we've seen quite a bit, the Gengar and the Alolan Ninetales. Often we've seen the Alolan Ninetales have both the Encore and Disable. Instead, that's spread across both the Gengar and the Ninetales here for Leonard, which gives him a little bit more flexibility, has the ability to have both of those offensive attacks on Gengar, and the ability to set the Aurora Veil on the Alolan Ninetales.
Yeah, I think it's a really powerful this way where, we've kind of always seen that combination, like on Whimsicott in particular. I think having on the same Pokemon, it's a bit of a meme where, like, yeah, you might hit it, but, like, especially an open team sheet, you really have to be better than your opponent to get away with that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Or the game has to kind of be over. Anyway, I think this is a lot trickier where there's a lot of times, one of Gengar and Ninetales will be on the field, they'll use their half of the move, the other Pokemon will switch in. It's like, oh, wait, I'm suddenly in deep trouble. And I think it's just really fun to watch. Again, kind of requires you to be the sort of player who's, like, good at seeing the opportunities for that and, like, setting your opponent up for that sort of situation. I think it's a lot of fun supporting them. There's 2 Pokemon with Fake Out on this team, which I think is pretty cool. Both help enable that, and then maybe to help enable something like the Aurora Veil for the Ninetales, get that off a little bit more cleanly. And then we shouldn't ignore this Samurott here. I think it's pretty interesting. One of those Pokemon that kind of has showed up in ranked battles a little bit, but has not really appeared on, like, a successful tournament team too much. So I think it'll be a lot of fun to watch. Holding the Choice Scarf critically does not have its trademark move of Ceaseless Edge, which is one of the reasons trainers normally use it. I think instead Leonard opting for it for its unique typing and attack coverage. So, and also that the flip turn, which will maybe allow it to do some more shenanigans with that Shadow Tag from Gengar. So it's going to be important on Leonard's side probably to Mega Evolve early so that bringing in the Shadow Tag, it's immediately active rather than getting a regular Gengar in that isn't trapping you yet.
And you see also the sort of other side of Basculegion counters, which is primarily what you are using the Samurott for, is to resist both of the attacks from Basculegion. Same thing can be said of the Hydreigon on Brendan's side, which is, of course, a sand team here that we saw piloted early on in the format with a few different changes to this team by Joseph Ugarte. With this Tyranitar, the Mimikyu in particular is kind of the hallmark of that team. But the Tyranitar and Excadrill here being the core offensive pressure from Brendan's team.
Yeah, I think it's a lot of fun. I think like probably most of us tried this team out just because it's was so early format when everybody was looking for a team. It's a little bit different. The Hydreigon in particular is built differently than things were back then, but it's a very powerful team, right? It's got pretty effective speed control with the Tailwind on Corviknight. Mimikyu is just sort of a difficult matchup Pokemon where it never really caught in any popular team except for this one, but because it effectively has an invisible Focus Sash that critically isn't broken by stuff like Tyranitar's Sand, I think it's a very effective Pokemon. And then tons of hate for Basculegion, right? Kind of proving to be the most important Pokemon in the format, but not really even just the Hydreigon, but Tyranitar and Rotom both making it very difficult for it to switch in. So a lot of great hate here. I think both these guys or trainers have very fun teams, so excited for this one.
Yeah, let's hop right into it. 2 of Brendan's Pokemon that are very unique to the team in the Corviknight and Mimikyu being the leads here. Corviknight will instantly catch that Incineroar with the Intimidate bouncing back off the Mirror Armor, while Gengar will be led by Leonard. to be able to instantly set up the Mega Evolution like you mentioned and continue to try and pivot around to find a trap here against one of Brendan's Pokemon.
Yeah, I'm assuming this is probably the lead Brendan was expecting, where it's not too bad here, where the Intimidate getting reflected onto Incineroar like feels like a bad thing, but and this is like at least a sort of offensively oriented Incineroar. It does have a couple of attacks, but like it doesn't really matter, right? This is a pivoting Pokemon on this sort of team that's likely going to lead battle pretty quickly anyway. It is a situation where like Gengar isn't like in a super great position where you don't want to ignore this Corviknight for too long and let it just like bulk up. So excited to see how quickly Leonard chooses to play this one.
Well, going to immediately Mega Evolve the Gengar and protect it, so making sure to lock in the Corviknight. Of course, because Mimikyu is a Ghost-type Pokemon, it will still be able to switch out despite the Shadow Tag being up. Brendan will just go ahead and go for a bulk up here onto the Corviknight to start getting those stat boosts. But Incineroar switching out with the Parting Shot, dropping Mimikyu's attack one more stage, now at -2, and switching in another Pokemon. Now, Corviknight just showed a bulk up here. Actually, just going to be the Samurott. If Ninetales had been here, may have been a good call to bring that Pokemon in, but without coming in, may not have brought Ninetales this time around.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing. Normally you think, oh, it's a weather matchup. Like I have to bring my weather Pokemon. I don't think you do here at all. Where it's like nice to have the option of resetting the weather from the Sand team, but like Ninetales really doesn't want to fight those Pokemon anyway, where it's very weak to most of the core Sand Pokemon. So I think fairly likely it's not here. Instead, we do see Samurott joining the battle, and I really feel like both trainers are probably expecting each other to do exactly what they did the previous turn. So we'll have to see whose game plan is better. Is probably neither side is surprised.
Okay, well, Samurott was just happy to be there for a moment, switch back out with the flip turn, deal a little bit of chip to the Corviknight. Honestly, not insignificant damage after a bulk up. Does have the option to bring in the Incineroar here again to drop the attack of the Mimikyu one more stage and protect the Gengar a little bit more. That is going to be what Leonard does here. Brings in the Incineroar, drops the attack on the Mimikyu one more stage, now at -3 attack. So even super effective damage is not going to be dealing a whole lot to Gengar. You know what is going to deal a whole lot? A Shadow Ball into Corviknight. Brings it down under half while the play rough. Negligible damage onto the Incineroar there.
Yeah, maybe emphasis on the play a little bit less rough there, where it does its best, but not ideal. However, you kind of widen the same spot where I think it's a big tailwind there for Brendan, who now has the option of roosting instead of just being pinned here. This Corviknight does not know Protect, so would have been in a very bad position otherwise, but and then you still have a sort of interesting spot. We're like, well, I mean, you could get Roost disabled. I guess it doesn't really matter, but we'll have to see what he opts to go for. And then the Mimikyu's going to need to leave battle here with 2 Intimidates. It's just doing nothing.
Yeah, 2 Intimidates, a Parting Shot, and you get the opportunity to bring in the Tyranitar here. One of the safest switch-ins into the Gengar. Fake out onto Corviknight means that it will not be able to roost, so instead, going to focus down that Pokemon with another Shadow Ball, the Fake Out, plus the Shadow Ball, even with the leftovers recovery, is able to hold on just a little bit there and reflect back a special defense drop.
Yeah, I mean, not normal what you think of Mirror Armor doing. Probably not going to matter too much. Oh, actually matters a lot, I guess. Where,
yeah.
Otherwise it would prevent the roost, but it's not like Leonard was using Shadow Ball trying to get his Spadef drop anyway. So now Corviknight going to be in a position where it has the option of roosting, and it's a little bit more threatening this time too, right? A little harder to just start focusing down the slot when Tyranitar has now entered battle. That is the Mega Evolving Pokemon on Brendan's side of the field, threatening a ton of damage to both these Pokemon. Incineroar doesn't have like a Will-O-Wisp or anything also to keep in mind, so Tyranitar not feeling very threatened by either of these Pokemon, and Gengar is going to have to flee.
Yep, Gengar is able to retreat. It is not Shadow Tagged in, instead tagging out for Sneasler now out on the field, instantly threatening fighting type damage into Tyranitar. Brendan is going to go ahead and Mega Evolve, getting that stat boost onto that Pokemon. Corviknight forced to roost here because of all the damage that it took from Gengar, allowing the Sneasler to get in relatively safe. Rock Slide deals a lot of damage to Incineroar, and if it can get a flinch on Incineroar, that puts Brendan in a really strong position. Otherwise, Incineroar may just be able to pivot, pivot, pivot.
Oh, and it does flinch. So yeah, that is a huge flinch.
Leonard.
The caster curse power is in full display there. Yeah, I mean, it's a big flinch, and I think it really puts Brendan in a nice spot. I think one thing for his side of the field, Corviknight feels like the sweeping threat right now because it has one bulk up, but it's easy to imagine a situation like we saw before where it gets pinned. I think what really matters is getting rid of the Sneasler, actually. I think kind of the answer to like, oh, well, why is it Ninetales here? Oh, because Sneasler is necessary to check this Tyranitar, who otherwise kind of runs over this team. So Samurott threatening a lot of damage, but that kind of becomes like one last option where getting rid of Sneasler and Samurott means Tyranitar wins, and Sneasler's kind of in a tough spot now where Corviknight trading itself for it would allow the other Pokemon to be able to only have to focus down that Samurott in order to win, get a lot of Pokemon who can't protect here. Fake Out going to keep Sneasler safe for now.
Yep, Sneasler is safe from Corviknight this turn at least. Corviknight will flinch, and another Rock Slide from Tyranitar. This time doesn't even have to hope for a flinch, instead just picks up the KO onto Incineroar. And Incineroar, you know, the stocks, I'm still willing to buy Incineroar stocks, but Brendan making short work of that Pokemon here as Corviknight shrugs off that Fake Out damage with that leftovers.
Yeah, Tailwind critically expiring here, so I don't know. I think it's probably pretty close on whether Corviknight is being threatened with a knockout if you want to try to go to a double in that slot with a Shadow Ball from Gengar in a close combat. Certainly missing that would probably be throwing the game, so I mean, Lennon, the sort of player, probably knows either way. Also be a little cheeky just to ignore that Tyranitar here, but you know, that's the fun of turns like this one. Like, oh, well, you know, my Mega's exposed. Are you actually going to go for it? I would guess no, so I think maybe I play a little risky, and yeah, no Protect for the Tyranitar.
Ooh, no Protect from Tyranitar. Another Shadow Ball into Corviknight does good damage. Here comes the close combat. It does have a bulk up. Can it survive the close combat? It cannot. Corviknight will go down here. That means that this Tyranitar now gets to swing onto both of these Pokemon. Sneasler's White Herb now activating the Unburden ability, giving it a huge boost to its speed. And the knockoff, not quite enough to pick up the KO onto Gengar, but there is still the sand on the field. And with that extra little chip damage, the Mega Pokemon goes down for Leonard.
That's a really interesting trade. So both sides losing sort of an important piece, a very important piece there. The Mega Evolved Pokemon on one side, the bulk up from that Corviknight going to waste, sort of, although really doing a great job of kind of the visible follow me there, protecting Tyranitar. However, we do see Samurott entering the field, and yeah, he's going to be in a tricky position now where you got to commit to a move. This is a Choice Scarf Samurott, but there are some pretty good options. You know, he does have the Sacred Sword, which would be devastating. Both these Pokemon could go for a water type attack. Critically, we know that final Pokemon on Brendan's side of the field is the Mimikyu, so you maybe don't want to lock into a fighting type move with only a weakened Sneasler next. They're probably going to be forced to go for a water type move instead.
Yep, there is the retreat from the Tyranitar, preserving that Pokemon so that Excadrill can benefit from the sand later on. Mimikyu now out on the field. Sneasler's Rock Tomb will connect into the Protect, trying to lower the speed of that Excadrill, trying to break the Focus Sash, lower the speed, and pick up a KO, and instead gets none of it.
Yeah, you see what he's going for there, right? It's like almost a great play where, like, oh, you know, this is a Sand Rush Excadrill. It's so safe. It's got Focus Sash, but yeah, it would have broken the Sash had Rock Tomb connected and then made it slower than the Choice Scarf Samurott, which would have picked up a knockout before it moves. Instead, Brendan doesn't make a job. He calls the play. He gets Tyranitar out, which also matters because it's going to be able to reactivate that Sand Rush later, assuming Excadrill doesn't fall to that same combination of attacks, because now that that slot is committed, it's Protect. It is still in a lot of danger here, but you know, that Mimikyu that we were kind of making fun of earlier, suddenly looking like it's in a really good spot where I don't think either of these Pokemon can do very well with a play rough, and there's no Incineroar left to intimidate it.
Yeah, absolutely, and even a Shadow Sneak coming out from that Mimikyu may be able to deal enough damage to the Sneasler. Let's find out. Right from behind, Sneasler goes down to the Shadow Sneak. That Pokemon is now off the field. Mimikyu picking up that KO. Samurott forced to go for the Aqua Cutter, connects onto Mimikyu, but it's just going to bust the Disguise on Mimikyu, leaving that Pokemon vulnerable, taking a little bit of damage because of it, but this Earthquake coming out from Excadrill will deal plenty of damage, and with only single target attacks, Samurott just does not have the power here to clean this up.
Yeah, I don't think there's any way this is going to go Leonard's way. It's a really impressive game by Brendan, who always just kind of seemed like he was in control of this one. And then a whole lot going on Leonard's way. Like I mentioned, the very first turn that came, giving a bulk up for nothing is terrible, but there's just not really a whole lot Leonard could have done about it. You know, just like going for a blind Shadow Ball that turn would have been very risky.
Well, Mimikyu will just protect itself this turn while Samurott gets an Aqua Cutter off onto the Excadrill. So actually dealing a good amount of damage back, but again, single target attacks. That means that Brendan gets to swing with the Excadrill, the Mimikyu, and or the Tyranitar multiple times. So Leonard will go down here. Brendan will take game one, and Leonard's going to have to make something happen here in game two. That plan does not work.
Yeah, exactly. You know, I love Leonard and the way he looks at the game. He got flowcharted there a little bit, right? Where it just seems like Brendan got exactly the lead he was expecting the other side of the field. Leonard kind of was in a position the first couple turns of the game where like he really didn't have any choices. Like he could only really do safely what he did the first turn. He could only really do safely what he did the second turn. And then by the third turn, the game kind of felt over where there just wasn't a whole lot of options for him to get back in. I think team preview is going to be the key here, right? There's a lot of dangerous Pokemon on Brendan's side of the field for Gengar here. And it's going to be a difficult matchup for Leonard because of that. I got to assume you lose the stand versus Gengar or Ninetales matchup at a pretty high percentage of the time. But hey, he's a smart player. If anyone's going to figure a way through this one, it's him.
Yeah, absolutely. A couple of big survivals here. The Corviknight just barely hanging on to that Shadow Ball, allowing it to get back up and roost and continue to be a presence on the field, drawing aggro, drawing attention for a number of turns, weakening everything up for this Mimikyu to be able to pick off the Sneasler with Shadow Sneak. And then, yeah, Brendan was just way too far ahead in game one. Nothing Leonard could do there. So gonna have to go back to the drawing board here in team preview, pick out a new selection of 4 Pokemon that matches up much better into that lead. So let's take a look, see what the Beedrill Professor has in store for us now.
I'm impressed. That's 100 wins with
Beedrill.
Yeah. I don't think I've seen Beedrill play 10 games. Anyway, we have Samurott and Gengar facing out this time. So same lead, I think unsurprisingly on Brendan's side of the field where, yeah, show me you can beat this. And there's definitely more options this time. I don't know what Shadow Ball does to Mimikyu. I assume that's very easily a knockout if there's like a double target in that slot. I think because of that, the double is a little bit obvious where I think Brendan did a pretty good job of calling that. I think in one decisive turn in game one where just attacked with the Tyranitar knowing that Sneasler wasn't actually going to go for it. Here, I think it's a little bit more of a read. You know, this time there's no bulk up on the Corviknight, but maybe you just protect to try to get the freebie.
Yeah, there's also the option for, Samurott has the ability to critical hit through those bulk ups too if it needs to, but here comes the Mega Evolution from Gengar. Brendan will protect the Mimikyu here. Of course, Corviknight does not have Protect available. Samurott went for the flip turn, trying to bust the disguise to open it up for the Gengar. And just like in game one, Leonard goes for a big double target and gets punished. A free Tailwind from the Corviknight.
Yeah, I guess fortunately for Brendan, or fortunately for Leonard, Brendan was reading the turn just like we were. Like, oh, I probably shouldn't just give up my Mimikyu for nothing after it wound up being the MVP of that previous game. And he's in a very interesting spot now where not only you get the Tailwind completely for free, the Mimikyu is no longer pinned, where you'd assume now that the 2 Pokemon on Brendan's side of the field are quicker if you could go for a double, and because of that, Samurott has to escape here. But we see a mix-up where this time there is the Ninetales, although fortunately having to enter battle before Tyranitar, so not exactly controlling the weather.
Yeah, not just before Tyranitar, but also without the ability to find like a bulk up or something to catch in the trap. Instead, just going to take a Play Rough and the Brave Bird from both the Mimikyu and Corviknight. Does survive, but that just means that Mimikyu gets to break the disguise and gets poisoned here from the Sludge Bomb.
You know, if this becomes a slower paced match, the poison's not so bad. You know, especially with Sand
great.
Eventually, probably later playing out. I think in the real world, this makes a big difference. However, for now, not such a great spot for Ninetales. It takes those attacks pretty nicely, though. It's got to be like right at the point where you're concerned about whether it can take a Shadow Sneak or not, just like in the previous game. However, a critical difference is now at least Gengar is threatening a knockout into that slot, and while I think a double the other direction probably knocks out Gengar too, you're now in that position where, okay, well, we both have danger being threatened in either direction, so there's some level of read to be made where previously Leonard is kind of just pinned.
Yeah, well, with the Gengar and the Ninetales out on the field, these are 2 Pokemon that can start stalling out some of these Tailwind turns, but Ninetales will just retreat for the Samurott, trying to waste some of these turns by hoping to catch a Shadow Sneak that's not very effective into that Pokemon. Instead, Gengar takes a Shadow Claw from the Mimikyu, and Corviknight, firing off a Brave Bird, catches the Samurott on the switch-in. So Ninetales switches out, survives. Gengar survives that turn. Not with a lot of health, but does survive. Fires off another Shadow Ball into the Corviknight. Now, Tailwind is about to expire. I believe there's one more turn remaining. But this Gengar is still well within Shadow Sneak KO range.
Yeah, I mean, I am starting to get real concerned for Leonard here, where Brendan's played an excellent set so far, and that's a lot of damage on the board. There's a bunch of weekend Pokemon. We've already seen the Shadow Sneak for the Mimikyu currently pinning the Gengar, but even beyond, actually both Pokemon probably pinned. And then even beyond that, you assume Tyranitar's in the back. The sand damage alone is pretty scary. Gengar forced to protect here, and we'll have to see if Leonard can make a read to try to get himself out of his difficult position.
Ooh, actually, it's Brendan going for the Play Rough onto Samurott. Realizes that there's no way Leonard's going to give me Gengar here. Let me just go ahead and take out the Pokemon that can't protect. So getting that Pokemon off the field, probably a double up, honestly, just to cover for the play rough 5% miss chance. And that means that Brendan has taken down a big Pokemon threat. Now, Tailwind is over, but once again, the Shadow Sneak from this Mimikyu is just pinning Leonard's Gengar.
Yeah, it's really awkward too, because I think you'd love to bring in Ninetales here to help try to deal with this problem. You kind of can't, because it would also be getting checked by the Shadow Sneak, especially with the ability to turn the snow off by switching Tyranitar in. So Sneasler going to have to come in instead. These are not the Pokemon that Sneasler is on the team to fight, where, maybe it gets Corviknight here, but I think it's probably going to be just short, and then just matches up really poorly with this Mimikyu, right? I mean, I guess you could try to Dire Claw it and maybe go for the Shadow Ball into, but yeah, it wouldn't be enough, so trying to protect instead, and Leonard's not going to get it.
Yep, had to go for the double protect, does not get it. Instead, the Shadow Sneak will pick up the KO. This Mimikyu has proven its worth on this team, just dismantling Leonard's Pokemon. There's the close combat from Sneasler onto Corviknight. Actually does pick up the KO, so no Tailwind goes up. That means that it will be Sneasler and this Ninetales against the world here. Sneasler getting that white herb boost is also a really big deal here, as it will allow it to at least match pace with the Excadrill in Sand.
Yeah, I think the trick is going to be how you break that Focus Sash. Because, now it's kind of a similar situation at best as last game. The Ninetales going to come in first, match the Excadrill there. I'm probably anticipating that, like last game, Brendan's kind of trying to prioritize speed control, so leaving the weather control, rather. But I guess speed control, too.
Same thing.
Sand Rush on Excadrill. But, however, it's the reverse switch is kind of spooky, where at least Sneasler now is sort of pinning the Excadrill slot. Like, are you really going to switch Tyranitar in there to try to get the weather and risk getting close combated? But like the answer to that might be maybe.
Yeah.
Where
Why not?
Like okay, well, that's gonna happen. I'm gonna Shadow Sneak your Ninetales, and then I still win from there. So I'm curious what Leonard's move is going to be to try to prevent that. Mimikyu's gonna switch out instead. So we'll see Tyranitar coming in to try to win the Weather War, but not risking the slot that's likely to eat a close combat.
Yep, that's going to be the Tyranitar on the switch in. Excadrill tanks that close combat, brings it down to Focus Sash as expected. So Excadrill now at 1 hit point, but in the sand where it loves to be. Sneasler takes those drops, does not have a white herb anymore, and I love it. Earthquake every Pokemon on the field, pick up KOs on both the Ninetales and the Sneasler. Who cares that you just did over 50% to Tyranitar? You just won the game.
Yeah, easy clap, right? Where it doesn't matter. I think even if you crit Tyranitar, it probably just barely survives. And
and you still won the game.
Yeah, literally win the game, as you see the forfeit there. And yeah, would have wound up in another 3v1 situation. It's a really well-played set by Brendan, right? Where I'm not quite sure what Leonard's supposed to do with that matchup, or possibly, but maybe it's not what I'm thinking. Anyway, let's read about the matchup we've got in front of us. Should be a lot of fun here with, and perhaps we just the folks backstage like, you know what, these guys are old. We need trainers that they will recognize. They have given us Alberto and Talon, 2 trainers who have been excellent for a very long time. Should be super fun here. I see on one side of the field here with Alberto. Honestly, if you watched him play at any point in the Scarlet and Violet era, not that much has changed. He just has, I guess some new guys alongside the usual tricks.
Floette wasn't there originally, Gengar wasn't there originally, but the rest of these, the other 4, have been around for a while for Alberto. Basculegion, in and out, but the core is there. Corviknight, Scarf Garchomp, and Tyranitar, the Alberto Lara special there.
Yeah, nothing else said. I love it when trainers pick Pokemon that kind of they're familiar with, that they can play optimally. There is no question that he's going to be very comfortable with the Pokemon at his time.
Yeah, but also Colin with the Sneasler, Frostlass, Garchomp, Palafin, Kingambit, and Dragonite. Should be a really exciting matchup there. We're going to talk plenty more about Colin's team coming up. But here's Alberto's team. Again, that core of Tyranitar, Corviknight, and the Choice Scarf Garchomp, which he has always believed in, alongside the Megas, Floette, and the Tyranitar. This is a rare Focus Sash Gengar here. Yeah,
normally see that Mega Evolved Gengar, but going a little bit different direction with 2 different Mega Evolving Pokemon available on this team, with the Tyranitar, who I assume is a little bit more of a reflection. You can bring it with or without the Mega, and then the Floette, who is definitely going to be using that Mega Stone to the fullest if it's entering the battle. A lot of fun here, too, where we often kind of hone in like, oh, these teams are similar looking, but they're different. We really mean it in this case, where it does not look all that similar to the Sand team we saw in the previous round from Brendan, where, we're seeing the Tyranitar, really just the Tyranitar, I guess, where Excadrill has been replaced by the Garchomp, which I think is unconventional on the Sand teams, but we do see a lot of in this format in general. A Choice Scarf Garchomp's actually quite a big thing. We've not seen so much of it on stream as I think is just out in the field. And then Corviknight, once again, is I guess the one piece that's like really the same. Then yeah, we get the Float, kind of what we're used to seeing, the very unusual Gengar, where I think trainers are no longer used to this. We have seen it in the past. I think actually the first time Mega Evolution rolled around, where I think it's like Marcus Statner and that sort of crew was running a sort of Pokemon where it never made any sense to me. It seems like a Pokemon that only Germans could use well, but we'll have to see if Alberto has perhaps traveled and learned the ways.
Yes, sprechen Sie Deutsch for the Gengar here on Alberto's side. And this is one of the fastest Icy Wind users in the format, so it makes a lot of sense if you can dodge King Gambit, which is going to be very important for Alberto. Can't just spam those Icy Winds because King Gambit is on Colin's team over here. Going for the 3 attacks, the double Dark types and the Iron Head for the better matchup into Fairies, but it's all about the Palafin on this team. Palafin, the hero of regulations A and B, regulated back to a 0 for the rest of Scarlet and Violet, is showing up undefeated here in our first Champions Regional.
There you go, fittingly. It's like, hey, I heard we're doing a new whole generation thing, so it's my time for just a while. I think it's really underplayed. I think it's been very powerful. I've not played the bulk up version of this, but I have played it a little bit alongside College Hood. I was like pretty shocked with Rain how much damage it did, where it was very frequently scoring knockouts for me. I was not expecting it to get. And bulk up is effectively the same boost as Rain, right? But this Pokemon is going to be capable of getting multiple boost with its own bulk up or help from this coaching Sneasler, which we don't see too frequently, but I think is super fun. We're also very excited by its nickname, which for any fans of Survivor, there's a coach in that as well, and we're
and there is a dragon to slay on the other side, and Palafin here to support.
Yeah, with the double battles at VGC, hopefully it can survive the double duos twist this time around. Should be a lot of fun. This Aurora Veil, I think, also going to be very impactful. A bunch of Pokemon on Colin's side of the field are difficult to knock out. And another team that I suspect is doing very well in those Charizard matchups.
All right, and here we go. It is Palafin and Sneasler. The Tidewalker combo is led from Colin up against the Tyranitar and the Corviknight for Alberto, one of his comfort leads.
Yeah, although, because we were talking about in the lens about the last round, Corviknight excels in these situations where it's not being threatened with a knockout. And you'd assume a close combat in a wave crash from this much smaller, cuter Palafin probably not quite going to be enough. Tyranitar feeling very threatened, perhaps, alongside it, but do you really try to go for it in this situation where a Protect or a Switch seems so clear and a Brave Bird's being threatened on that Sneasler?
Yeah, the hard part of Palafin here is this would be great if Palafin were already in hero form. It'd be a great turn to just go for a coaching and get some big damage out from the Palafin, but because Palafin has to switch out to activate the hero form, Colin is forced to switch it out. It is not exerting enough offensive pressure here, and instead, Garchomp out on the field for Colin. Alberto going to match the switch, switching out the Tyranitar on his side for the Basculegion. And there is the coaching. +1 to attack, +1 to defense. These are boosts. Garchomp can pick up KOs, survive a Brave Bird or a Body Press. Easy, deals more damage back with the Rough Skin.
Wow, that's a heck of a play there by Colin. Perhaps on Alberto's side of the field, maybe fishing for King Gambit, instead catching the wrong Pokemon to switch. Maybe doesn't correctly anticipate a coaching there. Although I guess probably if you're expecting coaching this line, maybe you just go for an attack onto the Sneasler instead. But a really good looking play for Colin there, where gets the Palafin out safely, gets this buff onto the Garchomp, and now facing down 2 physical attacking Pokemon, and not really being all that threatened either, where you can start trading if you're Alberto. But do you want to just start swinging away with this Garchomp already being boosted?
Yeah, honestly, kind of the dream here for Colin. Now has the real offensive threat capable of taking these coachings from Sneasler, and the Basculegion will be able to deal damage with Wave Crash, but it is not powered up at that last respects just yet. No Pokemon have gone down. Just protecting itself once more means a second coaching is applied to the Dragon-type Garchomp. Dragon Claw into the Protect means that Alberto has at least avoided damage and gets the Tailwind set up this time. That's 2 defense boosts on that Garchomp now.
Yeah, I mean, the speed control is great and all, but it doesn't really matter who goes first if you can't knock out your opponents. The positive thing for Alberto here is he likely does have that flow at the back. At least I'd hope so. Otherwise, things are looking pretty bleak.
Yeah.
I guess maybe you hope Icy Wind does a lot if Gengar is there for some reason, though you'd assume not in this situation with the awkwardness of Tyranitar potentially breaking your own Focus Sash, which is kind of information for Colin as well, right? Where surely he has not selected this combination of Pokemon. Going to get the Sneasler out of the field here, but boy, things are looking fantastic for Colin early in this match.
Yeah, Palafin in for the Sneasler. Sneasler will be protected from any additional damage to allow for more fake outs, more coachings later. And that is an adaptability, Mystic Water boosted Wave Crash, not even doing half damage to the Garchomp. Takes a lot of damage back on the recoil as well. Brave Bird deals a decent amount of damage into Palafin, but because it does not have any of those defense boosts yet. But this Dragon Claw, oh man. Garchomp's angry. Garchomp is ready to pick up some KOs.
Yeah, easily picking up the knockout. I think what is widely considered to be the strongest Pokemon this format, and kind of just makes it look useless the whole way through there, right? Where it doesn't get too much done, does burn a turn of Tailwind without it mattering too much. And at this point, even if that Pokemon is Floette and it comes in here, seeming viable-ish for Colin to be able to stall that out without having to switch the Garchomp out. A really important decision here for Alberto, where he's really on the back foot, and I think if he doesn't kind of immediately take control of the match the next turner, so we should start talking about game 2 instead of this one.
The one benefit that Alberto has, if Floette is in the back, is having that Tailwind, like you mentioned, meaning that this Floette would be able to pick up a KO onto the Garchomp, but with Tyranitar coming out here, that's a bad sign for Alberto's hopes here. This is, again, 2 physical attacking Pokemon against a Garchomp that has +2/+2 in attack and defense, and a Palafin that can get its own buffs to its defense.
Yeah, I'm surprised to see Tyranitar coming in. It can only super feasibly be Garchomp or Floette in the back. Maybe it's Garchomp instead, which would be pretty disastrous here. Yeah, things are looking bleak. I mean, that coaching early on was so great, and I think also with looking too, that Caesar was hanging out with Corviknight on the field for an awful long time, got out at just the right time, and we'll have to see what Alberto goes for here, but the Protect is not exactly taking control of the game with his own Tailwind.
Yeah, at least gets the Protect out of the Palafin as well, but that's just actually going to be a whiffed Brave Bird into the Palafin as Earthquake comes out from Garchomp. Would have dealt big damage to both of these Pokemon, but instead, just a wasted turn. Again, another turn of Tailwind. The advantage that Alberto has in this game right now has been wasted. Yeah,
this Tailwind not doing a whole lot, where so far it's been totally irrelevant. There's only a single turn of it left, and I guess it could matter of his turn for allowing Tyranitar in particular to attack before these Pokemon, where Corviknight's a little bit safer, but great. Do you really want to do that? Where, I guess Tyranitar is going to have to do something before he gets caught with Sneasler again in the end game, but it's just hard to see a path for Alberto here. I think that Tailwind seemed like it was going to be the opportunity, and it's just not doing much for him.
Yeah, the Tyranitar is just not exerting a lot of pressure here. There is the opportunity to take out this Palafin with the double up from the Tyranitar and the Corviknight, but in doing so, you're just leaving this +2/+2 Garchomp on the field, and unless that Floette is in the back, unless that Gengar is in the back, it's looking unchallenged.
Yeah, I just... I don't see the pattern. We see that the Mega Evolution, so the answer to why Floette didn't come in is because Floette wasn't here, as we might have thought. But I don't know if Mega Evolution is going to be enough to pick this Garchomp up, and it looks hungry.
And the Jet Punch from Palafin does a surprising amount of damage, more than 50% onto Tyranitar. Of course, it is a stronger version of Aqua Jet. The knockoff does good damage to the Garchomp through the 2 defense boosts, knocks off the Citrus Berry, crucially, would have been a bad situation for Alberto for sure if that Citrus Berry had been able to activate, but Palafin's able to hang on after the Brave Bird because it was not double targeted, and Tyranitar knocks off the Citrus Berry and goes down for its troubles.
Yeah, I mean, the Citrus Berry knockoff is a somewhat big deal. I guess as big of a big deal as it can be in a situation where it's a 4-2 and you have 2 coaching boosts on Garchomp. But I think with that healing, it's over, no matter what's in the back. We'll have to see what it is here. Okay, so it is the Garchomp. That's kind of thinking, okay, it doesn't make any sense really to bring Garchomp in and Tailwind when you already have a speed advantage that you don't need. Garchomp will be the quickest Pokemon on the field, and I guess probably threatening a knockout at either of these Pokemon, even with the coaching boost, but there's a lot of ground to make up still, but maybe this is the way to do it.
Yeah, and I'm sorry, Alberto, love you to death. Bringing the dragon in front of this Sneasler is not, you're just asking to get slayed at that point.
Yeah, I mean, might not have to wait for a tribal council this time, but yeah, it's not over there. Interesting to see what Garchomp's going to choose to lock into. Rock Slide is sort of an option, although you can't Rock Slide flinch
forever.
Yeah, or Palafin if it opts to go for a jet punch to get around that. And so we're going to see the Earthquake immediately trying to dish out some damage to both these Pokemon. I assume Garchomp, survives this pretty comfortably.
Yep, survived with 13 hit points. The Dragon Claw right back. Will be a trade of both dragons slayed here after the rough skin damage, but that is all Colin needs. Oh, actually it does not, because that's is able to hang on here, because that's Sand Veil on Alberto's Garchomp, not the rough skin. My apologies, as Palafin just gets the leftovers recovery and Garchomp's still on the field.
Yeah, so this doesn't seem great. The good news is, we're moving on to game 2. That's the good news. Really dominant game by Colin there. I guess 2 elements of this. Like, that was an incredible first 2 turns by Colin.
Yeah.
Like, almost no matter what Alberto brought, I'm not certain what he was supposed to do from that point, where just masterful early game. And you see how he's become undefeated, where that is a very tricky and a much better version of, much better path of how coaching was used in this match than I've watched from other players. Conversely, on Alberta's side of the field, I'm surprised to see no special attacking there. Neither Gengar or Floette coming to battle, so just 4 physically attacking Pokemon. And when you have both bulk up and coaching on the other side of the field, there's a lot of ways for this to happen.
Yep, and this Garchomp took so many attacks. Took that Earthquake, took Brave Birds, took a knockoff from the Tyranitar, took a body press as well. It took hits, it tanked them, but thanks to that coaching boost, it was not able to go down. So definitely feel like you want to have some kind of special attacking options against this team if you are Alberto, but it's just going to be the same leads once again. Palafin and Sneasler for Colin, and Corviknight Tyranitar for Alberto.
So I'm like 100 for 100. I click close combat on Tyranitar versus turns. Like, okay, switching it up. But yeah, I think it'll be very interesting to see this run back. Obviously, on Alberta's side of the field, you don't want to just allow the snowball you did this time. I think the way you avoid that is to pressure the Sneasler a little bit more. But certainly Colin knows that too, and I think this is going to be a difficult situation to come up in. Again, we don't know what Alberto's back Pokemon are, where Corviknight is potentially threatening. Okay, well, my plan is really to Tailwind and use Floette this time, which I think is probably the best path into this game. But even if he tries that, right, where one of the reasons why I think that was probably unappealing the previous time is both that some of these Pokemon match up very well with Floette, and Palafin in particular can just ignore the Tailwind and bonk its weak defense stat anyway.
Well, just like in game 1, Palafin has switched out for the Garchomp. This time it's going to be the Garchomp switching in instead of the Tyranitar. There is a Dire Claw, deals a little bit of damage to the Garchomp, does not get the additional status proc there. Here comes the Brave Bird, connects onto Garchomp. Once again here, the Rough Skin and the recoil damage going to deal a good amount back to Corviknight. This is a much better position for Alberto, now having the Scarf Garchomp out, threatening both of these Pokemon with big damage. Yeah,
sort of a nothing trade from both sides, but I think, getting Garchomp in is a big deal here, where threatening an Earthquake is really strong here. It causes Corviknight to kind of be completely unthreatened here because the Garchomp is such a big threat, so you can take a bulk up or a Tailwind as you'd like here. Really good improvement for Colin, although now this time Palafin can come in, and perhaps we're going to see a different Pokemon be the focus of Colin's offense this time around.
Yeah, just a different option here for Colin, as the Earthquake is locked into by Alberto. That is going to be a Scarf Earthquake, so that means that Garchomp will only be able to use Earthquake until it turns out.
Oh, jeez. There's that Sand Veil you mentioned before, and while the lack of rough skin damage may have negatively impacted the first game a tiny bit, hugely impacting the second game as this Garchomp nimbly dodges the Dragon Claw from its opposing number, and suddenly Alberto's looking very good here by avoiding some crucial damage. If it probably was a knockout, but even if it wasn't, would have been nearly a knockout. Now a very healthy Garchomp still sitting there.
Yeah.
Being a problem now for Colin because the Garchomp is sort of pinned on his side of the field.
Yeah, and that is simply what happens sometimes with Sand Veil, is if you thought you had a guaranteed attack, you don't anymore. That means that another Earthquake will come out from Alberto's Garchomp. Palafin protects itself from any additional damage. Colin needs to maintain one of these sweepers here as Garchomp takes good damage from the Earthquake. The Citrus Berry keeping it up and in the fight right now, as Palafin, with that Protect, is able to avoid the Brave Bird. And this time, Colin is able to land the Dragon Claw, but not before additional damage was put down onto Colin's Garchomp.
Yeah, I think that's some critical damage too, even though the Brave Bird calls the wrong slot there, which enables Garchomp to get knocked out. The Garchomp on Colin's side of the field is still in Brave Bird range, and now a free switch where we do see the Floette. So okay, both the adjustments we're kind of expecting for Alberto, where he pressures the early game better, and then also has the Floette in the back now to help out and take advantage of this. unlike in the previous game as well. No boosts on these Pokemon this time around, so while Floette could be threatened for some damage, but Jet Punch is not going to be a one-hit KO, so Alberto looking like he's in the driver's seat of the second game.
Yeah, Alberto definitely in a much better position here in Game 2 with Floette coming in under this Tailwind. Floette's Fairy Aura will boost the power of its attacks, and Colin is forced to just go for a double protect on the Palafin. It fails. That's going to be a KO onto Garchomp with the Dazzling Gleam. Palafin only at 27 hit points. Any attack Corviknight hits except for the bulk up would be enough to pick up the KO. Oh, actually doesn't, it has Body Press, so any attack it picks will pick up the KO onto Palafin. That is a double KO on Alberto's side.
Yeah, things are looking very different from that first game. 2 big knockouts. I guess critically with the double knockout here, at least you get a double switch. So Sneasler and the final Pokemon can come in, and Sneasler can at least somewhat try to protect it with a fake out. Although, you know, I guess whatever doesn't get faked out here is in some deep trouble. So things not looking so great for Sneasler itself. But perhaps Frostlass can go for the 1v3-ish against the team that still has a Tyranitar.
Still has Tyranitar in the back that could switch in at any moment to remove the snow from Frostlass. Frostlass is forced to Mega Evolve here. There is no option remaining for Colin. We'll be able to set the snow, so the Blizzard will be active. Aurora Veil will be active unless this Tyranitar switches in. Does not happen. The Fake Out connects on to Floette. Floette flinches, is not able to attack, but Corviknight's Brave Bird will be able to connect onto the Sneasler, picks up the KO, and like you mentioned, it is 1v3 for this Frostlass, and it can't beat Tyranitar.
Yeah, so you gotta you need a lot of Blizzard hit freezes is what
in the
plan
sand.
is. Yeah.
There's our first Blizzard hit onto Floette and Corviknight, a critical hit onto Floette, in fact. That is helpful as Tailwind peters out. Blizzard landing on Floette would put that Pokemon out of commission here, but again, it's just so hard for me to see how this Frostlass, unless it can get a freeze on Tyranitar, can break that core.
Yeah, honestly, I think even with the freeze can't last long enough in Pokemon Champions for it to actually work. So I do think this is 100%, but hey, you know, why not click some Blizzards? Corviknight going to survive here, so that'll be it with the Tailwind. But you know, both players probably thinking about that third game. I think both players played very impressively in the games that they've won so far in this set, where just kind of dominant victories. And as we've seen so much so far in Regulation MA, the early game is just so important, where both these games snowballed really quickly. Yeah,
really awesome adjustments from Alberto as well to see what went wrong in that game 1. Lack of special attacking, allowing that Sneasler to just sit around and give buffs to the Garchomp, and not being able to pressure Pokemon like Palafin on the switch-in. All of that changed in Game 2. Being able to go aggressive against the Sneasler early, bringing the Floette under Tailwind, delaying the Tailwind a little bit as well to get those extra turns. Great adjustments from Alberto.
Yeah, I think that was really interesting. Right? I think Game 1, I've seen a lot of teams that look similar to Collins, but he really played it with his big boy pants on, right? Where it's just a little different coming from him than just some random person on the ladder. Conversely, I think Alberto just didn't seem to understand what Collins' game plan was going to be in that first game, and really mispicked, where once he saw what Collins going for, I was like, okay, I get his side of the field now. I'm going to make him have to do something different. And in that second game, he wasn't able to adjust. So I'll be kind of excited for this third game, where does Colin have the ability to go with something fairly different? I'm not so sure he does. I think this is actually a situation where, despite how dominant the first game is, I like Alberto here, just because I think the other two Pokemon in Colin's team are kind of hard to pick. Where, you know, especially Dragonite's not always going to be as strong into the sort of sand matchup, just because of multi-skill being able to be broken by the Sandstorm, and then a lot of Pokemon who have type advantages against it here. King Gambit, similar issues where most of the Pokemon on the other side are going to burn it down pretty quickly. So it's probably going to need to mostly be playstyle adjustments from Colin if he wants to take the third game of this set.
Yeah, well, Colin has the ability to make some adjustments here. Again, getting that coaching off onto Garchomp in Game 1 was a big deal for Garchomp being able to stick around long enough to get that second coaching and potentially come in for more damage. No coaching spent in Game 2, instead just went on the offense, even though switched in the Garchomp. Really need to get some of those buffs down onto either the Palafin or the Garchomp, especially the Palafin if you're going to threaten that Floette in Tailwind. Here we go. It's the same leads from Colin and an adjustment made for Alberto. Instead of leading the Tyranitar and being forced out turn 1 every time, going for the guard chomp immediately.
Yeah, no Sand Veil this time, unfortunately. I guess that's the one big difference. But yeah, gonna half a turn here faster. We're like, okay, well, I'm gonna knock out the Sneasler if you don't fake me out. So now it feels like it has to, which kind of removes the threat of that coaching largely. And then, because of that, what do you do with the Corviknight slot, right? Do you just go for the Tailwind here? Unfortunately, no bulk up, as you mentioned before, so you can't exploit it the way that some of the other Corviknight we've seen have. But pretty nice opening position for Alberto as he kind of continues to adjust, and maybe also thinking like what we were in between turns, like, well, it's tough for him to pick different Pokemon, so probably going to see something very similar to what I saw in Game 1 and Game 2.
And once more, as is Palafen's want, switching out this time to Frostlass. The Frostlass coming out on the field as Garchomp takes that fake out from the Sneasler. This is a big game plan adjustment from Colin to be bringing in the Frostlass here instead of the Garchomp. But protects those 2 potential physical sweepers in the back from these Tailwind turns.
Yeah, so now we wind up in a pretty interesting position. I assume if these Pokemon all stay on the field and it's just like a Brave Bird Earthquake, with help from the snow, Frostlass can probably survive it and knock out Garchomp, but going for that's a little bit risky. So there's the threat of Tyranitar coming in, although I guess no, it really isn't because you gotta wait for it to Mega Evolve first. Yeah, I mean, I kind of hate the spot for Colin actually, where it's like I don't really like any of Alberto's plays that much. And like again, Sneasler's being threatened, but it's a relatively safe switch because Frostlass is exerting so much pressure. It's pretty tough not to double it, or like maybe you switch Garchomp here, kind of not running to risk the somewhat high potential of getting blizzarded. So I don't mind it, but Sneasler's going to lead first.
Yep, Sneasler is out, does not want to provide any coachings to Frostlass. Instead, a big adjustment here, a new Pokemon shown by Colin. No more Garchomp. Instead, it's all about the King Gambit here as Frostlass Mega Evolves. Mega Frostlass on the field. The snow warning will set the snow on the field, activating the ability to go for Aurora Veil and 100% accurate blizzards. There's the Earthquake, deals really good damage to both of those Pokemon. A critical hit on the Frostlass. That gets spooky here as Corviknight's Brave Bird now coming down onto the Frostlass as well is not enough to pick up the KO. 8 hit points. Frostlass holds on after the critical hit. With this Blizzard, KO onto Garchomp, big damage onto Corviknight.
That is massive. I think this game is super over without that.
That was before the freeze.
Turns the other way. The freeze on the Corviknight. And hey, these matches are closer than ever. Looked like it was all over for Colin, but that Frostlass wants to stay undefeated. Hangs on at low HP, picks up a knockout, picks up a freeze, and suddenly things are looking like Colin might be the one with the advantage.
Yeah, the Corviknight on Alberto's side, being like, you might wonder how I got into this position here. Frozen, still on, hanging in air.
Unclear how that's occurring, but
there really is still the Tailwind up for Alberto.
That's how, yeah, it's keeping it up,
Obviously, it's an updraft.
Yeah, but critically in the context of the actual battle here, where Float will be the quickest Pokemon in the field because of the Tailwind, but still, a precarious position, especially if this Corviknight isn't able to unthaw. There's a 25% chance now, so reasonably likely, but not probable.
Not probable. Floette will have to go ahead and Mega Evolve here to get that offensive pressure down. King Gambit protecting. Because of the damage it took on the Earthquake, cannot stand up to some of these attacks from Floette. Dazzling Gleam here into the Protect, now connecting onto the Frostlass. That will clean up the remaining hit points from that Pokemon. And now Frostlass retreats to the Pokeball. Corviknight still frozen here. Frostlass did its job.
It's probably going to turn out that the freeze actually doesn't matter that much. It's a lot of fun, of course, to enjoy here, but it can only be frozen for a couple more turns anyway, and that action wasn't going to matter regardless, but it could matter for this turn here, where still has potentially one more turn of freeze to burn, and Sneasler out in the field, while it's not maybe your ideal matchup into these Pokemon, threatening a fake out and other slide, and I think more critically trying to get back to the point where this Tailwind expires and Sneasler's able to actually use its speed. So I think most likely a fake out on the Floette, obviously, just kind of banking on this Corviknight thawing or not. So it could be a very important freeze roll on this upcoming turn.
The other option here is to expect a defensive play from Floette. Retreat your King Gambit for a coaching onto Palafin. Then you're in a good place.
Yeah, I think that's probably the best play here too, where I don't know if you get that much out of a turn otherwise. So I'm curious if you go for it. But no, it'll be the fake out, playing it safe here, but King Gambit going to get a hold of somebody.
Yeah, King Gambit now has the opportunity to go on the offensive because Corviknight is still frozen. There's the Iron Head coming out, connects onto Tyranitar on the switch, and that Pokemon goes down. A critical hit. Colin's Pokemon want this 7-0.
Yeah, what a crazy set here. By a bunch of wild plays back and forth. Tailwind expiring. King Gambit still going to be the slowest Pokemon on the field, but now this Sneasler is the fastest. And well, this is sort of an interesting situation in itself where I believe the Corviknight has to thaw here. Are we?
It's either this turn or next turn.
Yeah, well, I
can't recall.
Yeah. It's a shame because that's critical, but hey, we'll find out together, everyone. Conversely, the Float, the obvious play here is to go for a protect, so while you real bowl to try Dazzling Gleam anyway, it could be a difficult move to make in this position, but it's been truly a bizarre set so far.
Well, it's all going to come down to this remaining turn. The Corviknight still frozen in the air alongside the Floette. If it can unfreeze, if it unfreezes this turn, can fire off either a Brave Bird into the Sneasler or a Body Press into the King Gambit.
Yeah, I believe this is the third turn, right? So yeah, it has to thaw. But hopefully both traders remember, although we've had some adventures with that so far this weekend.
Well, there is King Gambit retreating here off of the field. Palafin coming out now, so this turn, Palafin is now out on the field and capable of taking a coaching from the Sneasler. Instead, the Dire Claw Floette, no protect. Colin calls Alberto out, knocks out the Floette. This Corviknight is now all alone, even with the thaw. The Tailwind able to make this the fastest Pokemon on the field to do nothing. Really well played there from Alberto, really well played from Colin as well. Just ultimately ended up, just Colin was able to get a couple of good rolls and maintain a lot of advantage, capitalize on each one of those that he got.
Yeah, I mean, it almost went the other way there, where I think that Frostlass is trained just slightly differently. It goes down to the critical hit, and we've already sent two of the interviews. So really impressive right here. The coaching going to make this Palafin even more devastating, but I don't know if it's going to matter too much.
Brave Bird from Corviknight. That's going to be able to KO this Sneasler, but it's just going to have to take an attack from this now +1/+1 Palafin, and King Gambit still in the back. No real options here for Corviknight. It can stick around on the field here. It can eat its Citrus Berry, put a second bulk up. Now this Palafin at +2/+2. Colin is just kind of styling right now.
Yeah, look like we're memeing a little bit here, but hey, why not? We've had a match, why not? Just enjoy the moment on stage a little bit more. As Palafin is very large and very angry, or maybe not that angry, I guess, because it's not going on the offense. It's kind of vibing.
Yeah, it's just hanging out on the beach, bulking up, getting ready for when it eventually decides to go on the offense.
Yeah, looks like it's kind of comfortable there too, just kind of chilling.
Yeah, hanging out with its boy King Gambit, just sitting on their stump.
It's like, hey man, can you remember that bird used to be frozen? That's crazy.
Wild how that happens. It was just like frozen in air right there. How does that even work? How did it make that happen? Oh, there it goes. A critical hit. Just for good measure there.
Don't worry, I got it.
Palafin's like, I got this, I do it. It's fine. Don't worry about it.
You can't ask for a more exciting match than that one.
Because Scoville, we've already seen already on the stream, but it's older Pokemon that has gotten a Mega Evolution in Legends EA, but Steelix.
Yeah.
That is a Mega Evolution that has been around for a long time.
And it's been around for a long time, and it hasn't really been used at all in a lot of competitive environments. Wolf showing up with this Mega Steelix team, it's really cool. There's a lot of cool stuff on that team that we'll get to see in the team preview phase here. But we got another look at a team like Stevens earlier on in the day. It's going to be that same kind of baton pass Espathra setup team that I think has a lot of potential.
Espathra is one of those Pokemon that, again, like we have seen sort of, here or there. It's been a fleeting moment in some of the regulations that we have had ever since it was introduced in Scarlet Violet. But it really was, I think, most well known for the fact that you could get fast hypnoses with gravity, making those accurate.
Yeah.
But that's actually not something that's going to be on this team, and that's why I think the Espathra nowadays stands out as much as it does, because it's really here to do those combines, get the baton pass, but also, if you see a moment for it, those Lumina crashes hurt. Yeah,
they hurt initially, and also they lower special defense of the target by 2 as soon as it hits. So if you land one Lumina crash, the next one will be even more powerful. Steven's team a little bit different from the one we saw earlier on in the day. I think ideally you're passing to our Chalodon, whereas the one we saw earlier, I think there were 2 or 3 like pretty good targets. But right now you have the Archaludon with the Protect and Leftovers. It's got stamina. If you pass to the Archaludon, you're in a really good spot.
And then you also have Psych Up on the Sylveon that can actually copy the stat boosts from another Pokemon. So let's say you do that, or Archaludon gets those, and then Sylveon's like, okay, I'll take those two, thank you.
I think that's why you want to pass to the Archaludon. It gives you the option to have 2 Pokemon with those boosts instead of just the one, thanks to that Psych Up. But another look at Politoed as well. I don't know if we've seen a Pelipper on stream yet, which has typically been the more popular rain setter in this format. But this is at least our second Politoed.
Yeah, and this Politoed is going to have a Choice Scarf. So one of the things that we saw was a drawback of the Politoed on stream for Billy Brown is that it is a Pokemon that tends to be on the slower side of the speed spectrum.
Yeah.
But all of a sudden, you give it that Choice Scarf, it's going to be faster than a lot of the things in the format.
Yeah, a fast Icy Wind can be really important here. There's not a ton of speed control options available in this format, so something like that Icy Wind could slow down Wolf's Pokemon enough to get that speed advantage.
Wolf's team, though, there's a lot to break down here. Of course, that Mega Steelix is one of those Pokemon that sticks out, but you do have a second Mega evolution in the Tyranitar. We have already seen just how powerful that Tyranitar can be, but this one has Dragon Dance. This is going to be a setup option here for the Tyranitar, and it doesn't stop there, Jake. There's also setup moves on the Talonflame. It has Sword Stance. That is a unique one for sure.
Definitely, and a +2 Sword Stance with that sharp beak is a really good way to get some very powerful Brave Birds. Of course, you do have Gale Wings for that one-time priority Brave Bird, but if Sand is up, you're going to lose that Brave Bird priority immediately unless you use it on your first turn out. So I think if you want to go for that Talonflame mode, you probably want to avoid the Tyranitar until you've used Brave Bird at least once.
This is going to mean that this Talonflame doesn't have Tailwind.
Yeah.
And that's where we look at the Sinistra for the speed control on this team. If you so choose, you do have Trick Room as an option for the Sinistra, and Steelix is one of the slower Pokemon. In its Mega Evolve form, it gets a huge boost to its physical defense, but as you notice there for a lot of Steven's team, it's mostly special attackers. So I wonder how much you're really going to be leaning on the Steelix in this case. Trick Room could still be very valuable. A lot of the Pokemon there for Steven's team are going to be kind of in like the middle portion of the speed, and then let's say that Espatra gets a speed boost, then you like to flip the speed order.
If Trick Room goes up, Steelix should be attacking first very consistently, so that is a pretty great option for Wolf here too. Especially with that Sand Force ability, you can turn off the Rain from Politoed and maybe boost up your Steelix a little more. But no Steelix just yet. We got this Sneasler and the Tyranitar facing off against the Espathra and Incineroar. Immediately Steven trying to look to get those Calm Minds and Baton Passes going.
Well, the Intimidate first is actually going to get rid of the White Herb from the Sneasler. So now it's all of a sudden going to be one of the fastest Pokemon on the field. It's going to be difficult for that Espathra to catch up unless it gets a couple of speed boosts.
It's probably going to need, I think, 3 to outspeed this Sneasler, so it might be a little while before it can do that. Thankfully for Espathra, the Sneasler doesn't threaten it too bad. Of course, you don't necessarily want to take a Dire Claw, but the more important thing to defend yourself against right now is certainly this Tyranitar.
You want to worry about the Lumina Crash, though. I think that's the one thing that would be Sneasler's biggest arch enemy as a poison and fighting type is going to be a super effective, extremely effective psychic type attack going on there. But you can only fake out one Pokemon. I think that's the decision that Steven has to make. But of course, Sneasler has fake out too. So Espathra is actually going to be the one that flinches. A Tyranitar just gets to go for the Rock Slide. Didn't Mega Evolve on this turn. Something that we've seen a lot of trainers try to hold onto just in case the opposing Weather Setter does come in. You can Mega Evolve and overwrite the weather that way. But yeah, what an unfortunate flinch onto the Incineroar.
You wanted one fake out and you got 2 instead. Pretty good first turn for Wolf there. I think the fake out into Espathra is certainly correct there. If you do happen to get that Lumina Crash off into Sneasler, you are immediately knocking it out in one hit. The Incineroar not going for a fake out there, potentially trying to get some damage off with a Flare Blitz or even Parting Shot out. Give Steven a way to protect this Espathra a little bit more. So unfortunately isn't able to because of that flinch. Now this Espathra is not looking too great. The Sneasler now is able to threaten even more with the Dire Claw. Based on how Espathra is trained, it might be able to survive it, but even if you survive, you probably can't Calm Mind. That Rock Slide chip damage also going a long way for Wolf there.
I think you could also realistically go for something like a close combat into the Incineroar. Feels mostly safe. And in fact, it's going to be enough to pick up the knockout. If you lose your Sneasler here, I think you've basically gotten what you've wanted.
Yeah.
The Intimidator is gone. You get to bring in the, the Sinistra for free. You don't actually have something like the Flare Blitz that's going to be dealing with that anymore. So I think you take that. I'm expecting a knockoff to come this Espatro's way to finish it off and give Wolf a 1 Pokemon advantage after losing the Sneasler.
This Culver Berry will reduce the damage, but will it be enough to survive after that chip? It does survive with 21 HP. It might be a couple turns of sand damage away from being knocked out, but surviving here is crucial. We saw it take 12 damage from that sandstorm, so one more turn and it will be knocked out, but you do have the option to go for something like that Baton Pass. Pass those 2 speed boosts that you have gained from speed boost onto something else. But like you said, I think that was a great call. Just getting rid of that Incineroar immediately means that you don't have anything threatening your Steelix with Intimidate anymore. You take away a really good pivot option for Steven there too. So a smart targeting there by Wolf. I think you're very willing to trade your Sneasler for that Incineroar.
I wonder if you actually end up baton passing into something like the Sylveon.
Certainly could, yeah. I think it really depends on Steven's last 2 Pokemon. If it's Archaludon and Politoed, which I somewhat expect, you kind of have to bring in Politoed here because you'd much rather Baton Pass through the Archaludon.
But it's actually Archaludon. So you have to think about this too. There's only one Mega Evolution option on Steven's team, which would be that Scovillain.
True.
But did you actually bring it? Because I think it's actually reasonable to assume that maybe you didn't.
I think it's quite possible he didn't. Looking at Wolf's team, it's not very hospitable to Scovillain. Like, maybe you want to try and get burns on either Tyranitar or Sneasler or even Steelix, but otherwise, this Scovillain doesn't really have a lot to be doing against Wolf's team.
Well, it's going to be the Steelix that actually comes out for the Tyranitar, and we're going to see an immediate pivot there of the Archaludon to the Politoed. A great heads-up play for Wolf to be able to preserve that Sand Stream ability for later, as we actually do see the Espatra Baton Pass out now into the Archaludon. Yeah,
the Archaludon now is going to get those 2 speed boosts, but I fear that Steelix swapping in with Sinistra on the field means that Wolf might have tried to set up Trick Room here, and if that's the case, it will be a case of this Archaludon speed boost being very disadvantageous.
Yeah, because at this point, I mean, you do have the stamina ability on this Archaludon, so you are going to be able to deal with, some of the physical attacks from the Steelix, but Steelix has a mighty big attack stat as a Mega Evolved Pokemon. I don't know how much you can actually deal with the Earth powers there.
Well, not to mention if the Tyranitar swaps in,
high horsepower.
Right, if the Tyranitar swaps in for the Sinistra and you Mega Evolve the Steelix, you get the Sand Force boost, which powers up your attacks even more. You get a lot of attack from Mega Evolving. There's not a whole lot that Steven can do to protect this Archaludon from taking a high horsepower.
Yeah, well, you called it. Tyranitar is here to stay, and Politoed is going to have to either stay or try to bring back the rain. The Steelix Mega Evolving looks quite fun. This is like where I think that maybe Terra kind of came in there, with the idea. Wow, their Archaludon does actually tank that high horsepower, but it's not going to be around for a whole lot longer, I think. Politoed goes for the Muddy Water, and so that is going to be one of the slower things on the field thanks to that Choice Scarf. It actually does take that Steelix down quite low, and the accuracy drop on the Tyranitar.
Ooh, great call from Steven. Just unfortunately not enough to take out that Tyranitar. Really good play there, going for that Flash Cannon into the Sinistra. Maybe you would have been tempted to go for Dragon Pulse, which I think is maybe slightly higher base power, but using Flash Cannon there covers the Tyranitar swap very well. If it had just a little bit more power behind it, it could have been able to knock out the Tyranitar and make this game maybe a little bit closer. But even with all that damage you got from the Muddy Water and Flash Cannon, Wolf's Pokemon will still be attacking first. The accuracy drop onto Tyranitar and not Steelix there, so Steelix can pretty freely go for another one of those high horsepowers. You do have to worry a little bit about this Politoed. It got that Muddy Water off. That was a lot of damage into both of Wolf's Pokemon. And took none itself, so you kind of have to start focusing on it at some point.
I think you just want to Heavy Slam it, no?
Potentially? The Heavy Slam is resisted, right? So you got to go for a high horsepower.
Maybe you do have to high horsepower the Politoed. But I'm thinking here, like, you still have the speed disadvantage if you are Steven.
Yeah.
This Archaladon got those speed boosts from the Espatra. Sinistra's going to come back in, and the Hospitality is actually going to heal a pretty considerable amount of damage, and also does put Wolf in a position where that Tyranitar can come back in at any moment. You're just hoping here that you're not going to take any damage. And the wide guard is perfect because you know the Muddy Water is coming.
Yeah.
So that's at least going to stop that for one turn while you get the Sinistra in for free.
Really, really good play by Wolf there. The wide guard will protect you from Muddy Water. The Politoed is again holding that Choice Scarf item, so it cannot use another attack. And since the sand is up, the Archaladon, well, I guess you can't Electroshot a Steelix anyway, but only having Dragon and Steel type moves, Steelix really doesn't care about what this Archaladon can throw at it right now, especially considering that healing from Hospitality. So by switching in Sinistra here, you give yourself a chance to threaten this Politoed Machagacha as well.
And you just have, you have Rage Powder, just because also Archaladon's not going to be doing too much to you either. Archaladon does get a double protect though, so that's actually kind of a big deal to try to stall through some of these final turns of the Trick Room. But we do see that the Sinistra actually went for Machagacha, so that's going to be spread damage that's going to land into the Espatra as well. And that's going to finish it off, and that's going to bring in the Politoed for free. Yeah,
Politoed is forced to re-enter the field. We'll be able to set the rain back up, but because Wolf swapped out that Tyranitar, does have it still in the back to set up that sand once again. I think there's still at least one more turn of Trick Room for us, so the Steelix will still have the speed advantage. And because this Politoed is Choice Scarf, it might not be super bulky. There's a chance that the Sand Force boosted high horsepower might be enough to knock it out outright.
One more turn of Trick Room left, right, and then of course the rain just got set. But it's tough because do you really want to try to open yourself up?
Yeah, what do you do here? The Archaladon isn't threatening Steelix at all unless you get an Electroshot boost. But trying to go for Electroshot into Sinistra is very risky on this turn.
You can't KO it.
The Tyranitar back in. You're locked into that charge up turn, and then you've wasted 2 turns of not damaging Steelix with your Archaladon. I think this Politoed is becoming more of a problem for Wolf, though, because if you let it go for something like a Muddy Water here, it might come very close to knocking out Steelix, even with the sand going back up.
It is close, but you should be able to get through one more. I think you can get through one more. Archaladon tried to go for a triple protect, though. It's going to fail. So this time around, this Steelix not going to mess around. Has the high horsepower to get the knockout, but now you have to deal with this Politoed that Muddy Water, if it comes out, is going to knock out the Tyranitar from here, but it's in fact just the Weather Ball. So that's what you lock into, and that's just not going to get the job done.
Especially with that Rock-type Weather Ball into the double resistant Steelix here. I think this is pretty wrapped up for Wolf. I think Steven very correctly not locking into Muddy Water there. In the case that Archaladon does go down and Steelix does not get knocked out by Muddy Water, then you just get wide guarded to death and you just can't do damage for the rest of the game. So I think Steven did what he had to, but Wolf, knowing that, swapping in Tyranitar there made that a very safe end game.
Yeah, that's a great point. Since there is that Choice Scarf on the Politoed, you can't change the move, and with the additional Pokemon in the back. I think you end up getting that Machagacha, I think. I would love to know how much Machagacha does from Sinistra into a Politoed single target.
I mean, I would guess it 2 at KOs if the Politoed doesn't really have any training in its HP and special defense stats, but it's a tool that Wolf has that he didn't necessarily have to use in this game, so maybe concealing that could come in handy in the next couple of games.
Trick Room worked out great though, so I think it's on Steven to figure out ways to get through it. But it's tough because I think when you look at the moveset that the Steelix has, it's got high horsepower and heavy slam. Archaladon's weak to that. Sylveon is weak to the heavy slam. And Incineroar is weak to high horsepower. There's a lot of Pokemon on this team that just don't do well into it. But we didn't see Steven bring the Mega Scovillain.
We didn't see the Scovillain at all. I have to wonder if it will come. Again, it's kind of tough to bring into Wolf's team, because even if you are able to get a burn onto something like Tyranitar or Sneasler, you have Talonflame that's immune to burns thanks to its fire typing. If Wolf does opt to bring the Talonflame, it's a great answer into that Scovillain. Even if Talonflame doesn't come, you can get a lot of chip damage with Scovillain with Sand. Something like Rock Slide from Tyranitar will do a great job into it. And it doesn't necessarily just want to sit on the field against Wolf's team, because even with some burns throwing around, that sand damage racks up, the rock slide damage racks up, the sand force boosted attacks from the Steelix rack up as well.
But it is going to be the Scovillain that makes an appearance. And I was going to say, the one caveat that I would say is you still have to give respect over to the Scovillain, no matter what. And you've got a lot of physical attackers on this team. So if you can't find a way to get a one-hit knockout into the Scovillain, that's 2 burned Pokemon on your side of the field. You can even protect the Espatra here, get a speed boost. The Unburden didn't activate on the Sneasler just yet, so that might actually give you a speed advantage into the Sneasler on the next turn. It's a fake out though, so that's also one way that you can kind of deal with this Espatra for now, is just fake it out and deal with it next time. But that's going to give room for this Tyranitar to go for a Dragon Dance, increasing its attack and speed.
Flamethrower immediately into that Tyranitar, maybe trying to get a little bit more chip damage into it. Maybe fish for a burn on the Flamethrower, but not going to happen just yet. I think they're a great turn by Wolf there, getting that Dragon Dance up, immediately saying, okay, I'm not going to lean on Trick Room just yet. I've got this Dragon Dance Tyranitar. Now it is threatening a lot more damage. It means if you do go for a Rock Slide with this Tyranitar, you're maybe knocking out the Scovillain outright, and if not knocking it out, you're coming very, very close. If you have to trade getting burned for almost knocking out the Scovillain, I think that's a trade that's worthwhile.
I still might have double protected on that first turn, because I think I would have liked to see if I get anything fun from the Moody boosts from the Scovillain.
Right.
Because sometimes we see that where you're like, oh, maybe I get a nice juicy special attack boost. And the speed drop, like we saw earlier on stream from Mega Scovillain, and then you can Mega Evolve, and then the Spicy Extract is in play. But there's not going to be any Moody boost for this Scovillain. It's just going to kind of just be here as Espatra gets a free Calm Mind. Actually, I say that. Could just be a knockoff from the Tyranitar that's going to chunk it down quite low. But it's another Dragon Dance. So here's another way that you can get around the Spicy Extract from the Scovillain. You have to hit it at some point. But look at the, look at how well this Tyranitar is actually going to deal with something like the Giga Drain. You can have the +2 now, which will neutralize getting burned.
It will, yeah. And at +2, I think you are certainly one at killing this Scovillain with Rock Slide as well. So again, you're making sure you're trading getting burned by the Scovillain's ability for taking a knockout on the Scovillain, while also this Espatra getting a Calm Mind up means that if you are able to get a Baton Pass off, it is much more potent. The 2 speed boosts on Espatra matching the 2 boosts from Tyranitar's Dragon Dance mean it still will be acting first, but only having Lumina Crash, you can either try and get a knockout into the Sneasler with Lumina Crash. I don't know if you can take a +2 Rock Slide. You might have to use a Baton Pass now.
And the Espatra is still going to be faster than the Tyranitar here. It's going to protect itself for now because, and the Scovillain will too. So you're going to at least stave off the Rock Slide for 1 turn. But I'm curious to know what this Sneasler is actually going to end up doing here. It would have been a free close combat. You know, that's actually another thing that I really love about the Dragon Dance play. It's not even just about getting the +2 attack to try to neutralize the burn. You have +2 speed.
Yeah.
What an interesting interaction to see the Tyranitar move before the Sneasler, and there's no Trick Room.
And it means that if the Tyranitar does get that Rock Slide off, you knock out Scovillain, there's no chance your Sneasler gets burned by that Scovillain redirected gets attacked. And I love that Wolf did go for the close combat there. If Sneasler gets to attack on this turn, it's because Espatra went for Baton Pass. And if the Baton passes, it's probably into Archaludon. If you close combat the Archaludon on the swap, you've gained so much more ground than if you happen to maybe catch the, try to Dire Claw and it go into the Archaludon instead. So it's really smart play here. The Unburden not being active, Wolf is very aware of that. It knows that this Tyranitar can protect Sneasler from getting burned.
I wonder, though, if you actually end up switching in the Sinistra here at any point. Because if you're expecting Baton Pass to come through, then I would say maybe you can prepare for Sinistra to come in and actually go for Trick Room. But we're not actually going to see a swap. So maybe this time it will just be a Rock Slide to finish off the Scovillain and then the close combat here. Father did have a point or a moment to be able to go for the, the Lumina Crash. But that Scovillain is out of here. Archaludon unfortunately has to take a stamina boost, so I actually do wonder whether or not the Sneasler can pick up the knockout. But this was a worthwhile trade to take the burn for your Dragon Dance attack boosts.
think it probably survives. Yeah, with that stamina boost, you're able to hang on. But that's still really, really important damage here. This Archaludon now has a lot of speed boost. It has the special attack boost, that's a special defense boost. But more importantly now, it's at +2 defense. It's got the leftovers. Now is when this Archaludon can attempt to start taking over this game. If you didn't get the close combat off into Archaludon there, that would have been very, very difficult to take down. The Wolf correctly identifying, like, I cannot let this Archaludon in close range.
Yeah, but I think the Sneasler, now that the Unburden is active, is faster than the Archaludon at +2.
Ooh, is it 2 or this Spathra might have gotten 3
Oh, it's 3. It's 3 speed boosts. You're right, actually.
So they go Archaludon might have the advantage over Sneasler. It might be pretty close.
Ooh, that is close.
But this Tyranitar is burned now. You got the Spicy Spray to burn the Tyranitar. But at +2 attack, might still be able to KO this Espathra with knockoff through that Pulver Berry because you did get those boosts with Dragon Dance. So still not a great spot for Steven to be in, but this Archaludon is your way back into this game.
But you probably need, like, okay, so you're threatening Flash Cannon or Dragon Pulse if you want to get damage off immediately.
Yeah.
Or you have to switch in your Politoed to get the rain up.
Right.
Sand is about to expire. There's only 1 turn of Sand left, so you could also kind of wait it out and see what's going to happen after this turn. But this Archaludon actually ends up protecting itself. That's going to allow this Tyranitar to just go for knockoff here. Now, knockoff doesn't happen before the Cobra Berry activates, but that is a crazy survival from this Espathra.
Yeah.
It's going to be able to get the Luna Crash off into the Sneasler and bring in something new. But the sand is going, so the sand is expiring. There's not going to be any sand chip to actually deal any extra damage to this Espathra since it's expired on this turn.
That's a huge survival for that Espathra. Getting rid of Sneasler means that close combat is no longer in play for Wolf. This Archaludon now is looking a lot better than it was about 30 seconds ago when the Sneasler was still threatening those close combats. Sinistcha comes in, we'll be able to protect that Tyranitar with Rage Powder and also heal it back up with that Hospitality. Now you do have the option to go for that Trick Room. A combination of attacks from these 2 Pokemon I think is maybe not enough. The Espathra having only 1 speed boost here means that it's not going to outspeed Archaludon. So if the Espathra was faster, you could go for a combination Lumina Crash and Dragon Pulse, which with the -2 deep special defense might be enough to prevent a Trick Room here. But because that Archaludon now is at +3 and Espathra's only at +1, you would probably need to wait a couple turns. I don't know if you can afford that.
Yeah, you're right, because you would really want the Espathra to be faster than your Archaludon. And if you wait, then that Trick Room's going up, whether you like it or not.
Right. And especially if it's that Steelix in the back, I think that's not going to be great for it.
It's going to be protective, the Sinistcha, though, so maybe hoping to get a bit more mileage out of the Tyranitar, and I think Wolf might have got it, because Tyranitar just gets to 1 more knockoff into this Archaludon. It's going to actually get rid of the leftovers, and that's kind of the biggest arch enemy of some of these teams.
Yeah.
Getting rid of that leftovers that's going to constantly be healing you back up.
That is really important. Now this leftovers are gone, the Archaludon, any damage it takes will stick for the rest of the match. There's no other way to heal it on Steven's team. So now, even though it's getting more stamina boost, I think it's at +2 defense now, any damage it takes will be contributing to it being knocked out. It's actually +3 defense, so not going to take too much from those physical attacks, but a high horsepower from Steelix might still be able to knock it out, depending on what Wolf's last Pokemon is. I would assume it's that Steelix again. So I have to imagine your goal might be to set up Trick Room here and then just hope Steelix can close it out.
Yeah, I think that's a great call, but you have to find a way to actually get rid of the, I was going to say the Espathra. Steelix is just going to come in.
Yeah.
I don't hate that. I mean, it's going to be a Dragon Pulse first here. Archaludon is still faster than the Espathra, and then the Lumina Crash will follow it up if you were expecting there to be a double. So now the Steelix is going to be at -2 special defense. It cannot afford to take another attack, but I mean, this Tyranitar just has other plans. If it can connect onto both, and it doesn't, the Espathra is going to avoid the Rock Slide. This Archaludon is going to take negligible damage from that.
Well, now Steven, I think, is back in the driver's seat. This Espathra, I think, should be outspeeding the Archaludon after this turn, which means that now you've unlocked the ability to go for that combination Lumina Crash and attack from Archaludon. Even the Steelix, it took a lot of damage on the swap. Potentially, the next Lumina Crash might be enough.
It might be enough, yeah.
It might, I forget if it gains special defense when Mega Evolving, it might get a little bit, but that Steelix is dangerously close to being knocked out here. And this Tyranitar, while at +2 is still burned, I don't think it's going to be able to knock out this Archaludon on its own.
Sinister can come back in. It's going to give a bit of HP recovery over to the Steelix, but I still don't think that that's going to be enough to get it out of dodge.
Yeah.
Steelix is still going to Mega Evolve here because you may as well use it. Tyranitar a little too low, and the burn definitely hurting its a damage output at this point. But Espathra goes for the Lumina Crash into the Sinistcha. So maybe the Steelix is able to get through this turn. Archaludon to follow up with a Dragon Pulse here is going to knock out the Sinistcha, but I wonder if this is actually an opening for Wolf to get back into this game. Maybe expecting there to be a Protect, but the high horsepower, even at +4 defense from those stamina boosts, is going to knock out this Archaludon, and it will just be the final 2 Pokemon here.
That was a really great play from Steven. You went for the Lumina Crash into a Tyranitar, which is often something you probably shouldn't be doing, but wanting to cover that Sinistcha swap very, very well. Gets Wolf down to his final 2 Pokemon alongside Steven. What is it going to be? It's probably the Politoed again, if I had to guess. And there it is. Based on these speed interactions, we should have Sand up at the end of the beginning of the turn. And we do have Muddy Water, which would be very threatening, but again, Steelix does have that Wide Guard.
Yeah, you could wide guard here, but I think you still have to worry a little bit about the fact that you did take a -2 to your special defense from an earlier Lumina Crash.
Yeah.
You don't have the speed advantage if you're the Steelix, but can you survive a double up of like Ice Beam and Lumina Crash? Because I don't think so.
It would be tough. Also of note, the Sand being back up means that this Espathra only has 2 turns left on the field. We saw it take 12 damage from the Sandstorm in game number 1. It'll go down to 3 HP remaining at the end of this turn, and then be knocked out afterwards. I think Wolf, presumably going for a double Protect here, makes a lot of sense. And see what the Politoed locks itself into. If it is that Muddy Water, you have Wide Guard to try and close out this game. If it is the Rock-type Weather Ball again, it might be very difficult to make headway here.
It is going to be the Ice Beam. So now you know that there are going to be single target attacks. That chip damage is just not quite enough to actually get the knockout onto this Espathra, but you bought yourself, I think, time. You can only knock out one of these Pokemon.
Yeah.
And you gotta pick wisely.
But in return, can you knock out the Politoed? Like, if you go for Lumina Crash, or can Wolf knock out Politoed? If Steven goes for Lumina Crash and Ice Beam into Steelix, that should be enough for a knockout. And then even though this Tyranitar will have that special defense boost, it probably isn't enough.
And you didn't get the double Protect here, so it's just going to be a Lumina Crash to drop this Steelix's special defenses to -4. And this Politoed should have no trouble being able to pick it off at the end of this turn. Ice Beam comes out. Steelix is going to take that and go down. And we've tied up this series, it feels like. Bar a critical hit from this Tyranitar, but it goes for the Dragon Dance. Okay, so it's going to get a speed boost and an attack boost here, but is it actually enough to knock out this Politoed?
It might be really close. The special defense boost here from Tyranitar in the Sand, I don't know if it's going to be enough, even if this first Ice Beam doesn't knock it out.
Same type attack bonus, Ice Beam. Yeah, you still have burn damage at the end of this turn.
And you're still burned, so you're at +1 attack, but you're not hitting at full power, because even though you're +1, you're still not doing max damage.
Well, Politoed still moves first, and it just barely doesn't get the knockout on the Tyranitar, so there's one chance this knockoff has to come out and deal the finishing blow, and it can't. So Tyranitar will knock itself out at the end of this turn from its burn damage, and we're going to a game 3.
What an exciting turnaround from Steven there. It looked like Wolf was in the driver's seat after that couple Dragon Dances early on. Get the Scovillain knocked out. Get a lot of damage on Archaludon on the switch, but Steven played that really, really well, maximizing the use of that Espathra after the Calm Mind and Baton Pass, comes back in, gets those crucial Lumina Crashes into the Steelix to set it up for a KO.
Oh my gosh, that game went so long, I forgot there was a Calm Mind boost.
Yeah.
Also on that Archaludon.
Yeah.
Right, I mean, so you don't even need the Electro Shot there, like, you just have the kind of 1-2 punch of that Lumina Crash and whatever attack that this Archaludon wanted to dish out. Of course, this game looks differently if the Rock Slide connects onto the Espathra on that one turn where Espathra only had like a sliver of HP left. Because then I think the Steelix does get through this game. It doesn't take the damage here from the first Lumina Crash to drop its special defenses. And then of course it's not at -4 if it takes another one.
It's really interesting back and forth there. I I think Wolf played that early game very well, and then just kind of got caught up by that Espathra doing a lot more than you might expect it to after it's already gotten that Calm Mind baton pass off. So maybe knocking out the Espathra could become more of a priority for Wolf going forward, even after it's been able to get that baton pass off, proving that it is still very useful.
That Scovillain did put a little bit of a damper on things. Yeah. Having it at the very beginning of the game, tough because it kind of forced Wolf into a position where he had to Dragon Dance twice to feel like he was confident to be able to get through that and be okay with the burn that happened.
Right.
But I kind of wonder if you almost took too much time. Would you have actually rather you throw out the Rock Slide and even take the... No, you probably don't want the burn on the Sneasler.
You could have knocked it out immediately if you go for something like Dire Claw plus Rock Slide, but then you get 2 burns on your 2 physical attackers instead of just the Tyranitar. And I think that close combat into Archaludon is very important, so dodging that burn is a great way to set up that Archaludon to get knocked out. But we don't see the Scovillain just yet. We're back to the Incineroar, which will immediately give Sneasler that White Herb Unburden speed boost.
Could still go for a fake out into either of these Pokemon. I feel like the first game we ended up seeing the fake out into the Espathra, and then Incineroar did just try to go for something probably like a parting shot.
Right.
But did get flinched from the Rock Slide, so I wonder if you switch that up at all, if you expect that Incineroar is going to try to fake you out too.
It's tough. I think you kind of have to fake out the Espathra here, because if you don't, you are just giving up your Sneasler to a Lumina Crash most likely. And with the Intimidate and the Tyranitar and the Colbur Berry on the Espathra, there's no way you're knocking it out with that knockoff. Even with a critical hit, you're probably not taking it out because of that berry. So I think you might need to preserve that Sneasler a little bit. Either swap it out or go for the fake out into that Espathra.
Well, it's going to be a switch out of the Tyranitar immediately as Steelix takes its place. As fake out once again finds its mark into the Espathra to stop it on this turn. And it's going to be the Steelix that takes the fake out this time. And so it's just kind of a, rotating door fake outs. You get a fake out, and you get a fake out, and you get some sandstorm damage.
I love the Steelix turning to the Incineroar, just staring down at it.
It's like, you're gonna do what?
And what? No, I mean, I think a much better position for Wolf here. This Steelix is so bulky, especially once it Mega Evolves. It has a sky-high defense stat. This Incineroar is threatening with a Flare Blitz, but I think if you Flare Blitz it, you're taking a lot of recoil and maybe even being knocked out by high horsepower. So you gotta be very careful what you do with this Incineroar here.
I think high horsepower feels safe into any of these Pokemon, especially because if you try to bring in something like the Archaludon, that's not going to feel great, even with the baton passes there. The Sneasler goes for the close combat into the Incineroar. That's just a one-hit knockout. Wow. That is the power of the Sneasler, with the White Herb is able to cleanse that Intimidate drop, and you're still doing super effective damage. So Steelix doesn't even get a chance to have some fun in this round.
That's exactly why the White Herb has become the de facto item on this Sneasler. It is really good into Incineroar, because Incineroar can survive a close combat if Sneasler is at -1. But if you just have the one Intimidate down on Sneasler, that White Herb will protect you, and you get the full-powered close combat. And now Steven is down to just 3 Pokemon immediately. This Espathra really wants to get that Calm Mind up before it can go for the baton pass, but because you've already lost that Incineroar, the Steelix is at full power and is not necessarily being heavily threatened either by that Espathra.
Well, you also can only have 1 Pokemon left in the back. I was going to say, what is there? You usually would have Archaludon and Politoed.
Right.
But you don't. You can only have one of them. What if it's a Sylveon in the back? Who knows? But
it's possible. I would assume it's still the Archaludon. It's pretty strong into Wolf's team if you do get those boosts going, but you have to deal with the Steelix. Wolf does not want that Steelix to get hit by a flamethrower from this Scovillain, so he's opting to swap it out into Tyranitar immediately.
And Caesar's going to go for Dire Claw. I mean, that's one way that you can keep this Scovillain in check. You know that you're likely going to be falling to a Lumina Crash on the receiving end. Or if it ends up being the Tyranitar, that is all of a sudden immune to the Lumina Crash. Scovillain gets to go for the Flamethrower as well. Would have loved to be able to land that into the Mega Steelix that has those deep, well, I was going to say just not as nice, I guess, physical defenses here.
Yeah.
But you have this Espathra that should, I think, be faster than the Sneasler now. It's at +3.
Yeah, so at +3, it should be outspeeding this Unburdened Sneasler, which does give you the option to go for that Lumina Crash and knock it out before it can attack. If you do that, the Scovillain can potentially get a burn on this Tyranitar. But if you're going for the Lumina Crash on this turn, that's another turn you're spending not Calm Minding. Scovillain is very, very low on HP. Any attack from Tyranitar could knock it out. If you lose Scovillain this turn without going for Baton Pass, you have nothing left to pass to.
Wow. Well, it is just going to be the Dark Claw. It's actually faster still than this Espatra, and it's going to be the Lumina Crash to take out this Sneasler. But if this is a Rock Slide to follow up, double connecting into both Pokemon would be pretty good for the game. Tyranitar is not going to miss this time around. Barely misses the KO on the Espatra again.
Yeah.
And this Tyranitar is going to get burned in the process.
But I think you're very fine with that. You've brought Steven down to his final 2 Pokemon. This Espatra is on the field. We'll be taking sand damage here, and one more turn of sand will knock it out. Importantly, you cannot Baton Pass anymore. You've lost 2 Pokemon. There's nothing left in the back to pass to. So whatever Steven brings out here will be his final Pokemon, and this Espatra has accomplished essentially nothing after getting that Lumina Crash off into Sneasler.
And look, there's no Politoed, so there's no way to be able to take the sand away from the Steelix that is waiting in the wings. As soon as it comes back in to give this Tyranitar a much-needed drink of matcha, you can double protect here. Espatra knocks itself out.
I think the last turn of Sandstorm, so I want to say if it is the final turn, it's not actually going to be knocked out here. But I think you're fine with that, right? Like, you're also not doing too much to Tyranitar, especially because it has that Sinistcha next to it to protect it with Rage Powder. If you're able to get something like a knockoff off into our Chaladon, then all of your damage starts to stick again, despite that stamina.
Oh, well, I guess maybe hoping for a Rage Powder there, or even just something else to switch in. But it isn't going to. So there's no Lumina Crash damage onto the Tyranitar, or what Steven was hoping for. And thus our Chaladon has been left on its lonesome. 3 Pokemon left here for Wolf to take it down, but you've got to be methodical. Don't want to give over too many stamina boosts to this Pokemon, but you know Steelix is going to be close to finishing up the job. One way to make sure that you've got the speed in your favor is going to be setting up the Trick Room so Steelix can come in and finish the game.
I think this is still a very, very strong position for Wolf. You do have to be a little bit careful about this Archaladon and its stamina. You can afford to attack it once or twice before you get that high horsepower off. I think crucially, you really want to get that knockoff into the Archaladon, get rid of that leftovers, make sure it's not recovering anything. But instead, Wolf is opting to swap out Tyranitar, wants to make sure he gets that full-powered, high horsepower in the sand before any stamina boost can come through.
I think that's fine.
I do too.
We did see that it was close to being able to pick up the knockout, but just not quite enough.
Yeah.
But then, too, you're fine.
Yeah. I mean, especially this Archaladon, again, doesn't have a special attack boost. It really can't damage the Steelix at all. You can get a high horsepower off here, give it a stamina boost, even with some leftovers recovery. It's going to be in range for another one. And importantly, Archaladon just won't threaten Steelix at all in return.
Can we take a moment before this game ends to appreciate the size difference between the Mega Steelix and Tyranitar the Teeny?
That's so great. Oh, I love it.
It's beautiful.
We are going to get this Stand Force boosted high horsepower into the 0 defense boost Archaladon on these coming turns, which will be really important for Wolf here. After that high horsepower comes through, you can follow up with a knockoff. If not knock it out, you just get it immediately.
Okay, well, that's one way to do it. Your Chaladon is down, and Wolf Glick undefeated for day 1 of the Indianapolis Regional Championships.
Really impressive run. I think Mega Steelix was on a grand total of 1 people's radar going into this event, and it was Wolf's. But showing us that Mega Steelix, even though it hasn't been very popular, wasn't even very